Hey everyone, Firescale Audiobooks here. If there's a novel you'd love to hear more of, you can support us on Patreon or Ko-fi. Depending on your tier, I'll make extra parts just for the stories you're most excited about. Usually I can only upload 4 to 5 parts of each novel, but with your support we can go beyond that. And of course, don't forget to hit subscribe. It helps more than you know.
The cold rain pattered against her face and Xia Nuan slowly lifted her heavy eyelids. Upon seeing the courtyard, which was both extremely familiar and unfamiliar, I was immediately filled with confusion and shock. Isn't she already dead? In the third year of the apocalypse, Lu Jiaozhao's new boyfriend complimented her on her beauty. Fearing that she would block his daughter's path to marrying into a wealthy family, Lu Jiancheng took advantage of her serious injuries and decided to sell her to the black market. Do you know how your parents and brother died? I deliberately spread the word that you'd been kidnapped by the black market and gave them a fake address. Those 3 idiots were so worried they rushed to rescue you without even checking. They're probably riddled with bullets by now. She was sold to a sadist who enjoyed torture and murder. Its flesh was cut off piece by piece, mutilated beyond recognition, and fed to wild dogs. The incredibly precious medicine in the apocalypse was used by the pervert to prolong her torture, forcibly keeping her alive. Finally, the pervert turned her into a human pig and put her in a jar. Only when the icy liquor was poured into the jar, completely submerging her and filling her mouth and nose, did she finally breathe her last. Xia Nuan thought she was finally free. How did we end up back at the door of our pre-apocalyptic home in the blink of an eye? Click. The luxuriously decorated door suddenly opened, and a middle-aged man in a suit and tie, exuding an imposing aura, walked out. He looked down at Xia Nuan and reprimanded her sternly. Xia Nuan, Zhao Zhao just got home and you've been making things difficult for her and giving her attitude at every turn. How can you be so malicious? I made you kneel here today so you can reflect on your actions. If you still refuse to repent and make things difficult for Zhao Zhao, then go back to where you came from. Upon hearing some familiar words, Xia Nuan's mind went blank, and it took her a long time to pull out the same scene from the corner of her memory. A month before the apocalypse, Xia Nuan was suddenly informed by her adoptive parents that she was not their biological child, but a fake heiress who had been switched at birth. When she and the real heiress were born, the nurses switched their wristbands, and the 2 families mistakenly gave birth to the wrong babies. It was only when the real heiress took the initiative to come and claim her as her own that the misunderstanding was discovered. After the real heiress Lu Jiaozhao returned, she always regarded her as an enemy. She pretended to be weak and helpless, but secretly she verbally provoked her and tried every means to drive her out of the house. In her memory, today was because Lu Jiaozhao broke a gift given by her adoptive mother, and the blame was placed on her. Without distinguishing right from wrong, her adoptive father punished her by making her kneel outside to reflect on her actions. A light drizzle was falling outside. She knelt all night, and the next day she developed a high fever and almost died from it. Xia Nuan raised her hand and touched her forehead, which was already a little hot. The realistic touch, the scene indistinguishable from memory, was she reborn. The shock and ecstasy of being given a second chance at life came one after another. In her past life, in order to gain sympathy, Lu Jiaozhao constantly complained about her difficult past life, her family's preference for sons over daughters, and the hardships she had endured. Xia Nuan believed it to be true, fearing that she would live the same life if she went back. And unable to sever her 20-year bond with her adoptive parents, she shamelessly stayed in their home. After the apocalypse, her biological parents came looking for her several times, but she ignored them and treated them like monsters. In the end, her biological parents died trying to save her, while her adoptive parents, whom she had always been filial to and relied on, sold her to evil people for torture. Thinking of the scene before her death, Xia Nuan unconsciously clenched her fists. He gritted his teeth, pushed himself up, and stood up straight. She stared intently at her adoptive father, Lu Jiancheng, her eyes sharp and cold, like a ferocious beast ready to devour him, her gaze gleaming with malice. I can go back to where I came from, but before that you must return what belongs to me. Xia Nuan tried her best to calm the surging hatred in her heart. The clenched fist loosened slightly. We can't kill him now. The real apocalypse won't begin for another month. Right now, the order is intact, and it's not worth getting into trouble by killing someone. She'll let this family of beasts live a little longer, and after the apocalypse, she won't let any of the past grudges slip by. We raised you all these years, providing for your food, clothing, and everything else. What in this house is truly yours? If you obediently apologize to Jiaozhao and promise never to disobey your parents and sister again, I might consider changing your surname back to Lu's, and letting you continue as a daughter of the Lu family." Lu Jiancheng looked down at Xia Nuan with a mocking gaze. His tone and manner were exactly like giving alms to a stray dog on the street. "There's no need for that. I have no interest in being sisters or relatives with trash. Return the bracelet that Lu Jiaozhao tricked my parents out of. Let's put it back where it belongs." Xia Nuan looked up and met Lu Jiancheng's gaze. Her posture was as upright as a pine tree. Although she was soaked to the bone by the rain, she did not look disheveled at all, like a pine or cypress tree that stands firm against wind and rain. "Ha, what a hopeless, despicable ingrate. You bullied my sister first and you acted like it was your life to apologize. Now you dare to talk to me like that? Do you really think you're something special? Once you leave the Lu family, you can forget about your future." Even though Lu Jiancheng was usually very composed and steady, he was so angry upon hearing these words that he almost fainted. Xia Nuan gave a dismissive, cold laugh. "The world is about to end. What good is the future?" If Lu Jiancheng hadn't mentioned it, she would have almost forgotten that she used to be an archery athlete. She won the national championship at the age of 13, earning the reputation of a prodigy archery girl throughout the country. She later won numerous world-class competitions, and the Lu family, relying on her fame, entered the sports industry, multiplying their assets again and again. In reality, it wasn't the Lu family supporting her financially, rather she was supporting the Lu family. If she were to announce a break with the Lu family and speak ill of them, their business would inevitably suffer, as they would lose the aura of being the family of a champion. In her past life, she was blinded by a leaf. Her adoptive father was angry and punished her, while her adoptive mother comforted her afterwards. She thought that the real heiress was cunning and had deceived them. Looking back now, it was all just a game of good cop, bad cop, a performance to brainwash her. They said they would kick her out of the house, making her feel scared and afraid, but in reality, they were the ones who least wanted her to leave. "Old man, you and I both know perfectly well how the Lu family has grown so powerful these past few years. Don't play dumb. I don't care about the future, do whatever you want. But if you don't want the stock price to fluctuate, you'd better hurry up and send me away with my family's bracelet and 10 million. Otherwise, who knows what I might say." Xia Nuan also threatens people. Not only that, she also tries to raise the price on the spot. "Next, we need to prepare supplies and we absolutely need money." The old man just happened to be in the line of fire, so it would be a huge loss if we didn't take the opportunity to squeeze him out of him. "Oh, really? The prestigious Lu family wouldn't be so greedy as to covet even a small bracelet, would they? They wouldn't be unable to afford a 10 million yuan hush money, would they? Are the Lu family going to hold a press conference tomorrow to announce their bankruptcy?" Seeing Lu Jiancheng so angry that his lips trembled and he couldn't utter a word for a long time, Xia Nuan continued to speak sarcastically. "The old man is very concerned about his reputation. If she treats him so sarcastically, he'll definitely give her the money and things out of spite." As expected, Lu Jiancheng couldn't stand the mockery. He turned around angrily and went back into the house. He reappeared 15 minutes later with a bank card and a bracelet in his hand. He threw the two objects at Xia Nuan. Xia Nuan reacted quickly, catching the bracelet and card and holding them to her arms. Lu Jiaozhao chased after her, staring wide-eyed at the bracelet in her hand, her voice almost cracking with anxiety. "Dad, those are mine. How could you give them to her? It's just some junk you brought from a poor family. What's so special about it? Dad will buy you something better tomorrow. Xia Nuan's things are already yours, so get out of here. I want to see what you can do without the Lu family's protection." Lu Jiancheng grabbed his daughter, who was about to rush forward, turned around and went back into the house without saying a word, slamming the door shut. Summer warmth remained in the courtyard. The cold wind was howling and the rain was still washing over her body. She felt as if she were soaking in a furnace, but the joy in her heart had already overwhelmed this discomfort. Clutching the two items tightly in her hands, she left the courtyard without hesitation, her steps light and quick, like a free bird released from its cage. Her loving family is waiting for her. Soon, very soon we will be reunited. After changing into dry, fresh clothes at a hotel, Xia Nuan held the bracelet in her hands and examined it closely. The silver-white bracelet shimmered under the light, its simple spiral shape revealing nothing special about it except for the unknown material. Is this the thing? Is there a hidden space inside? Xia Nuan frowned in thought, took out the fruit knife she had bought on the way, made a cut on her fingertip and pressed it onto the bracelet. Suddenly, the bracelet seemed to come alive, absorbing the blood from her fingertips and emitting an even stronger glow. Xia Nuan was in a daze for a moment, and everything before her eyes changed instantly. Blue sky and white clouds, green mountains and clear waters, a vast expanse of fields and a wooden house in the background. What a beautiful pastoral scene. There really is a hidden space inside the bracelet. Looking at the boundless wilderness, Xia Nuan couldn't help but smile, her eyes crinkling. In her previous life, when the apocalypse came, because she was good at archery and had been an athlete, her physical fitness and combat skills were quite good, so the task of going out to find supplies fell to her. Every time she went out, she would return with a full load of things, but not long after, her adoptive parents would complain that they were broke and didn't have enough to eat. It was either stolen, used up, or given away out of pity. She wasn't stupid. She had wondered why the supplies in her home were being used up so quickly, but after secretly searching, she found that there was indeed nothing left in her living quarters, so she could only believe their lies. Later, she was targeted when she went out. After a fierce battle, she was seriously injured. She managed to drag the supplies home, but she had no medicine and could only wait to die. It was at this time that Lu Jiancheng, that B ****D, suggested that she make the most of her last bit of use by exchanging her body for some food. She had just found a lot of food. The family didn't need those 2 mouthfuls of moldy brown rice at all. She was angry, but it was all in vain. Before tying her up and selling her to the black market, Lu Jiazhou couldn't resist showing off. She ran up to Xia Nuan and confessed that the real reason why supplies were consumed so quickly in the past was because she had a personal space inside her bracelet. They had been hiding the supplies so that Xia Nuan would eat and drink well when she went out, and then eat plain porridge and pickles when she returned. The bracelet with the spatial ability was a token of love between Xia Nuan's biological parents. Lu Jiazhou coaxed and tricked her into giving it to him, saying she liked it and only wanted to wear it for a few days. Selling Xia Nuan to the black market was just a pretext. The real purpose was to inform her biological parents of the news so that they would go to rescue her and take away all of her biological parents' supplies. They want to drain Xia Nuan's family dry. The reason, too, is quite ridiculous. Lu Jiazhou said it was simply because they found Xia Nuan's family very disagreeable. Her parents did come to rescue her, but they were riddled with bullets. Her brother arrived late, carrying Lu Jiancheng's head, and perished together with the black market boss who had bought and sold her. Even now, Lu Jiazhou's arrogant face and the scene of her family's tragic deaths are still vivid in my mind. Xia Nuan looked at the open fields and closed her eyes, taking a deep breath of the fresh air. In this lifetime, she got the bracelet back. The Lu family lost their greatest asset for survival in the apocalypse, while she gained this opportunity. No matter what, she will never let the Lu family hurt her and her family again, and she will protect those who truly love her. Pulled from her memories, Xia Nuan began to explore the space. Her gaze fell upon the prominent and enormous wooden sign in front of the cabin. Curious, she leaned closer and saw that the pattern drawn on the wooden sign was exactly the same as the interface of her favorite farm game before the apocalypse. Try touching the wooden board. The tactile sensation is like touching water, and the visual effect is like clicking a mouse. It's like a game coming to life. By operating the wooden sign page, you can open the shop to buy seeds, expand your space, plant crops, raise animals, build workshops, and so on. It will only be gradually opened up after a series of upgrades. This space looks large, but before the upgrade, there aren't many places you can actually go. Currently, the usable area is only from the wooden house to the 5 cultivated farmlands. You can't just leave anything in the open space around you. Whether it's items left on the ground or items produced by the space, they will all be collected into the wooden warehouse. You can't store supplies indiscriminately. However, the warehouse is currently about 200 square meters and 2 stories high. The second warehouse can be opened at level 3, which should be enough for the current stage. 10 system coins are all the starting capital. They can only be used to buy wheat seeds. Xia Nuan bought 10 seeds. After the purchase, the seeds appeared in the seed storage box on the right side of the field. She took them out and scattered them in the field, and they sprouted on their own. 2 minutes later, the wheat matured. Touching the box allowed the seeds to be harvested and automatically stored in the warehouse, where they were neatly arranged in a corner. The warehouse also has an automatic sorting function. Xia Nuan tried plucking a wheat ear and putting it in her mouth. It's chewable and edible, it's real stuff. The next step is to try and see if we can take the items out of the space. Xia Nuan picked up the wheat ears and with a thought left the space. Back on the hotel bed, the wheat stalks in his hand hadn't disappeared. Xia Nuan quickly boiled a kettle of water, poured it into a cup, and with a thought, the cup disappeared from her hand. At the same time, the entire view of the space farm appeared in her mind, and the cup was placed safely in the center of the warehouse. After waiting for half an hour, the hot water temperature did not drop at all. Space storage can keep food fresh. Xia Nuan's smile never faded. The more she explored, the more surprises she found in the bracelet's hidden space. She instinctively reached for her wrist, only to find nothing there. Xia Nuan was startled. Looking down, she noticed that the chain on her wrist had disappeared, leaving a red mark around her skin, which looked from a distance like a red string had been tied around her wrist. How so? She remembered that Lu Jiaozhao always wore her bracelet in her past life, so why did it turn into red marks on her? Xia Nuan rubbed her skin back and forth, but the color didn't come off, and she didn't feel anything unusual about her body. If you can't figure it out, just give up. Actually, this is good. At least you don't have to worry about losing the bracelet or having it stolen or losing your personal space. Xia Nuan swayed as she stood up. Her fever hadn't subsided and she was even a little unsteady on her feet. But she couldn't wait to leave the hotel. Eager to return home, she desperately wanted to reunite with her family as soon as possible, to see her parents and brother whom she hadn't had time to spend with in her previous life, who had sacrificed their lives to save her. The Xia family. At this moment, Xia Nuan's parents and brother, whom she was thinking about, were sitting around the dining table, looking bitter and resentful. A handsome young man, whose looks surpass even those of today's most popular celebrities, was talking non-stop. It took him a while to stop, and he gulped down several mouthfuls of water to relieve his dry throat. The middle-aged couple beside him stared wide-eyed, and it took them a long time to recover. Son, you mean that after our family died in a car accident, we were reincarnated and transmigrated into a book, where our whole family are villainous cannon fodder, and this world is not only about to enter the apocalypse, but we will also end up dying miserably on the streets. Fu Ying looked at her son with suspicion and uncertainty until Xia Mu nodded, at which point her gaze once again fell into a daze. Yes, Mom, you summarized it very well. However, the original owner's family in the book deserved to die. Seeing that their adopted daughter was living a good life, they tried every means to curry favor with her, committing all sorts of evil deeds. They even gave their biological daughter away as a plaything just because the adopted daughter didn't like their own daughter, trying to please the adopted daughter. When the adopted daughter ignored them and tried to cut ties with them after hooking up with the male lid, they still came to their door and threw a tantrum. They deserve to die, but it's a pity about my adopted sister. She's truly pitiful. Xia Mu frowned, feeling disgusted as he thought about the bizarre things the original owner's family had done in the book. Oh my God, how could they treat their own daughter like this? They're utterly despicable. If I had a daughter, I'd be heartbroken if she even fell down. How could parents be so cruel? Xia Zhiguo slammed his hand on the table. Just hearing it made his blood surge. Xia Mu seemed to think his father wasn't angry enough and kept agreeing. Absolutely. This girl was a prodigy archery athlete who won national championships in her teens. Which family wouldn't cherish her? But then they discovered she wasn't their biological child. Her adoptive parents didn't want her, and her biological parents looked down on her because she wasn't as wealthy as their adopted daughter. After the apocalypse, her adoptive parents used her to scavenge for supplies, while her biological parents, thinking it was because their adopted daughter was capable, tried every way to bully her, crippling her hand and even selling her. If it weren't for these two families conspiring against her, with her abilities she could have easily made a good living. While reading the book, what Xia Mu felt most sorry for was the original owner's younger sister. She was clearly a very good person, loyal and righteous and exceptionally capable, but she met the wrong person and was trapped by family ties, ultimately meeting a tragic end. As for Lu Jiaozhao, one of the so-called female leads, she has a manipulative and scheming personality. She feels that her cannon fodder sister taking the lead in finding supplies for them is a way of competing for the family's attention, so she dislikes her. She complained to the male protagonist, saying that even if she had spatial abilities, she couldn't compare to her sister who could get supplies at home and didn't even consider who she relied on for food and drink. When she finally learned that her younger sister, who was a cannon fodder character, died because of her, she shed a couple of tears and said that she just didn't like her sister and never intended for her to die. Does that show a kind of misplaced compassion? Xia Mu couldn't see a single thing about it. No, such a lovely girl shouldn't be ruined. We'll go pick her up in a bit. I've always wanted a daughter. If it weren't for the one-child policy, I would have had one long ago. Getting a daughter here for free proves we have a mother-daughter bond. Once she's back, we'll treat her like our own. We can't let her suffer. Fu Ying felt increasingly heartbroken as she listened and decided to rescue her daughter from the inferno. At this moment, Xia Nuan finally found her way home. After ringing the doorbell, she waited for a long time before the door was opened. Xia Nuan felt increasingly hot, almost delirious with fever. When she saw the family of three standing neatly at the door, curiously looking at her, she finally smiled sincerely. Mom and Dad, brother, I'm home. I am finally reunited with you all. Perhaps it was because she saw the person she had been longing for that her tense nerves suddenly relaxed, and her fatigue and discomfort intensified, until she finally couldn't hold on any longer and collapsed forward. The three of them hurriedly caught Xia Nuan. Fu Ying raised her hand to touch Xia Nuan's forehead and was immediately shocked. Oh dear, why is her fever so high? Son, quickly help your sister inside. Old Xia, go get some alcohol and fever reducer. Fu Ying methodically arranged for the two men in the house to do their chores, while she anxiously went into the kitchen to find some ginger and start making soup. Xia Nuan was physically exhausted, but her mind was still relatively clear. She looked at her family's hurried and anxious figures in a daze, her heart felt heavy, and her eyes involuntarily welled up with tears. Because of Lu Xiaozhao's misleading behavior in her past life, she missed out on too much time with her family. Heaven had mercy and gave her a second chance at life, allowing her to reunite with her family. Very nice. After a bowl of warm ginger soup, Xia Nuan felt warm all over. After taking fever-reducing medicine, she could always feel her mother wiping her body when she was drowsy. After a restless night, the discomfort I felt was gone when I opened my eyes again. Fu Ying's mother was by her bedside, and seeing the dark circles under Fu Ying's eyes, she knew that her mother probably hadn't slept all night in order to take care of her. Honey, you're awake. How are you feeling? Is there anything else bothering you? Oh dear, you have no idea. When you came back yesterday, your temperature was almost 40 degrees Celsius. How could you be so sick and not go to the hospital? Listening to her mother's nagging, Xia Nuan felt at ease. She smiled slightly, thought for a moment, and then tentatively said, Lu Xiaozhao wrongly accused me of deliberately breaking her things. My adoptive father punished me by making me kneel outside in the rain, and I wasn't allowed back inside until I admitted my mistake. After speaking, Xia Nuan stared intently at her mother's expression, afraid of missing even the slightest change. Seeing her gradually furrow her brows, Xia Nuan couldn't help but feel uneasy. Having been subjected to psychological manipulation for a long time, she still subconsciously felt that everyone would side with Lu Xiaozhao. Fearing that the bond developed through raising children cannot compare to that of blood relatives, both biological and adoptive parents would make the same choice when faced with Lu Xiaozhao's situation. What? They're making you kneel in the rain as punishment. How can they be so unreasonable? A bunch of heartless bastards. How can they treat someone else's daughter like this? That Lu Xiaozhao is no better, she just spouts nonsense. Fu Ying clenched her fists in indignation. They all had the original owner's memories after they transmigrated. In those memories, the adopted daughter, Lu Xiaozhao, used to like to make up stories and falsely accuse her brother of vying for favor. Lu Xiaozhao is sweet-talking and knows how to flatter. The original owner, Xia Mu, was a dull and taciturn person, so she favored her daughter more and would sometimes punish her son without explanation, as if she were blind. However, before Ms. Fu Ying transmigrated, she was a senior teacher who had taught countless children. She could tell what a child was thinking at a glance. After digesting the memories, she already had a very bad impression of Lu Xiaozhao. Furthermore, because of her sympathy for Xia Nuan's experiences in the original book, she felt even more intense hatred for Lu Xiaozhao. No, I have to go and demand an explanation from them. I can't let them bully my daughter like this. As Fu Ying spoke, she was about to get up, seemingly heading to the Lu family to settle scores. Xia Nuan only wanted to test her mother's feelings. She didn't really intend to cause trouble. Dealing with the Lu family won't be a quick matter. The most urgent and important task right now is to prepare for the apocalypse. Hey. Mom, wait a minute, I have something more important to tell you. The light drizzle hasn't stopped yet. Xia Nuan knew that this light rain would last for half a month, and after a brief 2-day break, the light rain would turn into a downpour with strong winds and return. The sky seemed to have burst open, and rain poured down, flooding the entire city. Another half-month later, a typhoon struck, destroying most of the low-rise houses and shoddy construction projects. Finally, floods, earthquakes, and extreme cold followed. After finally getting through all that, the weather improved and spring arrived, but all the plants and animals in the world began to mutate and develop their own consciousness. In the true revival of all things, only humanity has been abandoned by nature. Natural disasters, man-made calamities, mutations, and the impending apocalypse. If we are not fully prepared, death is only a matter of time. Xia Nuan didn't know when the apocalypse would end. She died 3 years after the apocalypse, and the world was still a terrible mess. But she firmly believes that with a second chance at life and the possibility of survival, she can definitely get through this with her family. Before the apocalypse begins, she needs to prepare a large amount of supplies, which will inevitably cause a commotion. Living with her family, she certainly can't keep it a secret, so it's better to reveal some information appropriately and let them be mentally prepared. I had a dream. In the dream, the rain outside wouldn't stop, the city was flooded, and many people were trapped in high-rise buildings. Some starved to death and some risked going out to find food but never came back. The dream felt so real, and I have a vague feeling that what happened in the dream will happen in reality. Mom, Dad, and brother, can you believe me? Xia Nuan leaned against the headboard. She was still a little weak and spoke in a weak voice, but her soft voice had a strong persuasive power that made it hard to doubt her. It's a good habit to be prepared for unforeseen circumstances. The weather forecast says it will rain for the next 2 weeks. If the rain gets heavier, it might really turn out like my daughter said. Xia Zhiguo and his wife exchanged a glance, and he quickly continued Xia Nuan's words. I breathed a slight sigh of relief. Their original plan was for the three of them to take turns going out to collect supplies and store them, so as not to arouse Xia Nuan's suspicion. After all, they couldn't explain why they suddenly started storing large amounts of food. It's hard to say for sure. Maybe they time-traveled and knew about the impending apocalypse. Now that Xia Nuan has taken the initiative to propose the apocalyptic theory, it's exactly what we wanted. The whole family is working together towards the same goal, and no one is hiding anything from anyone else. That is, my adopted daughter suddenly had a precognitive dream which is quite strange. Yeah, I also think we should prepare for the worst. If it rains continuously, the drainage system will definitely collapse. We live on the second floor, which isn't safe. How about we find a place on a higher floor to rent for a couple of months? Fu Ying then offered her own idea, and eventually the whole family's attention turned to Xia Mu. Feeling a little uncomfortable under so many eyes, Xia Mu touched his nose and gave an awkward laugh. Let's also prepare a portable kayak. If we really get flooded, we can't just stay cooped up at home, unable to repair anything we're missing. Having a kayak will make it easier to go out and check for leaks and repairs. Seeing that none of her family members refuted her and even began to consider what preparations she should make, Xia Nuan smiled. It feels so good to be trusted. Yes, I have 30 million, all of which I earned myself before. I don't need to worry about not having enough money when preparing things. She swindled 10 million from Lu Jiancheng. Before returning, she sorted out her personal assets, which included prize money from competitions she had won since childhood and remuneration from endorsement deals with other brands, totaling more than 20 million. 36 million in total, that's more than enough for preliminary preparations. If I need anything else, I'll just go out and do some free shopping. Xia Nuan subconsciously touched the red mark on her wrist, hesitating whether or not to reveal the details of the space. She carefully considered what her life would be like afterward. As the saying goes, you can't hide things from someone living under the same roof. And besides, she couldn't possibly use her control of the space to enjoy everything herself. A family member who would risk their life to protect her would never betray her, right? There's one more thing, look at this. As Xia Nuan spoke, a water glass appeared out of thin air in her hand. The water in the glass was still steaming. It was the same glass that had been placed in the hotel room earlier. She was afraid that the space only had a slow flow of time and couldn't completely preserve the food, so she left it in the space. Now a whole night has passed and the hot water is still boiling hot. Oh my God. The exact same tone, the completely synchronized shock, it was as if they had been copied and pasted. Fu Ying and the other two stared intently at the water glass, blinking rapidly. It's not a hallucination, it really isn't a hallucination. Xia Nuan found their expressions strangely endearing and coughed lightly to suppress a laugh. Cough, I don't know why, but after I got a fever I suddenly had a space. This space even has a planting function and it can keep stored items fresh. It's also quite large, so I don't have to worry about storage when preparing supplies. The three nodded in unison and even swallowed, displaying perfect understanding. Xia Mu was the first to recover from the shock. After all, he was young and had a high acceptance of new things. My dear sister, you're amazing. Xia Mu excitedly reached out and grabbed Xia Nuan's wrist, grinning like a simpleton. Let go of your sister, you've scratched her wrist all red. You're so rough with her, don't blame me for hitting you if you keep this up. Fu Ying slapped her son on the back of the head, then quickly took the water glass from Xia Nuan's hand. Oh dear, the cup is so hot, give it to mommy quickly. Xia Mu covered the back of her head, pouting pitifully and helplessly, only to be met with her father's iron hand in the blink of an eye. This time it's the shoulder that's affected. Ha 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 ha, as expected of my daughter, you're amazing. Cough, you're really impressive. Let's listen to our daughter and not be stingy when preparing things. Honey, your body isn't ready for strenuous activity yet. You give us a plan on what needs to be prepared and your brother and I will run the errands. The whole family will follow your orders. The confession went surprisingly smoothly, so smoothly that Xia Nuan was a little caught off guard. I thought I'd have to explain a lot, but my family quickly got to work on the preparations. The command to prepare supplies was also handed over to her. This. Xia Nuan always felt that her parents and brother were too easily fooled. She believed everything they said and would seriously consider even the most outrageous claims. I always have this feeling that I'm too trusting of others and not very smart. It seems she'll have to keep a closer eye on them from now on to prevent them from being scammed. Under the clear, expectant gazes of her family, Xia Nuan pondered for a moment before slowly speaking. The first thing we need to prepare is food. Although we can grow things in this space, the planting area isn't large and plants need time to grow, so we need to prepare enough food. Salt and sugar are strategic reserves, so we should stock up on them as well. We can buy other seasonings as needed. Also medicine, bottled water, gasoline, diesel, various outdoor survival gear, and the kayaks my brother mentioned should be bought in bulk, just in case they break. In case of power outages preventing cooking, gas cylinders and gas stoves should also be prepared, along with gasoline diesel generators, toilet paper, shampoo, and other daily necessities. Xia Nuan wanted to sell the plants grown in the space to raise money to upgrade the space, so she made up a plausible excuse to get away with it. She listed everything else she could think of. Xia Mu, like a diligent elementary school student, quickly took notes in her notebook. After Xia Nuan finished speaking, Xia Mu had also filled a whole page with notes. Do people really need so many things to live? Xia Mu sighed, suddenly feeling that being a person was really troublesome. Just buying things would probably keep their family running around like crazy. But his sister is really amazing. She managed to come up with so much in such a short time, and her smile is so sweet and adorable. She's practically my dream girl. Just surviving doesn't require much, but living well naturally requires more. Stop rambling and get moving. Go buy some food with your dad, drive to the countryside, and buy directly from local farmers. It'll be much cheaper. While you're at it, rent a warehouse. I'll stay home to take care of our daughter and contact a real estate agent. We'll go house hunting tomorrow. Fu Ying is a shrewd and calculating woman. Even in urban wholesale markets, grain is sourced from grain mills in the countryside. It changes hands twice, and the costs of packaging and labor are factored into the price of the goods, making it much more expensive than buying directly from the source. Anyway, since my daughter's space can keep food fresh, it doesn't matter whether the food is in fancy packaging or in a sack. Xia Nuan was surprised for a moment. I admired my mother's wisdom. She had always lived in the city in her previous life and had never experienced material shortages before the apocalypse, so she never considered these things. If she were to prepare it, she would definitely choose to go to the vegetable market or wholesale market, which would involve spending a lot of money unnecessarily. With today's plan finalized, Xia Zhiguo and Xia Mu went out to buy groceries and seasonings, while Fu Ying contacted a real estate agent to find an apartment. Summer warmth, resting at home. Xia Nuan actually wanted to go out, but her family wouldn't allow it, insisting that she had just recovered from a high fever and needed to stay in bed to rest. Feeling the care and warmth from her family, Xia Nuan stopped insisting. If you can't go out to buy things, then just shop online from home. There are also many things that you can't buy in the local market. In short, we must not let our family members down. Xia Nuan first transferred 5 million to her father, which was enough for their expenses. Xia Zhiguo didn't refuse and happily accepted it. This unceremonious approach made Xia Nuan feel that they didn't treat her like an outsider, which made her even happier. After everyone left the room, Xia Nuan took out her phone and started shopping. We need to buy both solar and diesel generators. Since the sun won't come out on cloudy or rainy days, the solar generators can only be used later. For the last month or so before the apocalypse, we'll have to rely on diesel generators. Buy the best quality units, prepare 3 for each, and spend 60,000. The total cost for CNC machine tools, cutting machines, and various maintenance tools was 230,000 yuan. Even in the apocalypse of the previous life, the Dragon Kingdom initially had very strict gun control, making it almost impossible for ordinary people to obtain a highly lethal weapon. Xia Nuan is very skilled at archery, which made her very popular at the beginning of the apocalypse. Later, guns inexplicably started appearing more and more often. Xia Nuan inquired several times before finding out that the black market boss had somehow acquired a machine tool and cutting machine that hadn't been soaked in water and was now producing weapons himself. This has led to an increase in the number of people possessing firearms, frequent violent robberies, and making it increasingly difficult for her to go out and collect supplies. Although she doesn't know how to use CNC machine tools, she can learn. There are tons of learning materials online. She'll download more later and learn slowly until she succeeds. Xia Nuan also bought quite a few diving devices and oxygen tanks. After the city was submerged, many supplies were underwater, and the only way to collect them was to dive down. Of course, she couldn't forget her forte, archery and also chainsaws. Holding this in your hand gives you a great sense of security. It would intimidate any bad guy. Buy more of these small, useful, and easily overlooked items, such as cable ties, blowtorches, multi-use matches, flint and steel, rope, fishing line, plastic bags, and high-powered flashlights. Floral water, insect repellent, preservatives, herbicides, rat poison. If plants and animals mutate in the future, these things will be the best tools for survival. Poison, when used properly, can also be a guarantee of survival. Xia Nuan kept tapping on her phone, buying everything she could think of for the moment. For items that are not suitable for bulk purchase online, I directly contact the seller privately via the phone number listed on the online store's website. Finally, Xia Nuan bought dozens of high-capacity USB drives, electronic documents and entertainment files, and several mobile phones and computers with extremely long battery life before stopping. Just as she put down her phone, Fu Ying knocked on her door. A head poked in, and seeing her mother looking like a thief, Xia Nuan couldn't help but smile. "Mom, what's wrong?" "Hee, Mom just made some chicken soup. I'll bring it over for you to try." Seeing that Xia Nuan was not asleep or resting, Fu Ying gracefully entered the room. The golden chicken soup exudes a rich aroma that is incredibly tempting. Xia Nuan picked up the bowl and eagerly took 2 sips, her eyes suddenly lighting up. Delicious. This isn't just Xia Nuan praising it, this soup is genuinely delicious. It's fresh and fragrant without being greasy, and after eating a bowl you'll feel warm all over. She couldn't cook. The Liu family had always been people who never lifted a finger in the kitchen, so every meal she ate after the apocalypse in her previous life was barely edible. Having not had a proper meal since her rebirth, Xia Nuan suddenly tasted such delicious chicken soup and finally felt a real sense of being alive again, almost moved to tears. People really will cry over a single bite of food. Xia Nuan held the bowl and drank the soup like a little hamster, so adorable that Fu Ying's heart melted. Yes, that's right, this is exactly the kind of daughter she dreams of. If you like it, that's fine. I just contacted the agent and they sent me quite a few listings. I picked out a few that are pretty good. Let me show them to you. We'll decide whichever one you like. Are there houses with golden-roofed gardens? Golden roof garden, Mom, look for it. Fu Ying felt that the name of the neighborhood sounded familiar. After searching for a while, she found the picture and then looked conflicted. Yes, there is. It's on the 17th floor, a 200-square-meter penthouse, fully furnished and ready to move in. The monthly rent is 18,000 yuan, plus a deposit of 1 month's rent and 6 months' rent in advance. The environment and facilities are nice, but it's a bit too expensive. Even knowing that money would become worthless after the apocalypse, Fu Ying still felt heartbroken. Money still has its uses. Other houses only cost 3,000 or 4,000 a month, with a deposit of 1 month's rent and 3 months' rent paid up front. The difference of tens of thousands can buy a lot of supplies. I want this one. Don't worry about the money, Mom. I can earn a lot of money from each competition. Even if I spend too much, it's okay. Safety is the most important thing right now. Xia Nuan gently persuaded her. A month later, a typhoon struck and many houses collapsed. Only a few residential areas escaped severe damage, with Jinding Garden being the best preserved. The 20-odd buildings in the residential complex were completely undamaged. At most, some windows were shattered. I heard that because the developer also lives in this community, they used the best materials when building the buildings. The solid materials proved to be a reliable material. Even during the subsequent earthquake when the building collapsed, it did not fall, which is truly remarkable. So no matter what, she was determined to move into this neighborhood with her family. Okay, then Mom will listen to you. Fu Ying gritted her teeth and nodded, truly showing unconditional trust and compromise towards Xia Nuan. She has a clear understanding of her current situation, including the house. Her assets are probably worth 1 or 2 million. Xia Nuan is currently covering all the household expenses. Whoever spends the money should be listened to, and no one can interfere or fail to distinguish between primary and secondary responsibilities. Moreover, as a transmigrator, even if they receive memories, their understanding of this world cannot possibly be more extensive than that of the natives. Listen to advice and you'll have a good meal. Then let's go with this one. I'll pay the rent in a bit, Mom. Tell the agent we'll go pick up the apartment tomorrow. Xia Nuan couldn't help but sigh at how worry-free and easy her family was. She is obedient and listens to advice without needing much explanation. She is not stubborn and has exceptionally strong execution skills. Unlike those idiots in the Liu family, whose minds are filled with, I don't care what you think, I only care what I think. With the house settled, they now had a permanent home in the post-apocalyptic world. Xia Nuan was discussing moving with her mother when the doorbell suddenly rang. The old house had poor sound insulation, and Xia Nuan could clearly hear the noises coming from the living room even from inside the house. But upon hearing the voice of the person who had entered, her face immediately darkened. It's Lu Xiaozhao. What is she doing here? Mom, I'm back to see you. Where are Dad and brother? Lu Xiaozhao's voice, when it reached Xia Nuan's ears, was so sweet it was nauseating. She listened intently to the sounds coming from the living room. Although she couldn't see Lu Xiaozhao's face, she could imagine just how fake the smile on her face must be. You should still call me Auntie. My household registration and name have been changed, so it's not appropriate to call me Mom anymore. I have my own daughter. I don't need anyone else calling me Mom. Pfft. Xia Nuan couldn't help but chuckle softly. Her mother's blunt response gave Lu Xiaozhao a sense of pleasure from being firmly chosen and protected. Lu Xiaozhao's gentle and sweet expression almost cracked, especially when she saw Xia Nuan leaning against the door with a smile on her face. She felt so ashamed and angry that she wanted to find a crack in the ground to crawl into. A flash of resentment crossed her eyes, and her hand, hidden in her sleeve, gradually clenched into a fist. Lu Xiaozhao bit her lower lip and tears welled up in her eyes. Her feigned grievances were mixed with a touch of genuine emotion. Mom, are you blaming me for going back to my biological parents? But they are the parents who gave me life, and I can't ignore their kindness in giving me life. Even though I've returned to the Liu family, I haven't forgotten how good you were to me. I was just too busy recently, and I had a lot of things to take care of when I got back. I didn't mean to not come to see you. Mom, can you forgive me? Lu Xiaozhao truly embodies the saying that women are made of water. Speaking softly and politely, yielding in every sentence, she subtly elevated her own image. It's only natural for you to come home. We haven't blamed you, nor do we forgive you. But it's outrageous that you made my own daughter kneel outside in the gloomy, rainy weather and ignored her when she was almost unconscious with a fever. It's clear that my daughter suffered so much because she doesn't want to acknowledge you anymore. Why should we acknowledge you? Fu Ying pursed her lips, completely unmoved by that. If it were the original owner of this body seeing Lu Xiaozhao like this, they would definitely forgive her no matter what she did wrong. The original owners were close to Lu Xiaozhao, and although they had ulterior motives in wanting to win over the adopted daughter of a wealthy family, their more than 20 years of raising her were not entirely without genuine affection. But since they were all from another time, their memories were just memories. The extra scenes that appeared out of nowhere were like watching a movie. They couldn't truly empathize with them. Compared to Lu Xiaozhao, whom she remembered as cunning and prone to lying, Fu Ying naturally preferred Xia Nuan, who was sincere and adorable and even shared secrets about her spatial dimension with them. Lu Xiaozhao didn't know how to explain it. Xia Nuan left like that yesterday. No matter how you look at it, what the Liu family did was somewhat excessive. But thinking about her own purpose, Lu Xiaozhao still racked her brains trying to find a way to argue her point. Mom. Are Lu Jiancheng and Kai Ou dead? Miss Lu, you refuse to acknowledge your own parents and insist on claiming relatives everywhere. Or is Miss Lu deaf and didn't hear my mother telling you to change your address? Xia Nuan found it extremely grating to hear Lu Xiaozhao calling her mom so often. She interrupted, a mocking smile playing on her lips. Little sister, why are you being so harsh? Mom and Dad raised you, you can't possibly curse them to die. Yesterday Dad punished you, and it was a little too harsh, but you were in the wrong first. Besides, you didn't tell Dad you had a fever. If he had known, he definitely wouldn't have ignored you. To Xia Nuan, these words were no different from farting. She couldn't be bothered to argue with Lu Xiaozhao about yesterday's events. Arguing with someone who is destined to lie and sophistry is a waste of breath. Before the apocalypse arrives, Xia Nuan really doesn't want to see anyone from the Liu family again. She was afraid she wouldn't be able to control herself and would kill them prematurely. If you came to my house today just to spout this nonsense, then you can turn around and leave now. Nobody here welcomes you. Xia Nuan coldly told them to leave, but Lu Xiaozhao ignored her and turned to Fu Ying for help. I know my sister has a bad temper and I'm not angry that she said that. I'm used to it at home. But Mom, I came to see you today and I haven't seen Dad and my brother yet. My daughter's opinion is my opinion. Didn't you really hear me? I have my own daughter, you don't need to call her Mom. Fu Ying couldn't understand why Lu Jiajiao was being so unreasonable. According to her son, in the storyline of the book they transmigrated into, after Lu Jiajiao returned to her biological parents, she avoided them like the plague, afraid of being tainted by their presence. The original owner of the body never sought her out, never took the initiative to ask to meet them, let alone visit them. What's gotten into me today? Could it be that he still dislikes her daughter and feels he hasn't bullied her enough, so he's come here to bully her now? Thinking of this, Fu Ying's gaze towards Lu Jiajiao became wary. That look almost made Lu Jiajiao faint. Why did everything start spiraling out of control yesterday afternoon? Her father, who never spoke a harsh word to her, not only snatched her bracelet and gave it to Xia Nuan, but also scolded her. Fu Ying, who had always been eager to curry favor with her and praised her to the skies, seemed like a completely different person today. And then there's Xia Nuan, who's so quiet you can't even utter a fart. Starting yesterday afternoon, he suddenly became much tougher, and several times he looked at her with eyes that seemed like he wanted to devour her, a stark contrast to his previous demeanor. What exactly went wrong? Why are so many people changing? Lu Jiajiao couldn't understand, and she knew that if she continued to dwell on it, it would only lead to repeating the same old arguments. She tried to calm herself down, suppress her unease, and maintain a peaceful smile. Mom, no, Auntie, I really miss you both. Even though you don't want to acknowledge me anymore, I've always considered you my mother. It's okay if you don't want to see me anymore. My sister just came home and still needs time to adjust, and you both need to build a relationship. I can promise not to bother you anymore. But Auntie, the thought of not being able to live with you anymore, not being able to openly call you Mom and Dad, not being able to see you often makes me very sad, and I really want to cry. If possible, Auntie, could you give me something as a keepsake? I originally wanted to keep the bracelet my mother gave me, but yesterday my sister. Sai, I stole her privileged life. It's understandable that she dislikes me, but that's my most treasured possession. I can give everything else to her but that bracelet. Auntie, could you please ask my sister to return it to me? Finally, Lu Jiajiao revealed her true purpose for visiting. Xia Nuan stared intently at her, her eyes dark and unfathomable. Why was Lu Jiajiao so determined to snatch the bracelet? Could it be that she already knew the secret of the space? No, it shouldn't be. If she really knew, she would have already performed the blood oath ceremony, and I wouldn't have had the chance to snatch it back. But if Lu Jiajiao knew nothing about it, why would she be so persistent? The bracelet looks ordinary and is no different from the goods sold at roadside stalls. It's neither iron nor silver, it's utterly worthless. Why is Lu Jiajiao willing to stand here and listen to these harsh words, insisting on getting the bracelet back? Could it be that she was reborn as well? Xia Nuan narrowed her eyes slightly, various guesses floating through her mind. But even if Lu Jiajiao is a reincarnated person like her, it doesn't matter. In her past life, she was so brainwashed that she willingly allowed herself to be used and treated like a slave by the Lu family. She has seen through these people's true colors in this lifetime and will never be deceived again. After the apocalypse, the Lu family used both soft and hard tactics to coax her, knowing that the whole family depended on her going out to find supplies and food. A bunch of spineless cowards who only dare to hide at home and never go out, only dare to harm her after she is seriously injured and incapacitated. Even if Lu Jiajiao is reborn, so what? If they dare to use force, there are plenty of ways to make sure they don't see the sun rise tomorrow. The bracelet you're talking about is probably the token of love between my husband and me. It means a lot to me, and I originally planned to keep it for my own child. You're not my child, so why should I give it to you? You said you liked it and would borrow it for a few days and then return it. But from what you're saying, you're not planning to return it even if Nuan doesn't ask for it back. Borrowing and not returning it without permission, what's the difference between you and a deadbeat? Fu Ying pulled the memory of the sterling silver bracelet from her mind and immediately frowned slightly. Even if it's her own children who borrow something from her, they can't not return it. The word borrow itself carries the connotation of a promise. No matter how close the relationship, it is not a reason to break one's promise. This Lu Jiajiao, once she got her hands on something borrowed, actually considered it her own. Ridiculous. They didn't steal Nuan from their family, they returned her to her rightful owner. Auntie, I didn't. I wanted to tell you before, but my sister took the bracelet before I could. I've known you for over 20 years and I've called you Mom for over 20 years. In my heart, you are my mother. How can I not be your child? Lu Jiajiao was truly wronged this time. Although the Xia family couldn't provide her with a life of luxury, they never let her suffer any hardship. Her adoptive mother doted on her to the core and was afraid of frightening her if she spoke too loudly. Today, not only did he speak harshly, but his words implied that he wanted to completely sever ties with her. It's all because of that B*****ch Xia Nuan. It was only after Xia Nuan returned home that her adoptive mother treated her so badly. Xia Nuan must have said something. Why doesn't that B****ch just die? Xia Nuan could clearly see the resentment in Lu Xiaozhao's eyes. She had been resented by Lu Xiaozhao for quite some time and was already immune to that kind of look. Xia Nuan leaned lazily against the door, gently shattering the other person's sweet dream. The bracelet, I already threw it away. I find anything you've touched disgusting, but I didn't want to give it to you. I tossed it in the trash as soon as I left. If you want it, go find it in the garbage dump yourself. Throw it away? How could you throw it away? That was a token of love from Mom and Dad. It's very important. Lu Xiaozhao's voice unconsciously rose several octaves, and she could no longer maintain her beautiful and serene image. In addition to shock, she was also filled with uncontrollable anger. Just throw them away, they're not worth much anyway. My daughter likes them, I can buy her 10 or 8 to throw around as she pleases. Why are you making such a big deal out of it? It's not like you're throwing your stuff away. Fu Ying's statement once caused Lu Xiaozhao to completely lose her composure. Didn't we just say that bracelets are important and should be passed down to the next generation? Why can't we just throw it away and play with it now? That's a dramatic change of heart. But you just said the bracelet was very important. How could anything be more important than my daughter? As long as my Nuan is happy, what's wrong with throwing it away? I don't have time to argue with you. Go back to your own home. If you want the bracelet, go to the trash can. My daughter just had a bout of illness, don't disturb her rest. Fu Ying reached out and pushed Lu Xiaozhao back a step. Leaving room for the door to close before the other person could react, I decisively slammed the door shut. No matter how much Lu Xiaozhao knocked on the door, she completely ignored it. Mom, aren't you angry that I threw the bracelet away? Xia Nuan looked at her mother, whose expression remained unchanged, and asked softly. She already had a baby face with small features and a petite figure. Her eyes were round and bright. Once she shed her cold exterior, she was like a little kitten rolling on its back, acting cute and easy to bully. Fu Ying completely forgot how fierce Xia Nuan had been to Lu Xiaozhao earlier and only felt that her own daughter was the cutest little girl in the world. How could your mother blame you? It's fine if you throw it away, it's not worth much anyway. You should go home and rest. You've just recovered and need to take good care of yourself. Xia Nuan was unaware that Fu Ying had already taken her for a weak and vulnerable little thing. I felt so grateful for my mother, which strengthened my resolve to protect my family and make their lives better in the apocalypse. Back in her room, Xia Nuan couldn't stay still on the bed. Since we can't go out anyway, we might as well go work in the space and upgrade it. With a thought, the scene before my eyes instantly changed. The fields are lush and green, a sight that brings joy to the heart. Xia Nuan walked to the wooden sign and sold the wheat she had harvested the day before to the market. The seeds, purchased for 10 gold coins, were harvested and sold for 20 gold coins. They bought another batch of wheat seeds, waited 2 minutes for them to mature, then sold them off to continue planting. The repetitive, mechanical back-and-forth work was tedious and boring, but Xia Nuan was full of energy. The hard work now is for a better life in the future. If you have such a great opportunity and still become lazy, then you truly deserve to starve to death. After working continuously for a full hour and a half, Xia Nuan earned 400 gold coins. The last time I returned to the wooden plank to sell wheat, I saw that several of the previously grayed-out icons had been unlocked. 5 more plots of farmland can be cultivated for free and new seeds will be added, carrots, corn, and a cowshed and a warehouse. Xia Nuan's eyes suddenly lit up. The only space available is the warehouse. It has 200 floors and is 10 meters high, which looks big, but you'll know how cramped it is when you actually use it. Not only do we need to store supplies bought from outside, but we also need to store space generated by our own efforts. No matter how you look at it, it's barely enough. The ability to add another warehouse means she can stockpile more goods and has greater security for the future. How could I not be happy? 360 gold coins for the cowshed, 250 gold coins for the warehouse. Xia Nuan stared at the 2 unlocked building icons, feeling conflicted. In the end, we chose the cowshed first. There's no rush to buy the warehouse. Let's work for another hour and the money for the warehouse will be ready. She was still more curious about what the cowshed looked like. If the space could support animals, the farm could become completely self-sufficient and achieve an ecological cycle. Only then can one truly have no worries about food and drink. Click to buy and the picture on the wooden board disperses like water mist, then coalesces again to form an aerial view of the farm. Apart from the current area where we can move around, the entire surroundings are shrouded in fog. Please select the location for the cowshed. Based on the text prompts, Xia Nuan chose to build the cowshed next to the farmland. Click to confirm, and a brick house suddenly rises from the ground. The cowshed is completed in an instant. The sound of a cow mooing came from inside the brick house. Xia Nuan couldn't wait to rush over and check it out, surprised that the house was already inhabited right after it was built. Upon entering the brick house, Xia Nuan immediately saw 3 robust black and white dairy cows. In contrast to its unassuming exterior, the interior of the cowshed is extremely futuristic and technologically advanced. The roof is made of metal pipes that connect to an automatic milking machine at the entrance. The machine automatically collects milk at set times, bottles it directly, and sends it to the warehouse. The feeding and water troughs have an automatic refill function, and the machine also has automatic cleaning and waste collection functions. Make rational use of all resources and implement fully automated managed aquaculture. Xia Nuan couldn't help but sigh sincerely. This space is truly amazing. The cows in the barn are creatures that come with the space itself. The feed for them needs to be purchased from the store. A feed mill will be unlocked later, at which point self-sufficiency will be possible. While inspecting the various operating procedures in the cowshed, Xia Nuan noticed a line of small print on the control panel. The above are instructions and precautions regarding the use of cattle sheds. It is specifically stated that the cattle shed can only house cattle of the breeds available for sale. Non-native species are not permitted for breeding. My dream of buying breeding cattle from outside was shattered. In the end, I still have to be honest and earn money and spend it in my own time. What's peculiar is that the creatures sold in this space don't have lifespans measured in time, but rather in usage. Once a cow has produced 1,000 bottles of milk, it is considered to have reached the end of its lifespan, and the cowshed will automatically slaughter it, separating the beef, hide, and tendons. Both milk and slaughtered products can be sold in this space and at a considerable value. Although we can't buy cattle from outside to raise, as long as we work hard, we won't have to worry about beef and milk in the future. Xia Nuan was very satisfied with the result. Looking at these lively and energetic cows makes me happy. Thinking that there was still a warehouse to be added, Xia Nuan hurriedly went out to continue her work. Having unlocked higher-level crops and more farmland, I no longer need to work so hard, spending an hour and a half to harvest only 400 gold coins. In less than half an hour, warehouse number 2 was erected, and Xia Nuan was so exhausted that she almost collapsed. After feeding the cows and leaving the space, Xia Zhiguo and Xia Mu were also heading home. When the father and son heard that Lu Jiajia was coming today, they both showed expressions of disgust. Who is she? She even followed me to my house and bullied my daughter. Stop listening to her babbling. Next time, just throw her out and don't even let her open the door. Xia Zhiguo still remembers how pitiful Xia Nuan looked when she came back yesterday. The little girl was deathly pale, her forehead burning hot, and tears were constantly welling up in her eyes as she drifted off to sleep. The reason his daughter became so ill was the original owner's heartless adopted daughter. He cherishes his own child, and now that he has become Xia Zhiguo in this world, Xia Nuan is his own daughter. No one can bully his own daughter. Next time I see her, I'll confront her and see what's going on. She's not exactly eager to come back to see us. She's probably got other ideas in mind. Having read the original novel, Xia Mu had a deeper understanding of Lu Jiajia, and he didn't believe that she had come just to ask for a broken bracelet. Mom and I have already found a house and we're moving in tomorrow. We probably won't see each other again. Dad, how much food did you buy today? With her family backing her up, Xia Nuan felt that Lu Jiajia was as unimportant as trash. She asked the two of them with a smile about their day's haul, changing the subject. Sure enough, Xia Zhiguo and Xia Mu immediately focused their attention on purchasing supplies. We bought and sold 20 tons each of rice, wheat flour, and buckwheat flour, along with millet, red beans, and other grains, totaling 100,000 yuan. It's not harvest season now, and the surrounding grain markets don't have much stock. They're also rushing to deliver goods to merchants in the surrounding markets, so they were only willing to sell us this much. I discussed it with them, and we can probably get an extra 10 tons of each at most. Speaking of this, Xia Zhiguo became somewhat melancholy. Before leaving, his daughter gave him 5 million, and he didn't spend 1 million even after a whole day of work. The biggest reason why money can't be spent is actually because others won't sell it to them. This amount of grain, when converted to tons, sounds like a lot, but in reality, it doesn't even fill a warehouse the size of a classroom. There's still a significant shortage of stockpiled goods. Anyone still unwilling to sell? Xia Nuan stared in surprise, not expecting that the grain depot might not sell its goods. Why wouldn't you make money when you can? All grain depots are prohibited from selling empty granaries. This is an official regulation. Their sales channels are already fixed, and they even reserve a portion for export. The grain harvest season is in 2 months, and we're buying at the wrong time. Hearing her brother's explanation, Xia Nuan belatedly realized what was going on. Autumn is just 2 months away, and as the year draws to a close, the new rice in the granaries is all from last year's harvest. The rest will be transferred to the official granaries, where they can buy and sell very little. Xia Nuan secretly calculated in her mind that frequent outings in the apocalypse would consume a lot of physical strength. To ensure that she was well-fed and watered and ready to move around, the food seemed to be a little insufficient. Since we can't just focus on buying grains, let's try to diversify the variety. Since we can't buy any more, let's leave it at that for now. After we move, we'll see if we can stock up on self-heating hot pot, pickled vegetables, noodles, bread, and semi-processed vegetarian foods like instant noodles. Upon hearing this, Xia Mu revealed a sly smile, took out an exceptionally long bill from his pocket, and showed it off as he unfolded it. All kinds of seasonings, vegetables and fruits, frozen foods, pork, beef, lamb, chicken, potato chips, bread, biscuits, sunflower seeds, peanuts, mineral water, beverages, canned goods, instant noodles. If you can think of it, you can find it here. I personally went to 4 or 5 stores to buy all of this. Little sister, isn't your brother amazing? Xia Mu's face practically screamed, praise me. He looked so smug as if he wanted Xia Nuan to know what he had done. It's both laughable and frustrating. Awesome, my brother is the best. Xia Nuan was very supportive, raising her hand and clapping as she looked at the long list of orders. Seeing the harmonious atmosphere between the brother and sister, Fu Ying and Xia Zhiguo smiled at each other. The anxiety of arriving in the new world and the impending apocalypse also subsided considerably at this time. No food was cooked at home tonight. Xia Nuan went on a food delivery spree, ordering a lot of roast duck, milk tea, fried chicken, and hamburgers, foods that would gradually disappear in a post-apocalyptic world. I was overwhelmed with takeout orders, so I picked out a few dishes for dinner and stored the rest in my storage space. At 1 o'clock in the morning, Xia Nuan and her brother sneaked out of the house. The goods in the warehouse need to be moved tonight and there will be deliveries tomorrow. We only rented one warehouse, so we need to make room for tomorrow's goods first. Both were dressed in all black with masks, hats, and sunglasses. If you weren't someone who knew them well, you wouldn't recognize them even if they were right in front of you. Brother, do we really need to dress like this? Better safe than sorry. That warehouse is overflowing with stuff. If someone notices us, we're in big trouble. At least with us dressed like this, even if someone does spot us, they won't recognize us right away. So even this disguise can't hide my unparalleled good looks. Xia Mu was very satisfied with her appearance and even vainly flipped her hair. Xia Nuan. It's really hard to give a rating, but I think we're just drawing more attention this way. At 2 a.m., there were still some people walking their dogs and jogging on the streets. In the short time that followed, Xia Nuan noticed that quite a few people were turning their heads to look at them. Going out in the middle of the night wearing sunglasses looks like something a lunatic would say. Let them look if they want, they won't recognize us anyway. Once the taxi arrives and we get in, no one will be watching. Xia Mu waved his hand dismissively, but not long after he finished speaking, a young man's voice called out to him from behind. Natsuki. Even bundled up like that, you could recognize Xia Mu just from her back. You didn't even need to look to know she was someone you knew. Xia Nuan took off her sunglasses and mask, tilted her head, tugged at Xia Mu's sleeve, and teased, brother, is this what you meant by nobody recognizing us? It must be because your brother is too charming. He's so handsome that even his back view is unforgettable. Xia Mu shrugged helplessly. After a few playful exchanges, the brother and sister turned around to look at the person who had called out to Xia Mu, but upon seeing the person, the smiles on their faces immediately turned cold. Bad luck. Unlucky. Xia Mu cursed under his breath, and Xia Nuan cursed inwardly as well. The young man behind them was dressed and looked very ordinary, and he was looking at them with curious and inquisitive eyes. Xia Nuan will never forget that face. Although she had only met him once in her previous life, Lu Jiaozhao's future boyfriend Yi Fan. It was because he praised Lu Jiaozhao's beauty in front of her that Lu Jiancheng and his daughter became even more determined to abandon her, and even conceived the vicious idea of selling her to the black market. Just like in his previous life, Yi Fan's eyes were glued to Xia Nuan's beautiful face. His gaze was full of scrutiny and aggression, as if he were appraising merchandise. It made me feel extremely uncomfortable and disgusted. Xia Mu, it really is you, it's been so long. What have you been up to? Is this your girlfriend? She's really beautiful. What's up? Xia Mu raised his hand and pulled Xia Nuan's shoulder back, using his body to shield her from Yi Fan's disgusting gaze. As a fellow man, he understood all too well the meaning behind Yi Fan's gaze. Xia Mu's attitude was very cold and even carried a hint of displeasure. When his warm welcome was met with indifference, Yi Fan immediately changed his attitude. His polite enthusiasm was replaced by an arrogant disdain for others, as if Xia Mu owed him money. We used to be colleagues doing part-time jobs together. What kind of attitude is this when I just greet you? You get all high and mighty just because you found a pretty girl. Anyone who didn't know better would think you won the lottery and became rich overnight. Hey girl, don't blame me for not warning you. When I first met Xia Mu, he was always surrounded by women. Don't get sold out and then help him count the money. That's all I have to say, take it or leave it. Yi Fan tossed out 2 sentences, then turned and disappeared from the siblings' sight. The incident, which lasted less than 5 minutes, left Xia Nuan feeling disgusted, as if she had swallowed a fly. Is he living in his own world? The people of this world have ultimately become so eccentric that Xia Nuan can't understand them. Her brother didn't say anything, did he? I just asked if you were all right. How did it escalate into such a long conversation? He's an idiot, ignore him. The car we called is here, let's go. Xia Mu's eyes were dark and unfathomable, but in an instant he returned to his usual lazy and unserious demeanor. He tilted the umbrella in his hand towards Xia Nuan and pulled her quickly toward a taxi. After getting on the bus, Xia Mu lowered his head, closed his eyes, and tried to recall the contents of the original book. Yi Fan, the male protagonist of the original novel. The overall tone of the novel is that of mindless, exhilarating fun, the kind where the underdog triumphs over the underdog. Like most typical male protagonists on the internet, he is unremarkable in appearance and even lives a miserable life. Suddenly one day, he gets a cheat code, and from then on he rises to prominence, slaps people in the face, and gains a harem of beautiful women. The male protagonist in this type of story adheres to only one principle in his actions. Those who obey me prosper, those who defy me perish. There is nothing I cannot obtain, only things I haven't thought of. In other words, it means that the person is a petty, shrewish, narrow-minded, lustful, greedy, and utterly immoral. Sometimes, just because of a single hurtful remark from someone, a family can be ruined and destroyed. Xia Mu hated this kind of character design. If it weren't for the fact that one of the cannon fodder supporting characters in the book happened to share the same name as his family, he wouldn't have been able to read a single word. After seeing the cannon fodder go offline, he didn't check the follow-up. If he had known he would time travel, he would have memorized the entire text no matter what. Based on only a vague recollection, Xia Mu could roughly recall that a month before the apocalypse was the time when the male protagonist Yi Fan obtained the system's cheat ability. However, the book did not specify a particular date, so he could only speculate that Yi Fan would probably bind to the system within the next few days. The system will inform him that the apocalypse is imminent, allowing him to prepare in advance. The original owner of this body had a brief encounter with Yi Fan when she was working part-time. Back then, Yi Fan was cautious, prudent, and worldly wise. He would never have said so many offensive things like he does today, unless he is now bound to the system. Judging from Yi Fan's expression, he was already deeply hated. Xia Mu narrowed his eyes slightly, a mocking smile curling at the corners of his lips. He wouldn't be intimidated or afraid to provoke the other party just because they were the male-led. Even if he's the male-led, he won't back down if someone dares to look at his sister with that disgusting gaze. If Yi Fan dares to act on his despicable thoughts, then he will not be lenient. Success depends on human effort, but wealth and honor are determined by fate. What good is having a system? Having read half of the novel, he could at least be considered a half-prophet. Elder brother. The car stopped, and Xia Nuan, seeing that her brother hadn't gotten out yet, quickly nudged him. Xia Mu snapped out of her daze, turned her head, and saw Xia Nuan's bright and clear eyes. Her expression softened instantly. Brother, get off the bus first and hold the umbrella, then you can get off. Xia Mu stopped Xia Nuan, who was about to leave from the other side. She opened the door and was soaked by the rain. He waited until he had opened an umbrella before pulling her out. He personally protected her from the wind and rain. Upon reaching the warehouse door, Xia Mu, head down unlocking, suddenly said in a low voice, "If you ever encounter a strange man like that again, don't pay him any attention. If some shameless guy keeps bothering you, just beat him to death. If you can't beat him, tell me, and your brother will take care of it." Xia Nuan was slightly taken aback. If her brother hadn't reminded her, she would have almost forgotten about Yi Fan, that inexplicable person. Okay, don't worry, if I encounter something like that again, I'll beat them to a pulp. Xia Nuan knew her brother was concerned about her, so she smiled knowingly, clenched her fists, and pretended to look fierce. But her appearance was too soft and cute. In Xia Mu's eyes, she was too weak and easily bullied. "Sai, my little sister looks so easy to bully and fool." That's how it's described in the original work. It seems I must pay closer attention to my sister's situation from now on. I can't let her be easily fooled by the sweet talk of some random Tom, D***K, or Harry. This is my own baby bok choy creak. The warehouse door was flung open with a loud bang. Xia Nuan's eyes lit up as she looked at the neatly arranged bags of grain and boxes of food in the warehouse. The guarantee of survival lies entirely here. The two dogs shrank back inside and closed the door behind them. After waiting a while and making sure there was no other noise around, Xia Nuan reached out and began to pack her things. The space still has some inconveniences. If you want to put something away, you have to touch it with your hand. Packing up a warehouse full of stuff is a huge undertaking. Fortunately, the storage space didn't require her to organize it. She could categorize and arrange the items herself, making the best use of all the space. Otherwise, if she had to collect everything here and then go back to organize it, Xia Nuan would be exhausted. While collecting supplies from the warehouse, Xia Nuan subtly nudged her brother. "I want to see if I can bring him into the space with me." Holding onto her brother, she not only failed to bring anyone inside, but she herself couldn't get in either. It seems the space only allows her to enter alone. Xia Nuan was somewhat disappointed. If only she could bring her family in with her, it would be their safest haven. Halfway through receiving the package, the bag in the corner suddenly moved, startling Xia Nuan. Her expression instantly turned cold and fierce, revealing murderous intent. Reaching out and grabbing the bag, I quickly lifted it open, only to find that it was the bag itself that was moving, not something hidden behind it. "Hey, don't panic, little sister, that's a chicken." Noticing the commotion, Xia Mu remembered that she had bought 2 live chickens when she went to the countryside with her father earlier that day, and had casually placed them in a corner of the warehouse. "I bought this today on a whim, hoping you could try it out and see if it can hold living things." Xia Mu reached out and took the bag, opening it to reveal 2 live chickens that were tightly bound together. The 2 chickens clucked and stretched their necks upwards. Xia Nuan suppressed all her murderous intent and returned to her usual good-natured demeanor. "Then I'll give it a try." Xia Nuan reached out and grabbed one of them. With a thought, the chicken vanished from its spot. But it was taken in. Only the live chicken that had just entered the space in my mind turned into a dead chicken in less than half a minute, lying peacefully in the warehouse. No, living things cannot be placed in this space. Xia Nuan lowered her head in disappointment. Apart from the living beings sold in the space, no alien species other than her, a living person, can enter the space. Just give it a try. If it doesn't work, that's okay. We can keep collecting other ones. We'll take this one back and have Mom stew it for us tomorrow. Xia Mu wasn't too surprised. He hadn't had high hopes to begin with and had only made the suggestion as a trial. Xia Nuan continued to gather supplies, bustling about happily. When only one last piece of supplies remained, the bag in the corner moved again. This time, Xia Nuan didn't act rashly. She just looked helplessly at Xia Mu, shrugged, and asked, "Brother, what did you and Dad buy this time? Why are there any live animals among them?" "My dad and I only bought chicken, nothing else." Xia Mu was stunned for a moment, then quickly pulled Xia Nuan back. "What's moving around in the corner? Could someone have sneaked into their warehouse? They just brazenly took warehouse supplies if someone actually sneaked in." Thinking of the uncontrollable consequences of someone discovering her space, Xia Nuan quietly touched the carving knife she carried with her, her eyes utterly calm. The more murderous intent they harbor, the more harmless they appear. The first thing a hunter must learn is stealth. Killing intent can only serve as a deterrent. The secrets of this space must not be revealed. Whoever it is, all I can say is sorry. Xia Nuan gripped the carving knife tightly, ready to thrust the blade forward and strike first. But Xia Mu was even faster than her. Xia Mu rushed out first, grabbed the bag in front of him with his bare hands, and threw it behind him. Then they heard 2 adorable, baby-like cries. Woof tilde, they were 2 puppies. Neither sibling saw the fierceness in the other's eyes. The moment they saw the puppy, their icy demeanor melted away and they transformed back into their good-natured selves in an instant. "There are 2 dogs here." "Oh my, they're so cute." Xia Mu picked up a baby. The puppy wasn't afraid of people. When it was picked up, its tail wagged like a propeller and it stuck out its tongue and grinned as if it were laughing. The one Xia Mu picked up was the fattest. It looked like a Toshimitsu puppy. Xia Nuan smiled and stepped forward, squatting down to pet the other cub. "They are really cute." In later times, it was difficult to see such adorable creatures again. Domestic cats and dogs were once food for people when they were starving and freezing. Most stray animals disappeared due to various natural disasters. Animals that barely survived all became enormous and ferocious after entering the mutation stage, and their appearance also changed more or less, completely losing their soft and cute qualities. But some owners and their beloved pets did not kill them when they were most hungry. After the animals mutated, these pets who had already developed a bond with their owners became well-coordinated, loyal, and powerful partners. It looks like a stray dog that crawled into the warehouse to avoid the rain. Xia Mu stroked the puppy's fur, which was still slightly damp. Does the older brother want to raise it? Xia Nuan smiled gently. The older brother looked at the puppy with a reluctant expression. He probably wanted to keep it. With space at your disposal, managing two dogs isn't too stressful. Once you build a bond, they'll become your most loyal companions, much more reliable than people. A little, but are they really not difficult to raise? Xia Mu was conflicted. He knew that the apocalypse was coming and people wouldn't even have enough to eat. Taking care of two dogs seemed like a burden no matter how you looked at it. It's not difficult as long as you like it. Besides, I really like pets and have always wanted to have one, but the Lu family wouldn't allow it before. Xia Nuan shook her head slightly. After hearing that she also wanted to raise a dog, Xia Mu immediately stopped hesitating, wiped the puppy's body with her sleeve, and stepped aside. After another half-hour of busy work, the warehouse supplies were finally transferred to the spatial dimension. When I got home, it was already past midnight. Standing downstairs, I could see that only their apartment had its lights on in the entire building. There were 2 bowls of wontons on the table and a thermos filled with wonton soup. All you had to do was pour it in and you were ready to eat. The next note was a message of concern from the elderly mother. After eating, wash the dishes, then go to bed early. Xia Nuan smiled knowingly upon seeing the note and wontons. Sometimes the definition of home is that simple. Just a light on and steaming wontons on the table can bring tears to your eyes and fill your heart with warmth. Of course, they couldn't let their mother's love go to waste. The brother and sister ate until they were stuffed, said goodnight to each other, and went back to their respective rooms to rest. After falling asleep, Xia Nuan couldn't sleep very soundly. She always dreams about her past life, interspersed with scenes that differ from the events of her previous life. In her dream, her current biological parents are not kind to her. Like the Lu family, they dote on Lu Xiaozhou, and it seems that the whole world revolves around her. She was like a rat in the gutter, only able to spy on Lu Xiaozhou's happiness from a dark corner, suppressing her desires and silently doing her own thing, hoping only to get a little attention from them. In the world of her dreams, she was all alone with no one to rely on. Xia Nuan was startled awake from her dream. The wind chimes in the room tinkled in the breeze. After waking up, she was stunned for a long time. Last night's dream was too real and too terrifying, especially compared to my current life. It's practically the ultimate hell. Nuan, get up and wash up quickly, we're moving soon. Her mother's voice came from outside the room. Xia Nuan put the strange dream out of her mind, responded, and got up to wash. Fu Ying prepared breakfast entirely by herself, and it looked and smelled delicious. Mom, you're an amazing all-around chef. Xia Nuan gave a thumbs up and praised him generously, nodding her head in a good mood. After breakfast, the group began packing their things. There wasn't much to tidy up at home. All the furniture and other items were quite old. Valuables were useless after the apocalypse, so in the end, only some necessities were taken. I made an appointment with the agent yesterday, and I can go to take possession of the apartment today. After the family left the house together, Lu Xiaozhou visited again. Today, no matter how she called out to people, no one paid any attention until a neighbor said that Xia Nuan's whole family had gone out together, and only then did Lu Xiaozhou leave. On the way back, Lu Xiaozhou was restless and extremely agitated. It's as if something very important has been lost in the unseen world. She didn't actually know what the bracelet was for, it was just that it seemed extremely special to her. Lu Xiaozhou has a secret. Her eyes can see colors that others cannot, and usually the richer the colors, the higher the value. If she sees something and likes it, then it must be a good thing. To others, the bracelet was just an ordinary silver chain, but to her, it radiated a rainbow of starlight, so beautiful it seemed as if millions of stars had been condensed together. There was nothing in the world that attracted her more than that bracelet. How could this be? How could Xia Nuan know that the bracelet was their token of love, and how did she know it was in my hands? Lu Xiaozhou muttered to herself, completely baffled. She had never told anyone where the bracelet came from, and under her brainwashing, Xia Nuan clearly disliked Xia Zhiguo and Fu Ying and would never take the initiative to contact them. How could you know so clearly? It wasn't just Xia Nuan who was acting strangely, Xia Zhiguo and his wife were too. Ever since she left the Xia family, those two have been like a leech, impossible to shake off. He certainly doesn't give him any pleasantries now. Everything seemed to change overnight. Uncle, I'm a little worried about my sister. Could you help me find out what she's been up to lately? When Xia Nuan arrived at her newly rented apartment, she took a look around and felt that it was quite nice both inside and out. The entire house is newly renovated and looks like it has never been lived in before. All the furniture is brand new. Some of the flashy but impractical parts need to be removed and replaced with more practical ones. All the windows need to be replaced, fixed, and thickened. The doors and emergency exits also need additional layers of security. We need to add another fireplace to the living room to prepare for the upcoming cold snap. With his mind calculating how to decorate the new house, Xia Zhiguo, along with his wife and son, began a thorough cleaning of the house. After cleaning everything up and down, a whole morning had passed. Cleaning the house is also physically demanding. Even though the house looks very clean, you end up throwing out bag after bag of trash. Xia Nuan suddenly realized that she had forgotten to stock up on garbage bags. There are still many daily necessities that I haven't stocked up on yet. Let's go to the supermarket this afternoon, Xia Nuan suggested. Looking at the empty house, the three of them felt that they should buy some things. However, another batch of goods that Xia Mu ordered yesterday will arrive at the warehouse this afternoon, and he needs to sign for them. Xia Mu could only leave with regret, going to the warehouse alone to collect the goods, while Xia Nuan went to the supermarket with her parents. The recent rains have been quite prolonged, with continuous rainy days lasting for about a week. There weren't many people in the supermarket, the weather was bad and most people didn't want to go out, but it won't be long before the supermarket is packed with people. There will be typhoon warnings in 2 weeks, leading to more people hoarding supplies and prices skyrocketing. It's best to take advantage of these 2 weeks to finalize the house renovations and supplies purchases. Xia Nuan pushed the shopping cart, picking and choosing items from the shelves. Take only one of each item, and after you've finished selecting, ask the staff for a whole box of goods. With time running out and the task heavy, Xia Nuan and her parents separated, with Xia Nuan only responsible for purchasing daily necessities. While browsing the shelves, Xia Nuan always felt a gaze on her from behind. She kept turning around and she always saw a man dressed in black. Once or twice might just be a coincidence, but she had passed by the same shelf 3 times already, and the man was still following closely behind her. Are you being followed? Xia Nuan frowned in confusion. What is there about me that makes me worth being followed? And who would do such a thing? While pretending not to notice the man behind her, Xia Nuan continued to casually select items from the shelves, all the while systematically reviewing each person who flashed through her mind. Before the apocalypse, her life was very regular, consisting of only 3 places: the school training ground and the Lu family home. She had no close friends, and all her acquaintances were just nodding acquaintances. She had always been good-tempered and had no enemies. The only people she had a grudge against were probably her defeated opponents in the arena. But a competition is a competition, and no one is going to be bored and keep track of the outcome after the competition has ended. You'd be better off spending that time thinking about how to improve. Many figures flashed through my mind, but finally settled on the Lu family of 3. If we're talking about grudges and the people who would pay the most attention to her, it seems there's only one of these 3. However, Lu Jiaozhao's mother, who was also her adoptive mother, was a typical submissive woman. She obeyed her husband at home and her son outside and listened to Lu Jiancheng in everything. She would never intentionally ask someone to follow her. That leaves only Lu Jiaozhao and Lu Jiancheng. Lu Jiancheng was concerned about his image, and his arrogance prevented him from doing the despicable thing of spying on and stalking others. There is only one answer left. Even the most impossible thing can still be a possibility. Lu Jiaozhao. Xia Nuan couldn't help but recall what Lu Jiaozhao had said when she came yesterday. The ultimate goal is to obtain the bracelet. At that time, she wondered if Lu Jiaozhao had been reborn. If it really was her who hired someone to follow me, then perhaps my suspicions were correct. Xia Nuan put the last item she had chosen into her shopping cart, took out her phone to send a text message to her parents, then handed her shopping cart to her father and turned to leave the supermarket. She didn't want to reveal that she was stockpiling supplies. If Lu Jiaozhao wasn't a reincarnated person, or if Lu Jiancheng was sending people to follow her, the exposure of her stockpiling supplies would inevitably lead to various speculations when natural disasters and apocalypses occurred in the future. After going outside, Xia Nuan strolled slowly along the road holding an umbrella. Fearing that something might be discovered, he specifically called Xia Mu. "Brother, I'm out of the supermarket. Mom and Dad are asking where they get their stock and what the prices are. How's your stock preparation going?" Xia Mu had already given the list to Xia Nuan yesterday, and when she received this call and heard her ask this question, her mind was still a little blank. "Didn't I give you the list yesterday? Should I go over it again?" "Brother, remember to visit several places today to see which shops are cheaper. Make sure to choose locations with high foot traffic, otherwise the supermarket won't be able to operate. I have enough money, so rent isn't a problem." Xia Nuan continued talking to herself, and Xia Mu quickly realized what was going on. Their stockpiling of supplies probably attracted the attention of others. The younger sister discovered this and is now looking for a legitimate reason to hide it. He understood immediately and replied, "Don't worry, after I finish collecting the goods, I'll go check on the shop. It definitely won't delay our supermarket's opening time." He replied that he would naturally take some time in the afternoon to visit the shops, even if it was just to make a show of it. He would still make a trip around half the city. Although they had only known each other for a short time, the brother and sister seemed to have already developed a certain understanding. Xia Nuan sensed that her brother understood her meaning, so she casually said a few words and hung up the phone. She didn't deliberately control her volume. She slightly turned her head and caught a glimpse of the man who had been following her in the supermarket. Sure enough, he was not far away. My intuition was right, she was their target. But they can't let some random person show up and disrupt their family's important business. Xia Nuan thought for a moment, then searched for the nearest home improvement company, preparing to find someone to put the renovation on the agenda first. She took a taxi there specifically, and after getting out of the taxi, she stood at the entrance of the home decoration company and waited for a while. Sure enough, not long after, the people who had been following her arrived at the home improvement company. When their eyes met, the other person immediately looked away, appearing guilty. Honestly, hiding one's head and tail looks very unprofessional. However, when their eyes met just now, this person, who was originally a complete stranger, suddenly gave Xia Nuan a feeling of familiarity. She seemed to know this person. "I must have seen it before, but where?" Unraveling the threads of memory. "Finally, I found someone who matches me." Xia Nuan suddenly remembered that before the apocalypse, Lu Jiancheng had always had a loyal assistant by his side. After the apocalypse, something must have happened to him, and he was never heard from again. So much time has passed that I almost forgot this person existed. However, she remembered that after Lu Jiaozhao returned home, Lu Jiancheng, fearing that his biological daughter would not be able to adapt to life in a wealthy family, specially sent this capable assistant to Lu Jiaozhao's side. In other words, after Lu Jiaozhao returned, the assistant worked for her. It really was someone Lu Jiaozhao had found. Having identified the person hiding in the shadows, Xia Nuan felt much more relaxed. It's better than the unknown. I walked quickly into the home decoration company and the receptionist greeted me warmly. "Hello, is there anything I can help you with?" "I'm planning to renovate my house and would like to install a practical fireplace, and ideally, whole house heating as I'm quite sensitive to the cold. The windows in the new house are rather thin, which I feel makes me unsafe, so I'd like to reinforce them. I also have a lot of valuables in the house, so I'd like the highest level of security." Xia Nuan's eyes lit up as she spoke. These renovation projects were not small. Although they weren't huge orders, they could still earn her more commission. The receptionist's smile became even more genuine, and she quickly led Xia Nuan to the meeting room. A short while later, 3 designers arrived with their drafts. Xia Nuan didn't even glance at the various sample images that were delivered to her door. She only made a few requests. "I need the sturdiest windows, and the same goes for the security door. I need batteries for the door locks. Ideally, the heating system should be connected to the fireplace. It needs to be finished within 15 days. Money isn't an issue, but I want everything to be the best." Xia Nuan subtly hinted at the need for expedited service and the extra charge. The 3 designers exchanged glances, and immediately a bespectacled man stepped forward, pulled a piece of paper from a folder he had brought, and placed it in front of her. "Based on your requirements, I recommend installing super windows. These windows are manufactured using a fully automated intelligent process, ensuring a high degree of fit between all components. They possess excellent wind pressure resistance and sealing properties and can even withstand typhoons. If safety is not a primary concern, you can also choose DOK glass. This type uses a very tough polymer film in the middle. When the glass is subjected to a violent impact and shatters, this composite film absorbs a large amount of impact energy and rapidly attenuates it, making it very difficult to penetrate. Even if DOK glass breaks during storms, earthquakes, or other violent attacks, it will remain intact within the window or door frame, preventing damage to the interior from wind, rain, and other external objects. One can withstand the onslaught of natural disasters, while the other can withstand the destruction caused by external forces. All of these sounded good, but Xia Nuan frowned slightly, somewhat conflicted. Super glass can withstand most disasters, but it is not particularly hard overall and can still be broken by external force. It can't protect against people. And the latter, children make choices, adults want it all. Xia Nuan was already a mature adult. She didn't want to overthink it and asked directly, what if I install both types of windows, one inside and one outside the school, like just make 2 layers? The designer had never heard of such a request, nor had he ever seen anyone install double-layered windows. Miss, this type of window is already quite expensive. It's not that we can't install them, but the price is. It doesn't matter as long as it can be used. Xia Nuan acted completely arrogantly, not caring at all about how much extra money she would spend on home renovations that seemed completely unnecessary to others. The customer is king, money talks. She remained firm in her stance, insisting that she could earn more money, so the bespectacled man naturally stopped trying to persuade her. Next, the other 2 designers understood and recommended the best and most expensive options to Xia Nuan, recommending several at a time. Xia Nuan always lived up to expectations, adding things they felt were completely unnecessary. In the end, all the costs came to over 2 million just for materials and design. We agreed that the designer would conduct an on-site inspection tomorrow. After finalizing the design plan, a 30% deposit is required. The remaining balance can be paid within 30 working days after completion. Xia Nuan was very satisfied with this arrangement. 30 working days later, the outside world had already undergone tremendous changes. She essentially built a safe house with only 30% of the money. After leaving the home decoration company, Xia Nuan called Xia Mu again. I learned that he was heading to a real estate agency to look for a suitable shop to open a supermarket. As expected, her brother had already understood what she meant, so at least on the surface, they now have a relatively plausible excuse for hoarding supplies. Their current actions don't resemble opening a supermarket at all. Who cares? Let Lu Jiaozhao and Lu Jiancheng guess. Xia Nuan now has some doubts about Lu Jiaozhao's rebirth, just like hers. If it were Lu Jiaozhao from her past life, after learning about her series of actions, she would definitely be able to guess that she was making preparations for the apocalypse. As fellow reborn individuals, Lu Jiaozhao would likely be willing to commit murder and robbery to seize control of the space. But she hasn't made any other unnecessary moves so far, which is completely unlike Lu Jiaozhao's ruthless style in the past. Unless she hasn't experienced the apocalypse and still has a deep-rooted belief in obeying the law, she wouldn't dare to cause trouble. Xia Nuan wasn't afraid of Lu Jiaozhao posing any threat to him. On the contrary, he was more looking forward to the other party taking some crazy actions when the order was in place. This would give her a legitimate reason to send Lu Jiaozhao in. Even if she isn't sent to prison but merely kept under surveillance, Lu Jiaozhao won't live long after the apocalypse. At that time, everyone was preoccupied with their own problems. Who would care about someone being held in custody? Xia Nuan had considered that Lu Jiaozhao would have all sorts of ways to deal with her, but she never expected that the other party would stick to her like a leech. It had only been 1 day since they moved in, and the next morning when Xia Nuan brought the designer home, they bumped right into Lu Jiaozhao, who had also moved in and was carrying her things inside. "Little sister, what a coincidence, you live here too. Why aren't you with mom and dad?" They met unexpectedly in the elevator. Lu Jiaozhao maintained a superficially calm smile and greeted Xia Nuan. "Oh yes, what a coincidence. I never expected that Miss Lu would leave her perfectly good luxury villa and move here instead." Xia Nuan's sarcastic reply made him roll his eyes inwardly. Although she felt disgusted, she didn't own the building, and she had no right to tell Lu Jiaozhao where she lived. "Maybe I've gotten used to the way things were before. My parents are always busy and rarely home. It's such a big villa and I always felt scared being alone there, so I asked my dad to buy me a small apartment here. I feel safer there." Both of them knew perfectly well that this explanation was merely a passable excuse. Xia Nuan did not reply, determined to continue ignoring her. The elevator slowly ascended and stopped on the 12th floor. "I'm home. From now on, we're neighbors. If you need any help, just let me know and I'll do my best to assist. Please also pass on my message that I'll definitely visit my parents to apologize properly when I have time." After Lu Jiaozhao finished speaking, she left the elevator as if it were all just a coincidence. However, no one believed her lies. The words she was supposed to convey to Xia Nuan were immediately forgotten by her. After taking the designer upstairs, Ms. Fu Ying, who had been waiting for a long time, handed the designer over to her mother and then rushed to the warehouse. I didn't go to pick up the goods last night. Xia Nuan felt that although going out at night could avoid people, it was easy to be discovered if someone paid attention. It would be better to go to the warehouse to collect things during the day when there were more people, and hide in plain sight. The warehouse is busiest during the day with people coming and going. If you close the door, no one will notice what she's doing inside. Little sister, you're finally here. I've been waiting so long. Let's hurry and get this batch in. The daily necessities Mom bought yesterday will arrive this afternoon and we'll probably have another warehouse full. Xia Nuan wasn't quite sure how much her parents had bought yesterday, but in any case, the 5 million yuan she had transferred to her father that day hadn't been spent yet. Judging from what my brother said, there must be quite a lot of stuff. I'll try to be as fast as I can, bro. Keep watch for me. Yesterday I felt like someone was following me. I paid special attention when I went out today, but I didn't see anyone. But we can't let our guard down. Xia Nuan told her without hesitation that she had been followed. Rather than worrying your family, it's more important to be mindful and take precautions. If we don't speak up now and instead keep it a secret, it will only make our family members feel uneasy. Xia Mu was pleasantly surprised by Xia Nuan's honesty but also felt a bit angry. What? Someone actually dared to follow you? Why didn't you say anything when you got home yesterday? If you had told us, Dad and I would have beaten that kid to a pulp. Xia Mu gritted his teeth, his fists clenched tightly. Xia Nuan looked Xia Mu up and down a few times. Seeing her brother's indignant expression, which was completely at odds with his tough tone, she couldn't help but fall silent. Brother, please try not to act impulsively. This time it's the same, and it will be the same in the future. Xia Nuan didn't try to hide her expression, but Xia Mu accurately understood the meaning behind the pity and disdain in her eyes. He looked down at himself. Reluctantly, she placed her hand on her abdomen. All right, the original owner of this body was a guy whose body had been hollowed out by wine, women, wealth, and power. Without needing anyone to remind him, on his very first day after transmigrating, he discovered that he seemed to have suddenly become a complete weakling. Xia Mu couldn't accept it at all. He used to be able to take on 10 people at once without any problem. Even if good physical abilities are gone, fighting skills are still there. Taking down a timid and cowardly monster shouldn't be a problem. Don't let my skinny appearance fool you, I'm got muscles. Tell me what that guy looks like later, and when I catch him, I'm going to beat him so badly he'll never be able to stand up again. Xia Nuan was amused by her brother's incoherent and nonsensical manner. Haha, you're the weirdest person in the crowd. I'm going in to pack up first. We need to hurry, there's not enough time. Xia Nuan stopped talking nonsense and went into the warehouse. The warehouse, which was just emptied the day before yesterday, is now full again. Fortunately, the warehouse in the space can hold it all. But at this rate, the second warehouse will soon be full as well. It seems I'll have to be a workhorse for the space for a while after I get back today, trying to open the third and fourth warehouses as soon as possible, leaving enough space for future 0 yuan purchases. After emptying the warehouse, the supermarket's delivery arrived just in time. Xia Mu finished paying the remaining balance and directed the workers to move the items inside. Just as she brushed past one of the workers, Xia Mu's expression suddenly sharpened, and she reached out and grabbed the man. He asked in a low, serious voice, "Are you a worker?" "Yeah, what's wrong?" The man who was being pulled looked puzzled, but his hand holding the box tightened slightly, showing his nervousness. "You look delicate and fair-skinned. You don't seem like someone who does this kind of hard labor year-round. Are you a regular employee at the supermarket?" Xia Mu smiled insincerely, but the terrifying and sharp aura in his eyes was almost suffocating. The man turned his head away awkwardly, swallowed subconsciously, and hesitated before speaking. "Yes, I was just called in temporarily to help out. There's just too much stock and the supermarket isn't enough staff." "Oh," Xia Mu's voice rose at the end, still not intending to let him off so easily, and she continued, "What do you do at the supermarket?" "Just an ordinary stock clerk. But judging from your appearance, you must have been a white-collar worker." "A stock clerk doesn't have your excellent demeanor, and it's impossible for you to be out of breath after only 3 or 4 trips. Doesn't your supermarket have any employees with better stamina than you? Why did you have to send a weakling like you?" Xia Mu stared intently into the man's eyes, a half-smile playing on her lips. His eyes seemed to see through everything, sending a chill down the other person's spine. I was just temporarily called in to help out. If the boss doesn't want to see me, I can always find someone and have 2 more people sent." After saying that, the man tried to put down the box and leave. But to his surprise, Xia Mu threw a punch at his face the next second. The one who looks the most out of place in the crowd is him. He felt that the man who had inexplicably blended into the group of factory workers was the one who was most suspicious. Regardless of right or wrong, let's fight first. His fists rained down on the man like a storm. He left his opponent no room to resist, each punch landing squarely, keeping him pinned down and unable to retaliate. This was the scene Xia Nuan saw when she came out of the warehouse. When she saw clearly the person being beaten to the ground by Xia Mu, a smile appeared on her lips. Her brother is right. Next time they meet, they'll beat the other person to a pulp. In just a few hours, my brother has already fulfilled his promise. Uncle Meng. What are you doing here? Xia Nuan quickly composed herself, feigning panic, and hurriedly stepped forward to pull Xia Mu back. The man who had been beaten finally came to his senses, got up in a disheveled state, and pointed at Xia Mu in a fit of rage. I'm going to sue you. I'll make sure you rot in jail. How dare you hit me? When did Uncle Meng leave the Lu family? He used to be the president's assistant, and now he's reduced to working at a supermarket helping to move goods. If Uncle Meng is so desperate for work, my family is opening a supermarket anyway. Why don't you come and work for me? Xia Nuan took a step forward, standing protectively in front of her brother. When he faced her directly, the man's furious expression froze. He coughed lightly twice, turned his face away awkwardly, and gave a vague explanation. I was just helping a friend at their supermarket. Who is this guy? He started hitting people without warning. He has no basic manners at all. Miss, even though you're no longer with the Lu family, you were still raised with the utmost care and privilege. You wouldn't associate with someone like this after leaving the Lu family, would you? Meng Jun's words were full of disdain and contempt, as if he had forgotten that he was here today to follow Xia Nuan. He spoke with such confidence and conviction, as if an elder were lecturing a younger person. Xia Nuan's smile didn't reach her eyes. She couldn't bear to hear others speak ill of her family. Meng Jun, just because I call you uncle doesn't mean you think you're an elder. Do you think you can lecture me? Even Lu Jiancheng can't control me now. Who do you think you are? Go back and tell Lu Jiazhou that if she wants to know anything, she can just come and ask me directly. There's no need to do something as tasteless and disgusting as stalking people. If you think you're living too freely now, we can go to the police station right now and have you stay there for a few days. Xia Nuan bluntly pointed out the truth, leaving Meng Jun at a loss for words. He never expected that Xia Nuan would show him no respect at all. It seemed she really had no intention of returning to the Lu family. Meng Jun wasn't a professional tracker. He didn't try to hide his actions at all. There were surveillance cameras everywhere. A quick check of his movements over the past 2 days would reveal everything. He didn't dare go to the police station with Xia Nuan to confront her. He was in so much pain that he was wincing, but he could only swallow his anger. I don't know what you're talking about, this stalking stuff. I was just helping a friend out today. Out of respect for you, miss, I can overlook it. My words just now were only to prevent you from going astray. After all, I've watched you grow up, so I'll naturally care about you. If you don't appreciate it, that's fine. I have other things to attend to. Good luck, miss. Meng Jun dared not linger any longer, fearing that Xia Nuan would drag him to the police station and hand over a luxurious 10-day trip to jail. Ignoring his injuries, he hurried away. Watching his departing figure, Xia Nuan rolled her eyes. Okay, don't be angry anymore. I already taught him a lesson for you. Xia Mu patted his sister's head with a smile in his eyes. Heaven knows how handsome Xia Nuan looked when she walked up to him and protected him. He did well too. He kept his promise to his sister. Brother did the right thing. People like that need to be taught a lesson, otherwise they'll really think they're someone important. Xia Nuan gave Xia Mu a thumbs up in praise, and the brother and sister smiled knowingly before turning back to direct people to move things into the warehouse. With important business at hand, after moving all these supplies to her space today, the things she ordered online should arrive gradually. We also need to upgrade the space as soon as possible. We need to create at least 3 more warehouses. When moving things, the brother and sister didn't have to lift a finger. Xia Mu, having nothing else to do, inquired about how much space was left and what it looked like. Xia Nuan briefly explained the functions of the space and some inconveniences, especially in terms of upgrading. You can only run back and forth between the 2 places to plant and sell crops, and you will automatically upgrade once you accumulate a certain amount of experience. Since you can use your consciousness to bring things from outside into this space, and you can also use your consciousness to organize warehouses, why can't you use your mind to manipulate things for planting and selling? Xia Mu offered his suggestion, and after listening, Xia Nuan suddenly slapped her forehead, her eyes widening as if she had been enlightened. Yeah, I can try controlling everything in this space with my mind. Oh right, how come she didn't think of that? Even from outside, she could see the control panel inside the space. Her first attempt was to click it with her hand, subconsciously believing that this was the only way to operate it without ever trying any other possibilities. Reminded of this, Xia Nuan quickly closed her eyes. A complete picture of the space appeared in her mind. She manipulated the space with her thoughts and was indeed able to directly buy seeds, plant, and harvest. Operating it from outside, the space was extremely mentally taxing. What was initially just physical fatigue quickly turned into utter exhaustion and mental lethargy within minutes. Hiss. The result of overworking my brain was that during the next implantation, my head felt like it was about to explode. Xia Nuan quickly stopped operating the device, clutching her head in pain. What's wrong? Xia Mu looked nervous. Seeing her covering her head, he quickly reached out and massaged her temples. Manipulating space with your mind is indeed convenient, but you can't maintain it for long. I only did it for a short while and then it started to hurt. Xia Nuan frowned and shook her head, but Xia Mu held her firmly. The warmth from his fingertips gently pressed on her temples and the splitting headache immediately subsided. Stop if you feel uncomfortable. What if you accidentally become an idiot? There's no user manual for this space, you have to figure everything out yourself. Be careful in everything you do, don't be reckless. Xia Mu's words were stern, but his actions and eyes were full of concern and worry. With her headache completely gone, Xia Nuan suddenly felt that she seemed to have become a little different. It was as if the surrounding sounds had suddenly been amplified and everything became incredibly clear. What's going on? Brother, don't you think it's a bit noisy around here? Xia Nuan asked a question out of the blue. No, it's always been like this. Xia Mu looked around the warehouse. It was bustling with people coming and going, but not noisy. The environment hasn't changed, the problem definitely lies with myself. Xia Nuan had a vague idea in her mind, and with a try-it-out mentality, she closed her eyes again and began to control the spatial planting. The last time I had a headache was when I was harvesting the 6th batch of crops. It wasn't until the 8th batch of crops was harvested that Xia Nuan had that same feeling again. The ripening time of crops is fixed, there is no time difference. Has her mental strength increased? This discovery was undoubtedly a huge surprise. Although the headaches were unbearable during the experiment, the gains were proportional to the pain. Brother, I've discovered that planting with my mind can enhance my mental strength. Everything around me feels so clear now, sounds are amplified, and I think I can see much farther. Xia Nuan is an archery athlete. Her eyesight has always been excellent. She can clearly see the words on an LED display screen even when standing at a high place, 10 kilometers away. Now that her power has increased, she can clearly see the tiny print on the job posting at the entrance of a restaurant a kilometer away when she looks into the distance. The hearing loss is also terrifying. In a noisy atmosphere, many people are talking, which makes the sound muffled, sounding like a buzzing, making it difficult to extract important information. But now she can clearly hear the exact words spoken by everyone within 100 meters, and her attention span has been enhanced. Xia Nuan shared her changes with her brother Xia Mu, who was very happy for her. Becoming more skilled is a good thing, but with every little improvement I get a headache, it's too much suffering. Xia Mu still felt sorry for his younger sister. But he also knew that the apocalypse was just around the corner. In that kind of environment, strength was the guarantee of life, and he couldn't stop his sister from becoming stronger for any reason. Whether in the book or in the real people he encounters now, Xia Nuan is not the kind of parasitic vine who would stay at home contentedly. She is a resilient tree, an unyielding bamboo. They are people who can face storms head-on and will not be defeated by setbacks. It's okay, there's no such thing as getting stronger without suffering. It's not a bad change, so a little more pain is fine. I'll practice a little longer. Maybe I can level up my space again today. Xia Nuan was overjoyed and didn't care about the pain at all. Compared to the excruciating pain I endured before dying in my past life, this headache is nothing. Moreover, they recover quickly, and once their mental state returns to normal, they feel refreshed both physically and mentally. She closed her eyes again and Xia Mu sighed softly, silently staying by her side. Xia Nuan didn't finish her exercise until sunset when there was no one left around the warehouse. The space has been upgraded and I've built a new warehouse. More land has been developed so we can prepare even more supplies. Brother, is there anything you want? Like a book you'd like to read or a TV show? I bought a lot of USB drives, they'll arrive tomorrow and I'll download them all for you. Xia Nuan has been busy preparing the supplies she thinks she needs these days, but she hasn't thought about asking her family what they need. Everyone's needs are different, and even the need for entertainment to maintain a pleasant mood is an important aspect that cannot be ignored. In the end times, in addition to dealing with the difficult reality of survival, we must also overcome the oppressive atmosphere everywhere. Being trapped in a suffocating, enormous cage of despair for too long is unbearable for anyone. She had seen many people who had survived, many very capable people, who ultimately chose destruction because of mental breakdown. Those who cause destruction everywhere and engage in harmful collusion are all driven mad by that oppressive atmosphere. I don't need those, but if possible, let's stock up on pencils and fireworks. Oh, and timber and steel too, I'd really like those, but they're all a bit expensive right now. Xia Mu had been too embarrassed to bring it up before, but now that her younger sister had asked, she tried mentioning it briefly. Pencil fireworks, what do you need these for? Are you going to need a lot? Xia Nuan didn't quite understand and couldn't figure out the purpose of these two things for a long time. Are they planning to set off fireworks every now and then to celebrate after the apocalypse? It's nothing, I just wanted it, but it's okay if I don't buy it. Xia Mu didn't give a reason, vaguely glossing over the matter, but since he brought it up, Xia Nuan had no reason to refuse. Buy it if you want, I have enough money. I remember there's a stationery factory in our area and a fireworks factory in the suburbs. I also need to buy some gasoline and diesel while I'm at it. I'll go back today and pre-order some honeycomb briquettes, and tomorrow my parents will pick up the packages for me at home. The two of us will make a trip to the suburbs. Xia Nuan wished she could fill every single day to the brim. Although he was reborn a month before the apocalypse, he actually only had about 10 days to move around. There seemed to be a lot to prepare, but Xia Nuan always felt there wasn't enough time and always wanted to make sure everything was prepared thoroughly. If you've thought of something, do it now, so you can live a more comfortable life. I originally planned to use the two warehouses to store daily necessities for the time being, as things like honeycomb briquettes take up a lot of space, and then find an opportunity to buy them for free later. But she has just opened a new warehouse, and with ample space, it's better to prepare some things in advance. To avoid having more items damaged by water after a typhoon and heavy rain, and then having to painstakingly select usable items after stockpiling them. After discussing their plans for tomorrow and packing up all their belongings today, the brother and sister went home early. The next day, they rented a truck and went to a suburban factory to buy 300,000 yuan worth of fireworks and 1,000 jin of honeycomb briquettes. After buying the goods, Xia Mu drove the car to a secluded spot and had Xia Nuan secretly put all the goods into her spatial storage before heading to the next place to buy more supplies. The brother and sister wandered around the suburbs where there were mostly transport roads and many gas stations. Whenever they passed by, they would stop and buy 4 large barrels of diesel and gasoline. I went to 5 gas stations and finally bought 20 cans, which should be barely enough. Over the next 3 days, all the items Xia Nuan bought online arrived and were stored in her virtual space. Thanks to her tireless efforts and generous spending, the house, which was originally scheduled to be renovated in 15 days, was completed within a week. Judging by the timeline, there are only 3 days left before the light rain turns into heavy rain. Xia Nuan is working hard to upgrade the space every day while also checking for and fixing any shortcomings. But plans can never keep up with changes. The light drizzle suddenly stopped 2 days earlier than in my previous life. The timing didn't match up, and Xia Nuan even had the illusion that the so-called apocalypse was just a real dream. Even if it's just a dream, the apocalypse is just too unbearable. She would rather lose the money to prepare supplies than not have world peace. However, the information that everyone in the city received soon shattered her beautiful dreams. The situation was even worse than she had imagined. A super typhoon is expected to hit the city soon. All ports, shopping malls, and banks will be closed today. Please purchase your necessities within the next 3 days if needed. A typhoon is coming. In my past life, the typhoon arrived half a month after the light rain turned into heavy rain. This time, the weather warning came a full half a month earlier than in my past life. Xia Nuan stared blankly at the text message on her phone, sitting at the dining table with vacant, lifeless eyes, and murmured, "Is the typhoon really coming? The end times are really coming." The text message reminded people to purchase supplies 3 days in advance, meaning that officials expect the typhoon to make landfall in about 3 days. Xia Nuan got out of bed and checked the balance in her card. Of the more than 30 million yuan I had before, I still have 1/3 left. That's enough to buy a big item. Xia Mu also brought up the typhoon. I just looked at the publicly available satellite images. It's estimated that typhoons will make landfall in 4 directions across the country, affecting a very wide area. These typhoons from all 4 directions will converge towards the center. and by the time they reach our city, they will have already completed at least 2 eyewall replacements. The intensity and wind speed are absolutely unbearable for a mortal body. Let's go out to buy something one last time today, and then don't go out at all. Upon receiving the message, Xia Mu immediately studied the satellite map carefully. His calculations showed that the situation was more urgent than the text message notification. From this day forward, the family is not allowed to leave the house under any circumstances, to avoid any unexpected situations. Mom and Dad, you can just go to the nearby supermarkets and farmers markets today and buy some things to make it look like you're there. My brother and I will drive out to buy some things. Xia Nuan was worried about her parents, so after thinking about it, she decided to let them do some relatively easy tasks. With the citywide alert in effect, many people will definitely go out to buy supplies. Someone from their family had to go out and pretend to be someone else. After breakfast, Xia Nuan and her brother went out and rented 4 cars from the car rental company, 2 SUVs, 1 motorhome, and 1 small truck. After the apocalypse, most cars were destroyed by water, and those that weren't completely destroyed in the parking lots became hot commodities, with varying quality. Xia Nuan finally waited until the end of the world. Now she could rent 4 cars for just a small amount of money, which was much cheaper than buying a car. Apart from the small truck, the other 3 vehicles were stored in the storage space. The warehouse has been upgraded twice in the past few days, going from 3 to 5 warehouses, and can now hold quite a lot more. This time, Xia Nuan drove, speeding towards the city's Science and Technology Plaza. Xia Mu glanced at the navigation and asked in confusion, "Why go to the Science Museum?" This year, the Science Museum exhibited 4 cutting-edge escape pods, fireproof, waterproof, and vibration-resistant. They were featured on the news for 5 consecutive days. All 4 pods are for sale, a package deal for 8 million. However, these escape pods are single-use items. Once opened from the inside, they cannot be completely sealed again. Previously, no one had shown any interest, but I'm planning to buy them now. Xia Nuan had a vivid memory of this escape pod in her past life. Realizing things were getting chaotic outside, she tried to look for them. However, when we arrived at the Science Museum, we discovered that the escape pod had long since disappeared. I don't know if it was bought by someone beforehand or taken away. The typhoon had just passed, and it was only the beginning of the apocalypse. This time, Xia Nuan didn't want anyone else to get there first. Even if it cost money, she was determined to buy all 4 life pods to ensure they were in her possession. It was just the right size for all 4 members of my family, and it served as a double layer of insurance, especially after the earthquake. If typhoons can arrive early, who can say for sure that an earthquake that was originally expected after March might arrive earlier or be more severe? Upon entering the Science and Technology Museum, Xia Nuan breathed a slight sigh of relief upon seeing the 4 escape pods still on display in the exhibition hall. After negotiating with the staff, I promptly swiped my card and bought it. With less than 2 million left in her account, Xia Nuan actually felt more secure without the money. After finding a secluded spot, Xia Nuan stored the escape pod in her spatial storage, then drove straight to the suburbs without stopping for a moment. We've already prepared most of the necessary supplies. What else do we need to buy in the suburbs? Xia Mu looked at the route and asked curiously, "Go to $0 purchase." Xia Mu wondered if he had misheard. This isn't even the end of the world yet, and they're already offering free purchases. Before order collapses, aren't they afraid of getting arrested for doing this? Brother, I didn't tell you everything about my dream last time. In the dream, after the typhoon ended, there was continuous torrential rain. In just one night, the rain would flood a house. After that, there were constant natural and man-made disasters, and the world went into complete chaos. It was about to be the end of the world. Xia Nuan chose to be honest. She hadn't mentioned the apocalypse before because she was afraid of scaring her family and also afraid they wouldn't care. But now that we're almost there are some things that need to be clarified. Today's typhoon warning is exactly the same as what happened in my dream. After this, everything except supermarkets and other places to buy daily necessities will be closed and shut down permanently. There will be no restart. If everything in my dream comes true, what we've prepared now is definitely not enough. Xia Mu lowered his eyes and remained silent for a long time. Many ideas flashed through his mind. Was it really a dream? Xia Mu didn't believe it, but he knew that Xia Nuan didn't want to harm him. She was telling him these things seriously to prepare him mentally, and it was for his own good. Well, since we're all family, it doesn't really matter how we came up with our idea of the apocalypse. So when do we make our move? We'll get to work as soon as sunset. The people at the factory should still be working, preparing for the typhoon. We'll go to the gas station to buy some more fuel. Xia Nuan wanted to exchange all of her remaining million-plus yuan for gasoline and diesel. It doesn't matter anymore if it attracts attention. It's the apocalypse, who cares what she's buying things for? There are about 3 hours until sunset. Xia Nuan visited every gas station in the area and finally spent the more than 1 million yuan she had. Before setting off, Xia Mu and I grabbed a quick bite to eat during the evacuation. Night slowly fell. The suburbs were so quiet that even the barking of dogs could be heard. Xia Mu opened the door and got out of the car, and Xia Nuan jumped down after him. Not far away was the factory's low wall. The two quietly crept to the outside of the wall. Xia Nuan was carried up the wall by her brother, and then he pulled her up as well. No one spoke. Xia Mu led the way, and Xia Nuan followed behind. The brother and sister had unknowingly developed a certain tacit understanding. The warehouses and factory buildings inside the factory are easy to distinguish. In the distance, there are several 4-story buildings with lights on, which should be the employee dormitories. Seeing that no one was around, Xia Nuan took out pliers, pried open the lock, and easily slipped inside. "Little sister, what kind of factory is this?" It was pitch black outside and almost nothing could be seen. It was only then that Xia Mu remembered to ask. Cigarettes are something you can't eat or drink, but they're a kind of spiritual sustenance for some people. After the apocalypse, there will definitely be people who want them, perhaps even as much as gold. Xia Nuan had no intention of cutting off people's livelihoods, so the food factory was not on today's plan. Her goal today is something like tobacco and alcohol, which don't hinder survival but can become hard currency. Xia Nuan worked swiftly and quickly, frantically loading goods into the space. Crates of cigarettes quickly filled half of the second floor of the warehouse. The two were not greedy. They opened only this one warehouse and quickly left. Next up was the drinking session. Perhaps because of the typhoon warning, no one expected that someone would sneak into the factory on such a day, so vigilance was particularly lax. Xia Nuan filled another half warehouse with wine and went with her brother to the firecracker yard. When they bought fireworks before, Xia Nuan could clearly sense that her brother felt the amount of fireworks they bought was insufficient. This time, Xia Nuan didn't hold back. At her brother's request, she packed as much as she could without any hesitation. However, fireworks and firecrackers are regulated products, so even manufacturers don't have much stock. They don't even fill half a warehouse, including raw materials. Next up is the building materials factory. All kinds of steel plates and timber could not escape Xia Nuan's clutches, and the warehouse was quickly filled. Where to go next? Xia Mu was driving on the main road when it started raining again, and this trend is growing. As the car gradually obstructed his view, he drove with extreme caution. It's probably about the size of this truck, but twice as tall. Xia Nuan checked the storage space for new words in her online space. The two newly built warehouses are still not enough. The building materials we just collected take up most of the space. After visiting the last two places, we'll go home. Xia Nuan took out a navigation device to locate the location. The car turned a corner and quickly drove towards the last supply point. This time, they're collecting gas cylinders. Water and power outages will occur soon after a typhoon. Gas cylinders can be used for cooking, but they can also be used as explosive weapons in case of threats. The stove and cookware I have at home are just right. It's a gas stove, so I'll just need to modify the connection later. When they bought outdoor supplies before, they also bought gas stoves and small gas canisters, but these things don't last long, so it's always good to collect more. Because gas cylinders are hazardous materials, even manufacturers don't keep many in their warehouses. One by one, the cans were thrown into the space and arranged neatly, leaving a quarter of the warehouse space remaining. However, the two siblings did not intend to continue. There's one last place I need to go. This is of paramount importance. That's a pharmaceutical factory. The pharmaceutical factory is far from the city center, and the rain is getting heavier. I'm worried about the danger on the road if we go any later. Xia Mu drove leisurely towards the pharmaceutical factory. The infiltration process wasn't difficult. They simply opened 3 warehouses only to find a small amount of medicine inside. Especially wound medicine and bandages were scarce. There is no pharmaceutical factory that does not produce the drugs. This pharmaceutical factory is doing very well. They previously cooperated with the Liu family, so there will never be a shortage of goods. That means it has already been moved. With so much stock, even the boss wouldn't dare to move it in large quantities. It seems the authorities were aware of the situation and made preparations in advance. What was unexpected was that natural disasters were not limited to typhoons, and the chaos was endless. Fortunately, other non-emergency medicines had not yet been moved. After Xia Nuan accepted a little from each of them, she went home with her brother. As I approached the entrance to the residential area, I passed by an unexpected person. Yi Fan, what's he doing here? Does he live in the same neighborhood as us? Xia Nuan also saw this familiar face and sighed inwardly at this damned fate. Just moments ago, Yi Fan was carrying 2 large bags and walking towards the residential area, heading in the direction of their current residence. If Yi Fan really lives in this neighborhood now, he might run into her again in the future. From my last conversation with Yi Fan, I knew that this petty person probably couldn't stand them anymore. Given his vengeful nature, he'll inevitably cause trouble in the future. Don't worry about it, there's always a way to solve it. Xia Mu's eyes flashed with a cold light, and his words were filled with an arrogant and domineering tone. He never believed in fate, much less in any so-called destiny. Those who transmigrate into books can see the protagonist as a chosen one, or they can see him as just another ordinary person. The world can't stop turning just because one person is missing. If the male lead really threatens him and his family, he'll just go down fighting to the death. The brother and sister parked their car underground and took the elevator upstairs, where they didn't encounter anyone else. I returned home weary from my journey to find a steaming bowl of chicken soup on the table. Hearing the sound of the door lock, Xia Zhiguo yawned and came out of the house. When he saw his children return, his expression immediately relaxed. Your mom made you 2 chicken soup just in case you get cold. Go drink it, then go to sleep. Dad left those words behind, turned around and hurriedly went back to his room without asking another question. The brother and sister exchanged a smile. The thought of coming home to a warm bowl of soup lifted their spirits considerably. There's no one better than Mom in the world. The chicken soup was so delicious and flavorful, I couldn't stop eating it. After a long day of travel, the brother and sister were too tired to talk. After finishing their soup, they returned to their respective rooms, and Xia Nuan fell asleep immediately. In the middle of the night, a loud explosion woke the whole family. Xia Nuan suddenly opened her eyes, thinking there was an enemy attack, and jumped out of bed. After a while, they realized that the explosion had come from outside. Xia Nuan rushed outside, and her parents and brother followed. The family ran to the window and discovered that the typhoon had arrived. The explosion they had just heard was the sound of the glass of a house across the street being blown apart by the typhoon. The trees downstairs have been ravaged by the typhoon and broken in half. Even the stone pillars are showing signs of being uprooted by the strong winds. The typhoon came early. It happened a full 2 weeks earlier than in my previous life. Luckily, we got back quickly today. If we were still outside, we'd probably be blown away. Xia Mu stared in disbelief at the scene below, utterly stunned and bewildered by the brutality of nature. He and his parents were all from the north before they traveled through time, and they had spent almost half their lives in the north. The north rarely experiences disasters like typhoons, and this is the first time they have experienced such a natural calamity. Xia Mu had never known that the wind could be so destructive. Even if you had expected it, you can't help but feel terrified after witnessing it with your own eyes. Clang! Several loud bangs followed. 4 or 5 apartments across the street had their windows explode. Judging from the sound, it wasn't just these few houses whose windows were shattered by the wind. The closest one should be downstairs from them. I wonder which unlucky family got caught. Gravel blown in by the typhoon lashed against the windows and rain poured down. Oh dear, it's too dangerous near the window. Little sister, stand behind me. I can shield you if anything happens. Xia Mu felt a chill run down her spine as she listened, fearing that the fierce wind might whip something up and smash their windows. Xia Nuan stepped back, and memories of her past life flooded back like a tide. The difference is that in her past life, a typhoon struck, shattering the windows and breaking a steel railing that crashed into the house. Lu Jiaozhao used her as a shield, and when she complained, the Lu family blamed her for being immature and inconsiderate. In this life, she has her brother standing in front of her, protecting her from behind. The windows are double glazed, so even if something hits them, it won't easily blow into the room. Let's move the sofa and cabinet over there to hold them up, adding another layer of protection. Xia Nuan watched as a large rock was lifted up and smashed against the window. Fortunately, it only made a muffled thud and left a slight scratch. You get what you pay for. The windows, made at a high price, are indeed incredibly sturdy. Working together, they pushed the heavy object to the window, making the living room feel somewhat empty. No one wanted to go back to sleep, so they decided to go to the kitchen and make some hot pot. The 4 people sat around the dining table, the pot steaming hot, while the 2 puppies that Xia Nuan had brought back circled around them, wagging their tails frantically. Outside, a fierce wind and torrential rain raged, yet there was a strange sense of tranquility as if from another world. The typhoon brought a drop in temperature, so hot pot was the perfect way to warm up. Ding dong, Xia Nuan's phone suddenly rang. It was a message from the entire property management group chat. Property Management Officer Wang, a typhoon is approaching. All residents are requested to close all doors and windows and stay indoors. If any windows are broken, please temporarily seek shelter in the emergency exits. 1213. My window is broken and I can't live in my house now. I have a 1-month-old baby who needs formula. Is there anyone kind enough to bring me some hot water to make formula? I'm willing to pay for it. Building 12 is the building where Xia Nuan and her family live. It turns out that the unlucky guy whose glass just shattered was a resident on the 13th floor. 1105. Mine is broken too, and someone in the family is injured. Does anyone have any wound medicine or blood-thinning medicine? I'm willing to pay any price. 0507. Help. The wind is so strong I can't open my front door and get out and the window is broken. Can anyone help me? More and more messages started popping up in the property management group chat. Within half an hour of the typhoon hitting, more than a dozen households had experienced various problems. Xia Nuan quietly watched the messages scrolling in the group chat. Some people responded and offered help, while others joined in complaining about the awful weather. Everything looked harmonious. But before long, the harmony will be shattered, and those who offer help will be seen as benevolent and constantly harassed and oppressed. Woof woof tilde 2 barks came from below. Xia Nuan lowered her head and a chubby little dog was drooling with envy. His silly, simple-minded look was filled with longing. Xia Nuan smiled, bent down, picked up the little guy, and gently rubbed his paws a couple of times. I've been so busy these past few days that I haven't had time to look after them and I've even forgotten to name them. The 2 puppies are very well behaved. They only bark when they are hungry or thirsty, otherwise they play quietly by themselves. After being taught just a few times, they knew how to use the toilet at a designated spot. They're incredibly smart. How about we call it fat beef? Xia Mu scooped a piece of fatty beef from the pot with his chopsticks and put it in his mouth, his naming method extremely perfunctory. No, that doesn't sound good. Let's call it bringing wealth or prosperity. Fu Ying immediately rejected her son's name, but her naming skills weren't exactly top-notch either. I think it would be better to name them Huan or Zixi, those names sound festive. Xia Zhiguo also offered his own ideas. The 3 looked at each other, each believing their own was the best, and argued for a long time without reaching a conclusion. Finally, the family of 3 turned their attention to Xia Nuan, their eyes conveying that they wanted her to make the decision. Xia Nuan had a headache and rubbed her forehead, feeling that listening to anyone's advice didn't seem quite right, which was not good for family harmony. Finally, she tentatively asked, how about we name them Big Yellow and Big Black? There were exactly 2 dogs, 1 yellow and 1 black. Okay, this whole family is terrible at naming things. I can't choose either. If I don't think this one will work, I'll think about it some more. Xia Nuan gave an awkward yet polite smile. She's so cute and innocent looking that this expression makes her look very disappointed. Thinking about it carefully, the names Big Yellow and Big Black aren't bad, they suit their appearance quite well. Xia Mu didn't want to disappoint her, so he racked his brains and reluctantly praised her. Xia Zhiguo and his wife exchanged a glance and nodded repeatedly. Yes, that's right, Xia Nuan's names are really nice. From now on, let's call them Big Yellow and Big Black. That's how the names for the 2 little ones were decided. They seem to like the name very much. When you call out to Big Yellow and Big Black, the 2 little creatures bark incessantly, as if they know the name belongs to them. Ding dong, ding dong. The doorbell suddenly rang. Xia Mu stood up to open the door and saw Lu Xiaoxiao's face through the peephole. His brows immediately furrowed. Why is it Lu Xiaoxiao? What's she doing here again? Xia Mu muttered to himself. The name seemed to trigger a stress response in the whole family. Upon hearing it, everyone became on high alert. Don't open the door, just pretend you're asleep. If you ignore her, she'll leave on her own after a while. Fu Ying rolled her eyes in annoyance. Last time, Lu Xiaoxiao had been trying to sow discord between her and her precious daughter in just a few words, leaving a deep impression on her. She figured Lu Xiaoxiao wouldn't say anything nice again when she opened the door. It's better to ignore everyone. Xia Mu wasn't really keen on talking to her, so he simply sat back down at the dining table. But for some reason, Lu Xiaoxiao persisted and was determined to make them argue. He rang the doorbell for over 10 minutes, which was incredibly annoying. I'm definitely going to take this doorbell down tomorrow. Xia Zhiguo has a bad temper, and the only person who can control him is probably Ms. Fu Ying. The doorbell's ringing irritated him, and he could no longer suppress his anger. He jumped up, strode to the front door, and flung it open. What exactly do you want? Isn't it annoying to be here in the middle of the night? Xia Zhiguo had a gloomy face. He was a big, burly man, and when he put on a stern face, he looked extremely fierce and intimidating. In the past, when the original owner treated this adopted daughter, she was afraid that her appearance would frighten her, so she always spoke softly. But this time, as soon as the door opened, Xia Zhiguo lost his temper, and Lu Jiajiao was so frightened that she trembled. Dad, I moved here a while ago, but today a typhoon hit and I wasn't prepared at all. We can't stay here anymore. I ran into my sister here last time, and I know you guys live here too, so I was wondering if I could stay for one night, just one night. I'll go back tomorrow morning. I promise I won't bother you for too long. Lu Jiajiao bit her lower lip lightly. She was soaked to the bone, her hair clung to her cheeks, and her eyes were wet, making her look very fragile. After what happened last time, she knew that everyone in the Xia family had changed their attitude towards her. They would no longer pamper her without any limits as before, and if she spoke ill of Xia Nuan, they would be even more annoyed. So this time she didn't mention Xia Nuan at all, only talking about how pitiful she was, hoping to gain some sympathy. It's so dangerous outside right now. If a typhoon blows into the house, someone could die if they're not careful. Even if they still have some lingering family ties, surely the Xia family wouldn't just stand by and watch someone die. Thinking this, Lu Jiajiao lowered her eyes, hugged her arms, and looked like she was shivering from the cold, her expression forlorn like a lost girl with nowhere to go. Xia Zhiguo was completely immune to her feigned concern. With a cold face, he gruffly refused, "We don't have anywhere for you to stay. Go ask around, or you can spend the night in the hallway. It's only one night anyway. But my clothes are all wet. If I stay outside all night, I'll definitely catch a cold." Lu Jiajiao raised her head in disbelief. After being rejected twice, she began to wonder if the entire family had been replaced. Even if someone's attitude changes, it shouldn't change this drastically. It's like comparing heaven and earth. Anyone who didn't know better would think she killed their entire family. Little did Lu Jiajiao know that in the original novel Xia Mu was reading, she was the one who killed their entire family. For Xia Nuan, who was reborn, they were also mortal enemies. Wait a minute. Xia Zhiguo glanced at her, turned around and went back to his room, closing the door behind him. He looked at the blanket that had been wrapped around the two puppies in the living room, walked straight over and picked it up, then went back to the front door, opened it, and threw the blanket directly onto Lu Jiajiao. "Here, take this. With this, you probably won't catch a cold tonight. And stop ringing my doorbell so much. You have no sense of propriety at all, it's so annoying." After saying that, Xia Zhiguo slammed the door shut with a loud bang, startling Lu Jiajiao. The entire sequence of actions took only 2 or 3 minutes. Xia Zhiguo returned to the dining table and sat down. Fu Ying glanced at him and asked, "What are you doing with Da Huang and Da Hei's blankets?" That young girl surnamed Lu said her house was too empty and she wanted to stay at ours. Could I agree to that? Of course I refused, but she wouldn't let it go. She insisted she was soaking wet and would catch a cold if she stayed out overnight. So I just got her a blanket to keep her from bothering us again. Xia Zhiguo was only thinking about getting rid of them as soon as possible, shutting up all of Lu Jiajiao's excuses, and stopping her from finding reasons to bother their family anymore. Judging from her persistent manner, they were afraid that if they didn't agree, this girl would ring their doorbell all night long. Fine, I'll give it to them then. It's just a pity for our Blackie and Yellow dogs, they even had their blankets taken away. If you ask me, she doesn't even deserve to use dog stuff. She was worried about catching a cold after sleeping outside for a night, but when she punished our Nuanuan, she didn't think of that since Nuanuan had a fever. Fu Ying was furious when she thought about this. She had no idea what Xia Nuan's life had been like before. That one incident alone made it clear that the Lu family wouldn't treat Xia Nuan well at all. They didn't want to touch on Xia Nuan's painful memories, so they never asked, but that doesn't mean they didn't know. Relationships between people require an equal exchange. This family doesn't appreciate our friendship at all. They raised their daughter for so many years and they're so willing to torture her. What's wrong with them being a little heartless? Let's not talk about her anymore, it's bad luck. But we need to find a way to make her realize how annoying she is so she stops showing up in front of us. Otherwise, she'll always be like a leech, impossible to shake off. Xia Mu was even more impolite, directly regarding Lu Jiajiao as something filthy. There will always be a way later. Now is not the time, she won't bother us for long. Xia Nuan smiled gently and harmlessly, already plotting her revenge. Lu Jiajiao won't give up anytime soon, he'll stick to them like glue. Because Lu Jiajiao's real purpose was her personal space, but this is for the best. If Lu Jiajiao had continued living around the Lu family as she had in her previous life, she would have had a hard time finding the time to specifically go and get rid of the person after the apocalypse. But now that the person was right under her nose, it made things easier for her to take action. Once the world descends into complete chaos, even if Lu Jiaozhou had 3 heads and 6 arms, she would still hunt her down to the very end. Forget about her for now, everyone's full, right? Once you're done eating, get up and tidy up the table, then turn on the range hood for a bit. The room smelled awful after eating hot pot. Fu Ying organized the whole family to get involved and clean up all the tables. It was already past midnight when I finished packing. There was no further sound coming from outside the door, but the commotion downstairs was quite loud. Every now and then you can hear heavy objects falling to the ground or making a clattering sound. With the commotion outside, no one could get any rest or peace. The family stood by the window, watching helplessly as the water level below rose higher and higher until it completely submerged the first floor. The group chat is getting increasingly busy. All the residents on the first floor were desperately calling for help. The floor was completely flooded, and the residents had no choice but to take their belongings and stay in the corridor on a higher floor. But it was so cold in the emergency exit, and they were exhausted, unable to even sleep. They were in so much pain that they hoped their neighbors could lend a hand and take them in temporarily. Xia Nuan kept an eye on the messages in the group chat, and to appear more sociable, she would occasionally reply with a few complaints. In the post-apocalyptic world, there will be too many people who can't stand seeing others doing well when they themselves are struggling. Everyone rushed out to send messages, cursing the awful weather and asking for help from the outside world. If they don't say anything, they'll attract attention sooner or later. Even if they had nothing at home, just maintaining a cheerful mood would be considered a sin by those who were already mentally broken under immense pressure. 1217. My dad twisted his ankle while we were moving things to block the window. Now we can't go out to buy medicine, and we only have some fever reducers and cold medicine left at home. Is there anyone kind enough to give me some? Xia Nuan made up a lie and joined the group of people trying to gain sympathy. She didn't expect anyone to respond. No one had paid any attention to the requests for help posted by those people. Only the person who initially asked for a cup of hot water received a response. About 3 minutes later, a friend request suddenly popped up. It was the resident of apartment 1216 downstairs. The friend request message was exactly what he wanted to say by adding them as a friend. I have some medicinal wine for sprains and bruises. Could I exchange it for some fever reducers? Xia Nuan accepted the friend request without much hesitation. Once a lie is told, it has to be covered up. The profile picture of the resident in apartment 1216 is a small, entirely black cat. The kitten's face was both fierce and handsome, majestic like a miniature version of a black leopard. 1216. I'm right at the emergency exit. Can I exchange half a bottle for half a box of fever reducers? 1216. Image. In the photo, 1216 is holding half a bottle of medicinal wine. The most immediate impression Xia Nuan gets is that this person has very beautiful hands. His fingers, with their distinct knuckles and clear lines, made the medicinal wine look like a child's toy in his hands. Xia Nuan admired it for 3 seconds, then sent a message asking the other party to wait a few minutes. My parents bought all the fever reducers themselves, and the medicines they took back from the pharmaceutical factory were the ones they didn't use often. After searching through the storage space for a while, Xia Nuan took out the medicine box, thought for a moment, and then opened the box and took out a few pills. Having survived the apocalypse, Xia Nuan was always very stingy with supplies. If a deal was made for half a box, she wouldn't allow even one more. Xia Nuan wrapped the remaining medicine in toilet paper, put on her coat, and prepared to go out. Where are you going? Seeing that she was about to leave, Xia Mu also stood up. My downstairs neighbor wants to exchange my medication. I'm going to make a deal with him. Is it a man? Xia Mu asked, frowning. It seems so. What happened? Xia Nuan was confused. It was just a swap. What did it have to do with gender? Hey, it's not safe for a young girl like you to go out alone. I'll go with you. Without saying a word, Xia Mu walked to the door first, looking just like a farmer guarding cabbages. Xia Nuan was both amused and exasperated. Are they treating her like a 3-year-old? Even just seeing a neighbor near home requires parents to pick them up and drop them off. She suddenly felt as if she had become 18 years younger, as if she had transformed into a toddler. However, this feeling is not unpleasant. Xia Nuan smiled and nodded, then went downstairs with her brother. At the corner of the staircase between the 2 floors, a tall and upright man leaned against the handrail. He appeared to be nearly 19 meters tall, with long, slightly drooping eyelashes, and the cigarette butt on his fingertips glowing intermittently. Hearing footsteps coming from upstairs, the man slightly raised his head. His calm, dark eyes inexplicably gave off a sense of determination and courage, and his high nose bridge and thin lips were slightly pursed. It's like a character model from a game has come to life. Xia Nuan rarely encountered such a stunning beauty, and for a moment she was momentarily stunned. The older brother, Xia Mu, is also very handsome, but he has the refined, youthful charm that is completely different from the man in front of us. Furthermore, since the siblings have identical features, Xia Nuan sees him as if she's looking in a mirror and doesn't feel anything particularly special. Her neighbor was more stunning than her. 1216, Xia Nuan asked softly to confirm the other person's identity. The man nodded slightly, walked up 2 steps, and handed the medicinal wine to Xia Mu. Xia Nuan didn't find the man's distance offensive. On the contrary, she felt quite comfortable. Since they're strangers, it's better to keep your distance. The fever reducer you requested. Xia Nuan handed over the medicine. The exchange went smoothly, but the man seemed to have no intention of leaving. He was frowning, seemingly struggling with something, clearly wanting to say something but holding back. What do you want to say? Xia Nuan couldn't stand this awkwardness any longer and asked directly, do you have goat milk powder? I can buy it. Ah, I see pet hair on your clothes. It looks like puppy fur. If possible, I'd like to exchange some goat milk powder for my cat. Xia Nuan suddenly realized, I just hugged Da Huang and my clothes inevitably got some dog hair on them. This man is really observant and has a keen eye. He was even able to tell that it was the fur of a baby cub. The 2 puppies at home are indeed not yet fully weaned. When preparing supplies, Xia Nuan also sold pet supplies and stocked up on 10 large boxes of goat milk powder. It's enough for the 2 puppies, and there will be some left over to be used as treats for the dogs later. Exchanging is fine, but buying is unnecessary. I'm not short of money. The man thought for a moment, then groped in his jacket pocket and pulled out a multi-purpose military knife. Xia Nuan could tell at a glance that it was a good product. This thing was completely different from the multifunctional knives available on the market. They were worlds apart. This is good stuff. Are you sure you want to trade this for me? This knife is worth far more than 2 bags of goat milk powder. Xia Nuan didn't want to refuse the deal, but she was also afraid that the man would change his mind later, causing unnecessary trouble. My cat is sick and can only eat liquid food now. It's very important to me, so it's all worth it. The man spoke very sincerely, and after thinking carefully for a moment, Xia Nuan still asked, what illness does your kitten have? It's vomiting and has diarrhea, and it still has a fever. I'm thinking of giving it some fever-reducing medicine to see if that helps. You probably have a cold. Wait a moment, I'll go get you some goat milk powder. Xia Nuan asked casually, mainly because she felt guilty about exchanging 2 bags of goat milk powder for such a good knife. In case they change their minds someday, it's completely unnecessary to make enemies over a knife. Xia Nuan found in her space all the commonly used medicines she had prepared for her 2 children. She took out medicines specifically for treating vomiting, diarrhea, and fever, packed a large bag of snacks, and also picked up 3 bags of goat milk powder. With so much stuff, even if this man goes back on his word later, she can confidently say that she has a clear conscience. Back downstairs, Xia Mu and the man were in an awkward atmosphere, each standing in a corner, neither of them speaking. Xia Nuan handed over the bag she was carrying and smiled gently. I packed some pet medication, some treats, and the goat milk powder you need. I have a dog, so I don't have cat food, which is why I had to trade these things for you. The man initially declined, but then took the bag, said thank you in a low voice, handed the knife to Xia Mu, and turned to leave around the corner. The conversation with the downstairs neighbor was just a minor incident. The real trouble was yet to come. The typhoon lasted all night and morning, with fierce winds raging and the outside world in complete disarray. But that's not the worst part. What's truly terrifying is that the rain didn't stop. In fact, it intensified. In just 12 hours, the rainwater had already flooded the 2nd floor, and the low-rise houses outside were barely visible. All the ruins left by the storm were hidden in the murky water. The city turned into a vast ocean, and the property management company kept coordinating with residents on each floor, hoping that the upper-floor residents would accept the lower-floor residents. The group chat was filled with arguments, and no one wanted to accept strangers into their homes. Even some kind-hearted people gave up the idea after seeing the resentful residents who were not accepted cursing and swearing in the group. Fortunately, the internet and electricity remained intact, allowing people to post requests for help online and make emergency calls. Whether or not anyone responds, or whether or not the problem can be resolved, it is still a glimmer of hope. Xia Nuan scrolled through the news on her phone, and various natural disaster-related entries kept popping up. Their city is not the only one being battered by the storm. The whole world is being forced to bear the brunt of this typhoon in turn, one after another. A powerful typhoon is approaching, and it has been named breaking waves. According to experts' calculated trajectory, typhoon breaking waves will make landfall in City S next. Sea levels are dropping, and torrential rains are hitting various regions. Residents are urged to remain calm and stay at home while awaiting rescue. Simple tips for surviving heavy rain, learn them and you can use them immediately. All sorts of random push notifications are about this natural disaster, and under every news article you can see requests for help. My mom was cut by a shard of glass. Although we got her to the hospital in time, there were no beds available. The doctor prescribed medication and told us to go home, but the area outside is now completely flooded. How can we get back? I used to live on the first floor, but now I've moved to the third floor hallway. It's cold and I'm hungry. I left in such a hurry that I only took important valuables with me. I tried to buy something from my neighbors, but they've closed their doors several times. Is this the end of the world? Under normal circumstances, how could there be a natural disaster this large and affecting the entire world? Don't panic. Rest assured, the authorities will not abandon any of us. This natural disaster is only temporary. We will definitely overcome this difficult time. Some have already made doomsday predictions, while others remain optimistic, willing to trust the authorities and believe that natural disasters will eventually pass and cities can be rebuilt. Xia Nuan was once one of those people who naively hoped for a miracle, but she gradually realized that relying on herself was better than relying on anyone else. Rather than waiting for official rescue, she decided to fight for her own survival. In my past life, the power and internet suddenly went out 3 days after a typhoon hit. These messages will likely disappear within 3 days. While the internet was still working, Xia Nuan quickly downloaded a lot of useful information and transferred it all to her USB drive. Keep it for later review. Having more survival skills means having more security in your life. I was downloading something online when another message popped up in the property management group chat. This time it wasn't a mention of everyone, but specifically a mention of her. 1208, 1217. After receiving the text message notification yesterday, we didn't have time to go out to buy anything and now we have no vegetables at home. I saw that you bought a lot yesterday, could you sell me some? 1205, really. I didn't go out to buy anything yesterday either and I was wondering what to eat today. 1208, really, I ran into the couple from 1217 in the elevator yesterday. They were carrying a lot of bags and packages including meat, vegetables, eggs, fruit, and fast food. 1210, that's great, I don't have any fresh ingredients at home either. 1217, I'll pay 10 times the price for some of your fresh vegetables. I don't want the bad ones though. Before Xia Nuan could say a word, the people in the group started discussing how their family had bought enough supplies yesterday. They had already planned out what they wanted to buy, and no one cared whether Xia Nuan's family was selling or not. In particular, some of them were arrogant and bossy, as if buying vegetables from their store was a huge bargain for them, and they were very picky. Xia Nuan frowned more and more as she looked at it. This neighborhood is great in every way, except there are too many wealthy people with extremely picky lifestyles. In upscale neighborhoods, residents are not short of money. They hire housekeepers to go out and buy fresh food every day. Money gives them so many conveniences that they never feel there is any problem with not having supplies at home. Anyway, whatever we need or lack, we can just buy it. But I never thought there would be times when money couldn't solve the problem. 1217, no, we're keeping our vegetables for ourselves, we won't sell them no matter the price. Xia Nuan answered decisively. The 8th floor resident who had initially asked to buy their things was the quickest to respond and had the strongest reaction. 1208, why won't you sell? I've already asked the property management. There are only 4 people in your family. Yesterday in the elevator you bought so much stuff enough to last half a month. What's wrong with sharing some with us? It's not like we're not paying. 1217, you said it yourself, we only have enough food for half a month. Who knows when this rain will stop? If it rains for half a month straight, we'll run out of food and have to ask you for more. 1208, why are you so worried? With rain this heavy, how could it possibly last half a month? It'll only last 3 to 5 days at most. Why don't you take out some food and sell it? You can make money and it'll help me too, why not? 1217, I said no and that's final. No matter how much you plead, it won't change anything. If you're hungry, figure it out yourself. Yesterday, the whole city received a typhoon warning. If you didn't go out to buy things, who can you blame? Xia Nuan was too lazy to deal with such an unreasonable person, so she turned off her phone and simply ignored her. Unexpectedly, the tenant on the 8th floor took the initiative to come to the door, acting unreasonably. When there was a knock on the door, they thought Lu Xiaozhao had come back again. The first thing you see when you open the door is a middle-aged woman dressed in designer brands from head to toe, with an extremely extravagant outfit. Standing next to her was a man, refined and of above-average appearance. "Aren't you a resident of the 8th floor? What are you doing here?" Xia Zhiguo and Fu Ying were the ones who went to purchase supplies yesterday. When they returned, they ran into a resident from that floor in the elevator. You can tell which floor someone lives on by looking at the floor button they pressed. At the time, only Xia Zhiguo and his wife and this woman were in the elevator, so they all left a deep impression on each other. Fu Ying recognized the other person, but she wasn't in the property management group and didn't know that Xia Nuan had had a disagreement with them in the group before, so her attitude was still relatively friendly. But the residents on the 8th floor had a different attitude. Thinking they were tough in the group chat but cowardly enough to be too quiet to speak in person, he reached out to push Fu Ying. "Weren't you quite assertive in the group chat just now? What kind of attitude is that? I just wanted to buy some groceries from your company, and you guys were making sarcastic remarks about me, saying I deserved it. Hey, why don't you just talk and start hitting me?" When Xia Zhiguo entered the 8th floor apartment and tried to push Fu Ying, he rushed forward and stood in front of his wife. Upon seeing the tall and imposing Xia Zhiguo, the woman on the 8th floor instantly lost much of her momentum. But she didn't forget the purpose of her visit, and even though she was somewhat intimidated by Xia Zhiguo's appearance, she still refused to leave. "Who in your family sent that message in the group chat just now? I saw you came back from the supermarket yesterday with a lot of stuff, so I thought I'd buy you some food. I had a meeting at work yesterday, and I got home late, so I didn't have time to prepare anything. I tried to reason with you nicely, but you sent me messages mocking me saying I deserved it. I'm not an unreasonable person, so let's just consider this matter of you sharing some vegetables with me. We'll see each other often in the future, and I won't make things difficult for you. You've got quite the nerve, and your tone is equally arrogant. At your age, you're resorting to moral blackmail, coercion, and unreasonable arguments even when you're in the wrong. Don't you know you're setting a good example for your son, bringing him here like this? I feel embarrassed for you." Xia Nuan also came out, arms crossed, her attitude showing no sign of compromise. Behind her was Xia Mu, who peeked out with an equally unfriendly gaze. The woman on the 8th floor turned pale and then flushed, stammering for a while before suddenly shouting, "What kind of eyes do you have? This is my husband, we don't have children yet, and even if we did, how I raise my son is none of your business." The atmosphere fell silent instantly. Xia Nuan and her family of 4 kept glancing between the woman and the young man behind her. There was surprise, doubt, disbelief, and something intriguing. The young man, who hadn't uttered a word the whole time, blushed under her gaze and reached out to tug at the woman's sleeve, as if reminding her to leave quickly. "Then you two are truly in love." Xia Mayu made a sarcastic remark, her mocking gaze adding to the overall sarcasm. "My husband and I are truly in love, do you need to tell me that?" The woman rolled her eyes, her words tinged with a hint of pride. You can tell she's really happy with her current husband. However, it seems anyone with eyes can tell what the other party is thinking. "All right, I already told you not to come and cause trouble. There's food at home, I'll make you something to tide you over for a couple of days. Let's go back quickly." The young man was so embarrassed he wanted to disappear into the ground. This time he stopped pretending and grabbed the woman's wrist, trying to leave. But the woman on the 8th floor wasn't going to let it go so easily. She shook off his hand and accused him, "Who are you on? The food in the fridge has been sitting there for days. Is it still edible?" "I don't care, eating that stuff is bad for my skin. I don't want it, I want fresh food. They clearly have so much, why can't they sell it to me? It's not like I'm not paying. This isn't about who's on your side. Whether they sell or not is their prerogative. This is a residence, not a supermarket. The food in the fridge has only been there for a week and it's been kept in the freezer the whole time. There's no problem. I'll cook you some dumplings when we get back. Let's not make a fuss." The man patiently coaxed and persuaded her, but the woman turned a deaf ear. The two of them actually started arguing and pulling at each other right in front of Xia Nuan's house. After arguing for a while, the young man finally lost his temper and said with a dark face, "Fine, if you want to stay here then stay. I'm leaving." The young man turned and left, while the woman on the 8th floor turned and glared fiercely at Xia Nuan and the others, her eyes looking as if she wanted to devour them. "It's all your fault. You made my husband angry with me. My husband and I are usually so close. If it weren't for you, we wouldn't have argued, And that be asterisk asterisk ch, you just smiled at my husband. Were you trying to seduce him? The woman pointed at Xia Nuan. Her mental state was hard to understand. Can't you tell I'm being sarcastic? Xia Nuan's lips twitched. She hadn't expected that a mentally ill person like the one on the 8th floor would live in this building. Was she smiling? If mockery counts as laughter, then so be it. It's you. I've seen plenty of women like you. That smile of yours, you're definitely trying to seduce him. My husband is so outstanding, countless women would throw themselves at him, but he only loves me. Forget about it. Even seasoned romantics find it unlucky to be associated with it. Xia Nuan didn't want to waste any more words with this woman, so she turned around and went back to her room, holding the compound bow that she always kept by her bedside. When she went out again, she stood at the farthest point in the living room, drew back the bowstring, and pointed directly at the door. Mom and Dad, brother, please move aside. Xia Mu pulled his parents aside to make way for them. As soon as the woman came into view, Xia Nuan immediately released the rope. The arrow, once released, traveled at incredible speed, whistling through the air. Ah! The woman screamed and knelt down in fright. A bloody streak appeared on her cheek and blood dripped down. The arrow shot at her embedded itself straight into the wall behind her. It gradually became embedded inside, and spiderweb-like cracks spread out around it, showing how great the force was. Are you crazy? How dare you treat me like this? She had seen women who would resort to violence at the slightest disagreement, but she had never seen anyone like Xia Nuan who would threaten to kill at the slightest provocation. As the arrow drew near, the fear and shadow of death enveloped her, and she almost wet herself in terror. Xia Nuan slowly lowered her hand, her expression indifferent. If you dare cause trouble for my family again, I'll shoot your head off. Get lost. The woman wanted to say something, but seeing Xia Nuan raise the compound bow again, she finally shut up in fear and scrambled away from the 17th floor. Wow, that's so cool. You're so awesome, little sister. How do you play with this? Can you teach me? Xia Mu was already stunned by his sister's swift and decisive attack. His eyes sparkled as if they held the light of countless stars. None of his family members understood. He was so envious he was practically drooling. If you want to learn, I'll definitely teach you, as long as you don't think I'm going too far. Xia Nuan was used to quick and decisive battles, and she hadn't thought much about it when she made her move. But now that there are no outsiders around, I suddenly feel like I'm being a bit fierce. Looking at the stunned expressions on his family's faces, he wondered if he had frightened them. After returning home, she pretended to be very well behaved in order to leave a good impression on her family. I couldn't resist for a moment. How could that be? Our darling is always right. Don't worry, even if you cause trouble, your parents will cover for you. Besides, it was that woman's fault to begin with trespassing. She can fight back legally without limit. She doesn't even know what kind of person she's with. She thinks every woman in the world likes her boyfriend. It's disgusting. And she even said our darling was seducing her boyfriend. Fu Ying was the first to react, soothing Xia Nuan's emotions. Her shared sense of righteous indignation amused Xia Nuan. Your mother is right, that person was just causing trouble. Didn't they see what the weather was like outside? Buying groceries is so difficult, and they even tried to force us to buy from them. If we sell to them now and the rain doesn't stop, they'll come back. If we don't sell to them then, they'll probably cause even more trouble. Consider this a lesson to them so they won't keep bothering us in the future. Xia Zhiguo echoed this, providing a plausible excuse for Xia Nuan's earlier actions. Relieved, Xia Nuan pursed her lips, looking quiet and well-behaved, as harmless as a little rabbit. Everyone in the Xia family instantly forgot how sharp and dashing Xia Nuan had looked just moments before, raising her bow and arrow. All I can think about is how cute it is. Quent. Xia Nuan constantly monitors various online trends and opinions. This life has changed drastically from her previous one, and she has no choice but to deal with the path that has long since deviated in this way. Perhaps yesterday's deterrent had an effect, because no one bothered them today asking to buy groceries or anything like that. As long as Xia Nuan doesn't suggest going outside, everyone else tacitly chooses to stay indoors. Life isn't too boring now that we still have the internet. At least you can still watch short videos and TV series. Two little puppies are growing up healthily, a picture of peaceful and idyllic life. Xia Nuan browsed the official news for a while but found nothing interesting, so she turned to studying the machine tool's user manual. This stuff is so difficult to study. Without relevant professional knowledge, learning it from the basics feels like reading a book written in a foreign language. Xia Nuan wasn't particularly good at academics. It seemed like all her talent was in archery. The more I looked at it, the more my head ached. I grabbed my hair and messed it up like a bird's nest. This is so hard, why is it so difficult? Xia Nuan couldn't help but scream, collapsing onto the table and rolling around in a frenzy. Xia Mu, who happened to be bringing her milk, saw her half-dead state, gently put down the water glass, ruffled her messy hair even more, and asked with a smile, "What's wrong? What's bothering you like this?" "It's too difficult. I want to learn this, but I can't understand it at all." Xia Nuan pointed to the book lying beneath her. Xia Mu picked it up curiously and glanced at it. He noticed it was a basic tutorial on CNC machine tools and asked, puzzled, "Why did you decide to read this kind of book?" "I want to learn. I want to create something myself." Xia Nuan didn't directly say that she wanted to make guns and cannons herself. "It's not that I can't say it, it's that I'm embarrassed. If you can't even understand the most basic instruction, how can you talk about building guns and cannons? It's utterly laughable." She has her pride too. "But we don't have one at home, so there's no use in you learning it. I ordered something online a while ago and my parents received the package. It's currently stored in my online storage." Xia Nuan smiled shyly, revealing two small tiger teeth. "You bought it? If so, just tell me what you want and I'll make it for you. Brother, you can do this too." During this period, Xia Nuan felt that apart from being handsome, her brother Xia Mu didn't seem to have anything special about him. At most, he seems a bit pretentious, narcissistic, and doesn't speak properly. On the plus side, she's protective of her own and quite diligent. She thought her brother was just an ordinary, good-looking young man, but I never expected him to know something so difficult. This was a truly unexpected and delightful surprise. "Of course I can. Tell me what you want to make and I can make it for you with the highest quality craftsmanship." Xia Mu arrogantly raised his chin, showing no embarrassment whatsoever in praising himself. He's still that narcissistic older brother after all. "Can I have a gun?" Xia Nuan asked cautiously and tentatively. "You mean a toy gun?" Xia Mu couldn't believe his ears, let alone his mind. No law-abiding citizen would openly suggest playing with real guns and ammunition, right? Although he has this plan, it's still just a plan for now. "No, it's the kind that actually goes bu. Xia Nuan is cute and well-behaved. JPG, real guns and ammunition. Yes, it's real guns and ammunition." Sometimes Xia Mu really wanted to open up his younger sister's head and see what was inside. She looks like a very delicate little girl, but she's really brave. "We can do it, but we can't do it now. If we get reported, we'll be in big trouble." Xia Mu imitated the way the arrest vehicle honked its horn, making a particularly exaggerated expression. Xia Nuan thought about it and realized it made sense. If the official decision hadn't changed, then when the water and power were cut off in 3 days, an emergency plan would be announced, the reserve grain would be sold publicly, and there would be live ammunition on guard. If any petty theft or robbery occurred, people would be arrested to maintain order. Anyone caught manufacturing firearms without authorization will be dragged out and beheaded. To be on the safe side, it's best to remain inactive for now. Currently, there's a compound bow. One weapon like that is enough. A weapon for self-defense for family members, such as an axe or a chainsaw, would be suitable. She has them all in her online space. Although we can't manufacture guns yet, we can make you some small gadgets. Would you like to bring out your machine tool so I can take a look? It's a bit big, it won't fit in my room. Why don't we put it in the living room? As Xia Nuan spoke, she stood up, walked to the living room and took out the machine tool. The original furniture had been placed near the windowsill, leaving a large empty space in the middle. A machine tool was pulled out and completely filled the living room. Fortunately, the apartment they rented was a large, single-level unit with a very spacious living room in the middle. In their previous small home, there wouldn't have been enough room for all of this. Xia Nuan threw all the steel she had taken out, along with its various styles, into the living room. She greeted her brother and then slipped into the space. Continue to upgrade the space. After unlocking 2 more warehouses, she'll go out and do some free shopping. The space has now reached level 6. Unlock 6 warehouses, 2 cowsheds, and 30 farmlands. Because the space didn't provide upgrade notifications or previews, each upgrade felt like opening a blind box for Xia Nuan. She had no idea what surprises the space would bring her. After working hard for half an hour, I finally reached level 7 in the game. Opening the control panel, besides the newly unlocked chicken coop, there was also a neighbor icon. Xia Nuan blinked, looking confused. Does the space have neighbors? Does that mean there are multiple such spaces? Does that mean she can't just run into other people's spaces and steal their crops like in those old farm games? Let's put the chicken coop thing aside for now. I reckon it'll look pretty much like a cowshed. It'll just be a place to raise chickens. Xia Nuan was more interested in her neighbors at this time, but it turned out she was overthinking it. There weren't any other such spaces at all. Clicking on Neighborhood displays a prompt to add a neighbor. Add neighbor. You can add 1 neighbor at your current level. A neighbor key costs 1,000 gold coins. After purchasing it from the shop, you can bind it to a neighbor using the same method as binding a space. Following the clues, Xia Nuan found a gleaming golden key in the mall. 1,000 gold coins was all she had. I just leveled up and I can unlock another warehouse. I still don't know what this neighbor is. However, based on the wording alone, it seems that after purchasing a key and binding it to someone else, the space can be used by another person. If that's really the case, then it would undoubtedly be a huge surprise for Xia Nuan. Xia Nuan gritted her teeth, determined to give the new feature a try, and spent all her gold coins to buy a key. Anyway, the cowshed will produce something every day, and the milk sold can be exchanged for gold coins. If you work hard and plant the land, you can earn it back quickly. A golden, antique-looking key appeared in my hand, much like the kind of key used to open a treasure vault in a medieval movie. It was so beautiful that it wouldn't be an exaggeration to display it as a work of art. Xia Nuan couldn't wait to leave the space and saw her brother bent over, fiddling with something in front of the machine tool. "Brother, this is for you." Xia Nuan's voice was filled with joy, her happiness overflowing. Xia Mu turned around, and no one knew how he had done it, but in just a short while his face was covered in a mess of colors, making him look particularly comical. "What's wrong? Why are you so happy?" "A new neighbor feature has been added to my space. This is the neighbor key I bought. Quickly add a drop of blood to it so I can see what's going on." Xia Nuan shoved the key into her brother's hand. Xia Mu didn't ask any questions. He ran around looking for the key, searching for something that would make him bleed. "Sis, do you have a needle? All we have in the kitchen is a cleaver. I can't exactly use a cleaver to cut meat, can I?" Xia Mu looked troubled. Xia Nuan suddenly realized and quickly took out a fruit knife from her spatial storage. While grabbing her brother, she mercilessly slashed his finger. "Ouch, it hurts." Xia Mu's exaggerated hissing and shouting continued, but Xia Nuan remained completely unaffected, her expression unchanged. Undoubtedly a cold-blooded female assassin. When the blood dripped onto the key, like the bracelet before, emitted a strong light. Then, in the blink of an eye, Xia Mu disappeared from the spot. "Have we already entered the space?" Xia Nuan used her mind to check the space, and a two-story hut appeared out of thin air in what was originally an empty lawn. The cottage looked very simple, but all that could be seen was its wooden exterior, nothing more. Xia Nuan could previously see the entire space. Whether it was the cowshed, the fields, or the warehouse, nothing escaped her eyes. But the appearance of the cabin is like opening up a new private domain, which even the owner of the space cannot glimpse. The next moment, Xia Mu reappeared in the living room. His expression was blank, as if he hadn't yet recovered from the immense surprise. A wooden stool appeared in his hand. The stool was very simple in design and even a little rough. Xia Mu wobbled on the stool, somewhat dazed, and said, "Little sister, I just wandered into a weird place. It was completely empty, like one of those makeshift wooden huts where Bald Kiang lives. But I saw a huge field outside the window and several warehouses and houses. That's my space. I knew it wouldn't have useless features. The neighbor feature that came out after the upgrade, I thought it meant other people had spaces too and I could steal their crops. But then I saw the explanation that each new neighbor requires 1,000 gold coins, so I knew it wasn't for that. I bought you a key to try it out, and sure enough, it granted you access. You can enter the space now." If the results of the experiment satisfy Xia Nuan, she will not lose a single gold coin and may even have made a profit. If family members have the right to use the space, then it's feasible to temporarily seek refuge in the space should any danger arise in the future. "Brother, have you tried opening the door and going outside for a walk? See if you can use the things and functions in this space." Xia Nuan asked impatiently, but Xia Mu shook his head. "No, my movement is limited to my room. There's a piece of land outside that I can use where I can grow vegetables and flowers. However, I'll have to buy the seeds from you and I can also sell them, but that also requires you. After you give me the money, I can upgrade the cabin. You're essentially the owner of the space, while I'm more like a temporary resident. Most importantly, I'm not always there. I was forcibly kicked out just now, and I was only there for less than 5 minutes. As soon as I went in, the big clock upstairs started a countdown, and I don't know how to increase it to extend my time in the space. The neighbor function isn't as free as one might imagine. Xia Mu's time spent in the space is limited. If there's an emergency, she can stay there for a short while, but staying longer is not an option. If you can unlock one neighbor, then you can unlock a second and a third. There is no limit to the number of keys that can be purchased. In principle, as long as Xia Nuan has enough money, she can buy an unlimited number of keys and add an unlimited number of neighbors. The key opens up the space, which could very well form a small world or a small town. The development of the space is becoming more and more interesting, and Xia Nuan can't help but look forward to it. What will it be like when it reaches the highest level of space? It's okay, we'll find a way by exploring slowly. I'll look into it later and see how we can increase your playtime. Xia Nuan raised her hand and patted Xia Mu's shoulder. Her brother was quite tall, so it was a little difficult for her to pat him. When it was time for dinner, Fu Ying prepared a large table full of delicious food. Sweet and sour crucian carp, braised chicken with mushrooms, scrambled eggs with persimmons, spicy rabbit head. 8 dishes and 1 soup featuring both northern and southern Huxia cuisines. Nuan, I didn't know what your taste was like, so I made a little bit of everything. Anyway, I was just lazing around at home, so I figured I had some time to cook something nice for you. Fu Ying took off her apron and beckoned Xia Nuan to come and eat. Looking at the table full of delicious-looking dishes, Xia Nuan couldn't help but ask curiously, "Mom, were you a chef before?" "No, your mother used to be a teacher, she taught chemistry." Xia Zhiguo chuckled and helped answer. "That mom is amazing." Xia Nuan gave Fu Ying a thumbs up in praise, making her beam with joy. The family sat down at the table for a meal, enjoying a harmonious atmosphere while the residents downstairs were not so peaceful. Some families with empty refrigerators, after enduring a day and a night of hunger, finally broke down emotionally and started cursing in the group chat. The property management group, which had previously quieted down, is now erupting with messages even more frequently, as if dealing with a backlash. However, after a short while, most of them, whether they were throwing a tantrum or trying to persuade others, disappeared. Those who disappeared were all residents of Building 12. Xia Nuan suddenly received a message from 1216. 1216, image. 1216, the residents of this building have created a new group chat. This is their chat history, you should be careful. Xia Nuan opened the picture sent by 1216. It was a long image of the chat interface. The group name is very simple, Building 12. There are only 16 people in the group, which means that apart from the residents on the 17th floor, each of the other households sent one person to join the group chat. The creation time is right when they're not complaining. The group admin is that woman on the 8th floor. The first message she sent was directed at their family. 1208, I'm a resident on the 8th floor. As I mentioned before, the residents on the 17th floor bought a lot of things from the supermarket before the typhoon. Last time I asked them to sell me some, but they not only refused, but the young woman in that apartment even tried to seduce my husband, causing him to ignore me for a day. Now most of us are starving and they have so much food but won't sell me anything. They're so selfish. Let's discuss how to get them to share some with us. 1205, if they don't want to sell, there's nothing we can do. It's a matter of whether they want to buy or sell. 1210, there's absolutely no food in my fridge. I've been starving all day. There are elderly people and children at home. I'm a grown man, it's okay if I go hungry, but my wife, children, and elderly relatives can't take it. The person on the 8th floor is right, the person on the 17th floor is selfish. At this time, everyone is stuck at home. They have plenty of food, what's wrong with selling us some? It's not like they won't pay. 1208, yeah, that's what I said too, but they insisted on being overly worried, saying things like, what if this rain doesn't stop for half a month? How can such heavy rain not stop for half a month? If it rains for half a month straight, the city will turn into a sea. 1210, they're just spreading alarmist rumors. If they really didn't listen for that long, the authorities would definitely send people to rescue us, or like during the previous lockdown, they would send volunteers to help us buy groceries and food. How could they not care? Then every household would be able to buy new food. Asking them to sell a little now is just a temporary measure. 1202, you guys are all okay, at least you have a place to stay. My house is completely flooded and I'm just shivering in the hallway. Forget about food, I don't even have a warm blanket. If they sold things on the 17th floor, I definitely would have bought some. The rest of the chat logs all revolved around how to deal with their family. At first, everyone was quite restrained in their speech, and they discussed in a polite manner how to persuade their family. However, under the constant rebuttals and various attempts to sow discord from the residents on the 8th floor, they came to believe that Xia Nuan's family was completely unyielding and began to resort to all sorts of underhanded tactics. It's truly a case of sitting at home and disaster strikes from the sky. Xia Nuan looked at the chat history in the group, and her anger grew stronger with each reading. The 8th and 10th floors, as well as the 1st, 2nd, and 3rd floors below, were the most vocal in their complaints. Xia Nuan remembered these people. Although she had never met any of them except for those on the 8th floor, the feud between them had started when they began discussing how to deal with the people on the 17th floor. But now is not the time to deal with them. If we take action now, it might implicate the well-meaning person on the 16th floor who tipped us off. Xia Nuan thanked the resident on the 16th floor, took out some pet medications and canned treats from her storage space, and went out to knock on the door of the 16th floor apartment. The man opened the door. Unlike last time when he was fully dressed, this time he was only wearing a set of home pajamas and his hair was not fully combed up, but was casually disheveled, which softened his features and made him look less cold and hard. "What's up?" The man was sparing with his words, his cold tone devoid of any emotion. "Here, consider this a reward for sending me a message." After Xia Nuan finished speaking, she placed the entire bag of items at his feet, not giving him a chance to refuse, and ran upstairs. Watching the girl's departing figure and glancing at the bag full of pet supplies, the man's lips curled up slightly. He bent down to pick them up and closed the door. Meow 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 tilde. A kitten darted out from the shadows, seemingly having already sensed that its favorite can of food was in the plastic bag, and rubbed against the man's trouser leg, whining affectionately. "You've just recovered from your illness, so you can't eat just anything. Last time you ate the wrong thing and got diarrhea, vomiting, and a fever. Take your medicine for a couple more days and wait until you're fully recovered before eating canned food." The man crouched down and stroked the cat's head. The fierce-looking kitten squinted its eyes and purred contentedly. After returning home, Xia Nuan prepared to continue her arduous journey in the space, but before she could even get back to her room, the lights in the living room suddenly went out. Immediately afterwards, a notification popped up on my phone. "Urgent message. Due to the typhoon, the power generation system has been damaged and power cannot be restored temporarily. However, residents should not panic." The power went out, and the rest of the message was just some words of reassurance to the residents. Xia Nuan didn't want to read a single word of it. There is no possibility of power being restored after a power outage. It was pouring rain outside, and no worker could withstand such pressure to repair the power system. It's not a question of courage, but a question of whether it's possible to do it. Xia Nuan let out a long sigh. "It's as if the arrival of the apocalypse in my life has been accelerated, and I don't know where things went wrong. Mom, I've put everything from the fridge into my spatial storage except for ingredients for tomorrow's breakfast. Let's go out tomorrow." The time Xia Nuan had been waiting for had arrived. The power system was destroyed, which also destroyed all the surveillance cameras on the streets. Going out for free shopping at this time will prevent you from getting caught. This is why she preferred to stay home and deal with these eccentric neighbors rather than go out. After telling her mother, Xia Nuan hurried back to continue working on the space upgrade. "In any case, we must build 2 more warehouse floors tonight." So far, each upgrade allows the addition of 1 warehouse. She plans to go to the docks tomorrow. This is a coastal city with all kinds of cargo ships docked at the pier. The contents of the ship's holds are not flooded by typhoons and heavy rains. Even the warehouses on the shore that have been flooded may contain unexpected surprises. So no matter what, Xia Nuan was determined to visit the pier. That was a resource farming outpost she used frequently in her past life. She found quite a few useful things there. After working through the night, the space has finally leveled up 2 more times. They developed 10 farmlands, 2 warehouses, and 2 chicken coops. Just as she had imagined, the chicken coop was similar to a cowshed, with fully automated management. All she had to do was feed and water them, and the harvested eggs were automatically stored in the warehouse. When the chickens reached the end of their lifespan, they were automatically slaughtered. In addition, the space also unlocks a feed mill, so Xia Nuan will be able to be self-sufficient in animal husbandry in the future. Despite the fact that the internet was still working after the power outage and the reassuring official statements, most people were still gripped by panic. People had never experienced such a natural disaster before and were momentarily at a loss, having no idea where to go or what to do. Those with food reserves at home are still holding onto some hope, and they are patiently waiting for rescue. But those without food reserves are already turning into ravenous wolves after 2 days of hunger. If they still have no food by the 3rd day, chaos will likely break out in the building. The sky outside was always overcast, and the rain was pouring down. The amount of water drained out was always less than the amount of rainwater that fell. Fortunately, the drainage system wasn't entirely useless. On the 3rd day of the typhoon, the water level didn't rise rapidly and remained just above the 3rd floor. The elevator is out of service. You must walk up and down the stairs. At 6:30 in the morning, Xia Nuan and her brother took advantage of the fact that most people were still asleep and dragged their kayak downstairs. The 2 deliberately slowed their pace, trying not to disturb anyone. But when we got to the 4th floor, we could still see 3 flooded houses downstairs. One family of four, one couple and one man living alone. They huddled together in a corner of the emergency exit, seeking warmth from one another. The only items they carried with them were electronic devices and various gold and silver jewelry and other valuables. The only thing the family of four brought was a thin blanket. Xia Nuan and her companion's movement as they went downstairs alerted 3 households. Startled awake, he opened his eyes and saw Xia Nuan and the other person. He was confused for a moment, but his eyes lit up when he saw the kayak they were carrying. "Which floor do you live on? Are you going out? Could you give me a ride?" The man who lived alone stood up. His suit was filthy and disheveled, his hair was messy, and his beard was sticking out, making him look like a homeless person. Although they were both in the same boat, the other 2 families living in the emergency exit had family members with them, while he could only huddle alone in a corner, clearly feeling somewhat ostracized. "No." Xia Nuan cautiously took a step back, distancing herself from the man and watching his every move. "Your kayak has so much space, taking me along wouldn't be a problem. I can pay for the trip, you just need to take me to the East District." The man scratched his head in frustration. He desperately wanted to escape this place. Unable to return home, they could only suffer from hunger and cold in the dark and damp corridors. The other 2 families huddled together, and he couldn't sleep well every night, fearing that his valuables would be stolen. "I'm not going." Xia Nuan responded with 2 cold words, devoid of any emotion, her rejection particularly crisp and decisive, instantly igniting the man's anger. People are often irritable when they're hungry. The man suddenly ripped off his glasses, slammed them to the ground, and roared furiously, "How can you be like this? I already said you just need to take me to the East District. I didn't ask you to do anything particularly difficult. I'll pay you 10,000, 20,000, if not 100,000. We're not going to the East District. If we take you on a roundabout route and something happens along the way, we can't afford the responsibility. The weather is terrible, it's raining and windy. The boat could capsize in the blink of an eye. If you're not afraid of drowning, you can just find a basin and row to the East District yourself." Xia Nuan no longer wanted to deal with men, and her every word and action was extremely cold and inhumane. Pulling the kayak along, they headed towards the 4th-floor window. Seeing them about to leave, the man rushed forward and grabbed the stern of the kayak, pulling and shouting, "There's a boat here. Someone's taking a boat out. Look everyone, there's someone in a boat here." His shouts were so loud they almost echoed throughout the entire emergency exit. At least residents below the 11th floor should have been able to faintly hear his shouts. The sound is clearest a few floors up. The residents who were still asleep were awakened by his loud noise and opened their doors to see what was going on. Then I heard him repeating over and over again that there were people and a boat here. Roll. Xia Nuan turned around and kicked the man in the stomach with great force, sending him flying a meter away. The man staggered, barely managing to regain his balance, his eyes bloodshot, and still lunged forward recklessly. "I don't care. If you're not taking me with you today, then you're not leaving either. I want to see if other families will let you go once they know you don't have a boat." Human nature can never withstand a test, especially in the face of major disasters. The man was also a seasoned veteran who had been navigating society for many years. He knew that at this point, threats were far more effective than yielding. Everyone was trapped at home and unable to go out. Many families had been starving for a long time. They were all eager to go out and see the world, either to seek refuge with relatives or to find a place where they could buy food. However, few households keep kayaks at home, so even if they wanted to go out, they lacked a means of transportation. The kayak that Xia Nuan brought out, which could easily carry 5 people, was enough to make people fight tooth and nail for it. Since Xia Nuan couldn't be swayed by money, the man hoped someone would snatch the kayak from her, and then he would use the same method of throwing money at someone else to seek help. Someone will definitely try to steal it. As the man predicted, he was right. His shouting attracted a lot of people, and his almost frantic pulling made it impossible for Xia Nuan and Xia Mu to break free for a while. The emergency exit on the 4th floor was quickly blocked. Most people's eyes lit up when they saw the kayaks, and they all asked the kayaks to bring back something or take them with them. "Oh, there's a boat. If you're going out by boat, could you bring us some food back?" "Any kind of food is fine with us, we're not picky." "Where are you going? Could you take me with you? My parents live in the West End. You'll definitely get a good reward if you take me there. My windows leak both air and water. Could you please bring back some cling film for me when you go out?" Xia Nuan was getting a headache from the noisy chatter around her. When the residents of the 8th floor who had rushed down from the crowd saw that the people on the boat were Xia Nuan and her group, they immediately put their hands on their hips and shouted, "Those 2 heartless bastards! They're the residents on the 17th floor." Begging them is useless. There's not a single good person in that family. They have extra food, but they won't share even a tiny bit with anyone else. They'd rather let it rot and stink than share with the neighbors. Even their dog is eating meat, while we don't even have a single vegetable leaf left. When I went to see them yesterday, this young girl was trying to seduce my husband. I suspect she's a serial mistress. She tries to seduce any married man. Judging by their cheap clothes, they're obviously not rich. I wonder where they got the money to live in this neighborhood. Please, everyone, don't let them go. Don't beg them, just seize their kayak. We can all use it. If this girl calls the police, I'll cover the compensation. None of you will be responsible. With someone willing to take the blame and even pay for it, those who were already somewhat restless couldn't resist any longer. Since the typhoon, they have made countless calls for help. Whether it's an ambulance, a fire department, or a police report, after receiving the call and understanding the situation, there's never any further response. They kept a close eye on online developments and were well aware that the disaster had swept across the globe, and that local police resources were insufficient to address every need and fulfill everyone's request for help. Rather than staying at home starving, we might as well seize the ship. Anyway, the woman on the 8th floor said she'd take the blame if anything happened. Even if the woman betrays them in the end, it doesn't matter. There are too many of them, and the kayak itself isn't that valuable. Each family can contribute a little money to split the compensation. This level of conflict is just a civil dispute. They have plenty of money. Their priority right now is emergency response. Young lady, how much did you pay for this kayak? I'll pay 3 times that amount and you can give it to us as public property. We won't stop you from using it whenever you want, but if you continue to be so selfish, don't blame us for being impolite. A middle-aged man stepped forward, his words carrying a strong sense of threat. Go ahead and take it if you dare. If you succeed, it's yours. If you fail, don't even think about taking anything from us again. Xia Nuan showed no sign of compromise, her hand already silently resting on the multifunctional knife she had previously exchanged with the resident on the 16th floor. This knife is a switchblade. It extends extremely quickly and is incredibly sharp. Anyone who dares to approach will surely be struck by blood. Young lady, you're really refusing a toast that's too polite to refuse. There are so many of us here and you only have one man with you. Do you think he can protect you? The middle-aged man took off his coat as he spoke, indicating that he was about to start, which looked quite ceremonial. Xia Mu silently stepped forward, shielding Xia Nuan behind him. His expression was cold and stern as he stared intently at the middle-aged man. You'll see once you try. Xia Nuan snorted coldly. Seeing the man leading the charge, she grabbed the other end of the kayak, quickly pulled out a knife from her pocket and slashed it down below his wrist. Blood gushed from the man's wrist instantly, followed by a scream. The blade was sharp, and Xia Nuan had to carefully control her strength to avoid severing his artery, otherwise he would be bleeding much more than just a little blood now. She has a knife, everyone be careful. Someone stepped forward and pushed the middle-aged man aside, completely ignoring the injury on his wrist. Their only thought was to grab the kayak as quickly as possible. They firmly believed in the saying that 2 fists can't beat 4 hands, and they swung their fists haphazardly without any strategy. Xia Nuan had a knife in her hand, so these people didn't dare to rush towards her. Instead, they turned around and made things difficult for Xia Mu. Xia Mu was no pushover either. Its reaction speed was extremely fast, and it could dodge the fist a second before it landed, as if it had anticipated it. And he didn't just dodge. With a swift movement, he dislocated a person's wrist, producing 2 crisp cracking sounds followed by 2 screams. More and more people are getting injured. Although there are many of them, most of them have been starving for a long time. Those who weren't hungry and still had food at home weren't in a hurry to go out and didn't want to get involved in the conflict. So even in a 2-against-many situation, the brother and sister were in no way at a disadvantage. The emergency exit was too narrow and it was constantly being blocked. One person would run away and another would rush in to fill the gap. Xia Nuan was getting irritated. She was already considering whether to make an example of someone now to deter others. Next, Nuan's gaze gradually fell on the woman on the 8th floor. She was the one who had stirred up almost all the chaos. This woman also had a foul mouth and could easily spread rumors. Brother, you hold on for a bit. Xia Nuan turned and kicked another person away. Seeing that Xia Mu was handling these people with ease, she felt relieved and decided to target the woman on the 8th floor alone. She gave him a word of advice and then squeezed her way into the crowd. The woman on the 8th floor jumped the most enthusiastically, but when a real fight broke out, she stood the furthest away. Xia Nuan pushed through the crowd step by step, her body slightly bruised, a small knife hidden in her sleeve, and swiftly leaped in front of the woman. She reached out and grabbed the woman by the collar, the blade already drawn in her hand. The woman on the 8th floor, upon seeing the blood-stained blade, turned deathly pale and screamed in terror, What do you want to do? It's such a small matter, you wouldn't kill someone, would you? I was almost shot through by an arrow yesterday. The fear is still etched in my mind. For some reason, the woman on the 8th floor felt that Xia Nuan had the guts to kill her. This thought startled her and she kept reassuring herself. We live in a society governed by the rule of law. Murder is a crime and the perpetrator must pay with their life. This young girl would never dare to do that. But the truth is, she was so frightened that she was paralyzed and couldn't move an inch. She could only watch helplessly as the knife tip in Xia Nuan's hand approached her throat. In that instant, he couldn't even utter a cry for help. Fear spread throughout her body. The feeling of being shrouded by death was unbearable, like dark clouds pressing down on her, making it hard to breathe. All residents affected by the flooding who wish to leave, please pack your belongings immediately and evacuate with the main group. All residents affected by the flooding who wish to leave, please pack your belongings immediately and evacuate with the main group. All residents affected by the flooding who wish to leave, please pack your belongings immediately and evacuate with the main group. The loudspeaker suddenly blared from outside and Xia Nuan paused in her actions. She was only centimeters away from the woman's throat when she got home. Officials have arrived. Upon hearing the noise, some people immediately climbed to the window and looked out. They were almost overjoyed to see the rescuers, dressed in fluorescent suits and carrying cell phone speakers, arriving by boat. They're here, the officials are here, we've been waited for, rescue has arrived. They're officials, the rescue team has arrived. Anyone who wants to come, get ready quickly. Anyone who doesn't have food at home and doesn't want to leave, please assemble immediately. The authorities haven't abandoned us, the rescue has arrived. With official rescue personnel present, those who were already starving no longer focused their attention on Xia Nuan and her group. Xia Nuan slowly sheathed her knife, leaned close to the woman's ear on the 8th floor and whispered something. There's no third time, no second. This is the last time. If you target our family again, I will definitely not let you off the hook, understand? Nodding and whimpering. Xia Nuan slowly sheathed her knife, her expression unchanged, and walked around the crowd to Xia Mu's side. Brother, let's go. Xia Nuan went up one floor and threw the kayak out of the 5th floor window. Then she and her brother jumped out of the window one after the other. Anyway, the water below is deep enough, so jumping directly into it won't hurt you. There are too many people on the 4th floor, there's no need to squeeze in with them. Xia Nuan successfully climbed onto the kayak, but Xia Mu wasn't a very good swimmer. It took Xia Nuan a lot of effort, dragging and pulling him to finally get him up. Brother, you can't swim. Xia Mu was clearly a terrible swimmer. Xia Nuan had originally planned to go out by herself, but Xia Mu volunteered, so it became a two-person trip. However, she never expected that her brother, who was supposed to jump into the water in the pouring rain, couldn't swim at all. I can't say I can't do it at all. At least I know how to float in water, so it's not a big problem. As long as I don't sink, I'll learn by paddling. If you go out alone, my parents and I won't feel at ease. There are so many bad people out there. What if they try to take advantage of you? Xia Mu muttered to himself, my younger sister is so outstanding and beautiful, she's easily targeted by bad people. As an older brother, even if I can't protect my sister every step of the way, I absolutely cannot let her go out alone in such a dangerous situation. Okay, then you can row a boat, right? Xia Nuan handed the paddle to Xia Mu. The electric paddle was too heavy. They didn't want to disturb anyone since they got up early in the morning, so they planned to travel light and find a secluded spot outside the neighborhood before using the electric paddle. Now that people have noticed and so many eyes are watching from upstairs, Xia Nuan can't just use the space carelessly, so she still has to manually navigate this section of the road out of the community. Xia Mu patted his chest, brimming with confidence. Don't worry, I'm no good at swimming, but I can definitely row. You don't need to lift a finger, I have plenty of strength. After saying that, Natsum raised his hand and showed off the muscles on his arm. It's not that there's none, it's just not very obvious. Xia Mu is rather thin and has the looks of a pretty boy, not someone who usually exercises or works out. Xia Nuan, recalling how easily her brother had dealt with those people, asked curiously, Brother, have you ever trained before? You seem pretty good at fighting. I guess so. My dad was a martial arts coach, and when I was little he always insisted that I follow in his footsteps. I trained with him for a long time when I was young, but I stopped training after I started school. Xia Mu was talking about things that happened before they traveled here. He cautiously observed Xia Nuan's expression out of the corner of his eye, and seeing that she looked normal, he breathed a slight sigh of relief. It seems the younger sister doesn't know about the original owner's family's past. If she did, this one sentence alone would be enough to expose the fact that they weren't the original family. The original owner's Xia family was a very ordinary and unremarkable family. Fu Ying was originally a supermarket saleswoman, Xia Zhiguo worked in a factory tightening screws, and Xia Mu was an unemployed bum who was spoiled and dropped out of school at the age of 15. The only one in the family who was good at studying was their adopted daughter, Lu Xiaozhou. This is why Lu Xiaozhou was so favored by the original owner of the body and the others. Their success in educating Lu Xiaozhou academically is the only thing they can boast about. Oh, I see, no wonder you and Dad are both so amazing. Xia Nuan suddenly realized. In their previous lives, Xia Mu and Xia Zhiguo had made a name for themselves in the local area. Although they didn't recruit followers and expand their power like others, they are still a force to be reckoned with. I heard that every time my parents and brother went out to collect supplies, they always came back with a full load. Many people tried to take advantage of them, but they were either killed or maimed. Gradually, their fearsome reputation spread, and no one dared to mess with them anymore. If it weren't for her, my parents and brother wouldn't have been deceived and fell into the enemy's trap. They probably wouldn't have died so young, and they might even have survived the apocalypse. Xia Nuan felt even more guilty upon thinking about this. In her past life, she was a loner, single-handedly supporting her entire family. Whenever she encountered groups of robbers, she could always beat them into fleeing in terror. She always thought she was very capable, but she was far less capable than her family and had become a burden to them. What are you thinking about? Seeing Xia Nuan looking dejected, as if lost in thought, Xia Mu gently patted her shoulder and asked. It's nothing, I just think my mom, dad, and brother are all very outstanding. Xia Nuan snapped out of her daze and smiled, the corners of her lips curving upwards. She has been reborn and will no longer be a burden to her family. With her new space, she can even become a support for them. If she is more careful, that situation will not happen again. You're outstanding too. Growing up in a place like the Lu family, you didn't go astray at all. You became a very skilled archer, winning so many world-class awards. You've already surpassed 99% of the people in the world. Xia Mu usually speaks in a carefree manner, but he is particularly serious when praising Xia Nuan. His tone of praise carried a hint of seriousness, making Xia Nuan a little embarrassed. She cleared her throat and directed, there's a small alley ahead. Let's turn in, load up the electric oars, and we can head straight for the dock. All right, hold on tight. Xia Mu swung his arms and began to exert force, making the kayak incredibly fast. Fortunately, the wind wasn't against him, otherwise his arms, which hadn't yet developed any muscle, would have been broken. Turning into the deserted alley, Xia Nuan took out an electric paddle from her spatial storage, attached it to the kayak, pulled the start rope, and a huge engine roared up. Like a gust of wind, it rushed out of the alley and headed straight for the dock. The pier is far from the city center, and the kayaks arrived half an hour late. Just as Xia Nuan had predicted, there was no one at the dock, only a few cargo ships drifting on the sea. The sea had long since merged with the floodwaters in the city, and the warehouses and docks were nowhere to be seen. They could only be located by the positions where ships were moored. Xia Nuan had been here more than once in her previous life. She parked the kayak in the warehouse area with ease, took out an oxygen tank and mask from her spatial storage and put them on, and then took out a 500-meter-long rope and tied it around her waist. Brother, you stay on the boat and keep watch. Whenever I pull the rope, pull me back. Xia Mu is a non-swimmer, so diving isn't suitable for him. With the double protection of ropes and oxygen tanks, Xia Nuan can stay underwater for a while without any danger. He gripped one end of the rope tightly, and Xia Nuan leaped into the water. The rainwater was murky, and it was pitch black all around, so you could hardly see anything. Xia Nuan had no choice but to take out her high-beam flashlight, but underwater visibility was still very low. Finally finding the first warehouse, Xia Nuan took out pliers and cut the lock on the warehouse, then quickly retreated. The water carried the goods out, and cardboard boxes surged upwards frantically. Xia Nuan grabbed one at random, tore it apart, and found it was a children's toy inside. She then casually tossed it aside and went to look for the next warehouse. Opening an underwater warehouse is like a treasure hunt. Nobody knows what's inside. Every time a warehouse is opened, it's like opening a blind box. Items that are too light are mostly worthless. Only items like clothes and blankets are worth taking away. Xia Nuan came out this time hoping to find more of these things. Extreme cold is expected for a long period, making it essential to stay warm. The authorities have already dispatched personnel for rescue efforts, meaning that most areas with essential supplies are now under their control. Going to shopping malls or similar places for free shopping is simply unrealistic, which is why Xia Nuan insisted on coming to the pier. They opened another warehouse, which is now filled with furniture. Xia Nuan knocked on the door and seeing that all the furniture was made of composite wood panels, gave up on the warehouse. I had bad luck today. Both warehouses I opened contained useless items. If it's solid wood furniture, you can still use it for firewood after you take it. But composite board is so fragile and brittle like paper that there's absolutely no need to collect it. Hopefully, the third warehouse won't disappoint her like that again. Xia Nuan rubbed her hands together, secretly praying that Lady Luck would be on her side. She reached out with pliers to cut the warehouse door lock, but this time she didn't even have time to get far enough away before the iron door suddenly sprang open and knocked her backward. The oxygen mask on her face was almost knocked off. Just as Xia Nuan regained her balance, a large wooden bucket came crashing down on her face. Xia Nuan had no time to dodge, so she could only curl up as much as possible to shield herself from some of the damage from the wooden barrels. Just then I felt someone suddenly grab the oxygen tank behind me. A tremendous force pulled from behind, dragging Xia Nuan half a meter away, just in time to avoid the oncoming wooden barrel. Xia Nuan turned around abruptly and met a pair of calm, expressionless eyes. The other person was also carrying an oxygen tank and a mask, and their face, resembling that of Nuwa, was extremely distinctive. Xia Nuan raised her hand and gestured a 16. The other person nodded slightly, which was considered a greeting. Even the residents of the 16th floor came to the dock. The man on the 16th floor pointed to Xia Nuan's oxygen tube, indicating that she should look behind her. Xia Nuan turned around and was surprised to find that the oxygen tank had been smashed by something, and the oxygen content was dropping rapidly. She has to dive up first. Xia Nuan pointed to the water. 16th floor nodded slightly, holding her hand tightly without letting go, and swam upwards until he broke the surface. Xia Nuan pulled down her oxygen mask and wiped the water off her face. "Thank you, I'm so grateful to you." The sound of the heavy rain hitting the water was so loud that Xia Nuan could only shout her thanks. "It was nothing, but your oxygen tank is broken. You won't be able to hold on much longer if you dive down. Did anyone come with you?" "Did you bring a spare?" "My brother came with me. He has a spare oxygen tank. I'll have him pull me back in a bit." Xia Nuan didn't plan to take the man from the 16th floor with her to look for her brother. There are no oxygen tanks on the kayak. Everything is in the space. It's just an excuse to avoid his sight. "Good." 16th floor nodded slightly, responded with a single sentence, and then immediately dived back underwater as if he were abandoning her. Xia Nuan was a little confused. "Was your departure so sudden?" "I'm pretty confused." Half-dazed, Xia Nuan paddled further away, quickly replaced her oxygen tank, and dived back into the water. This time we can see a light flashing in the distance. That must be the location of the 16th floor. Xia Nuan had no intention of competing with him for supplies, so she changed direction and planned to go to another warehouse. But to her surprise, the point of light was getting closer and closer, as if it were chasing after her. Xia Nuan stopped swimming and rushed upwards out of the water. Sure enough, the 16th floor also popped its head out after a while. "What are you looking for in the warehouse?" "I just want to find some daily necessities like clothes and blankets, but don't worry, I'll only take a few, not too many, and I won't try to take anything from you." Xia Nuan spoke in a kind tone, afraid that the other party might misunderstand and think she was trying to take his supplies. She couldn't bring herself to be ungrateful, especially since the other person had just saved her. "I didn't mean that. It's just that opening a warehouse blindly is dangerous. Many warehouses contain hazardous materials, and some things can be washed out by the water and injure you. For example, the warehouse you just opened was a wine cellar, with a lot of glassware and wine barrels inside. I'm quite familiar with this area and can take you to find what you're looking for." The person on the 16th floor may seem cold, but they have a warm heart. First they tipped her off, and now they're helping her find supplies. What a good person. These past few days have been filled with bizarre encounters, so meeting a normal and even decent person has greatly improved Xia Nuan's mood. "Thank you then. What brings you here?" "I need to find some food and some firewood. I don't have gas there, and I can't cook without the power." These days, almost everyone who dares to go out looking for food is doing so in search of something to eat. Xia Nuan was not surprised by the answer from the 16th floor. To her surprise, the official rescue team arrived. "Since you're so inconvenienced on the 16th floor, why didn't you go with the official team?" "Didn't you know? The official rescue team just arrived downstairs. Residents who can no longer live in their homes can leave with the officials." Xia Nuan gave a small reminder. The man on the 16th floor shook his head slightly. No, we're not going. Right now, apart from high-rise buildings, almost nowhere is habitable. The authorities can't requisition residential buildings. At most, they can requisition hotels, shopping malls, and office buildings. But office buildings don't have residential amenities, so it's difficult to meet basic needs. The authorities have other uses for the supplies in shopping malls, so they can only accommodate people in hotels. With so many residents in the city, even if they only accept residents from the first to third floors, 1 or 2 hotel rooms are far from enough. Even the authorities can't solve the basic needs of so many people. If possible, try to find your own way to survive and don't rely on anyone. The man's voice was cold and deep, possessing a quality that could sway people's resolve. Xia Nuan knew all the information he mentioned, but that was because she had lived a second life and knew that the authorities weren't exactly a good place to go either. The man on the 16th floor analyzed the situation entirely on his own, demonstrating extremely clear judgment, which is truly admirable. Xia Nuan was wondering how to repay the kindness of being pulled earlier. Since the other party was looking for supplies, they would definitely face the problem of not having enough storage space and not being able to take more supplies back. It's better to lend a hand and repay the favor. If you can find a warehouse where food is stored, I can go with you and bring back more for you. Don't worry, apart from the clothes and blankets I need, you can have everything else we find on this trip. You seem very afraid of getting involved with other people. The person on the 16th floor didn't agree, but instead asked a question. Xia Nuan smiled awkwardly. Her suggestion was indeed partly due to her desire to distance Li Qi from the 16th floor, but that wasn't the whole reason. Helping you out is like helping me out just now. Fu Yichen, that's my name. The person on the 16th floor suddenly introduced themselves. Xia Nuan was slightly taken aback, but out of politeness she replied, "Oh, my name is Xia Nuan, so do you need my help? Come with me, take as much as you can, we'll split it 50-50 when we get back." After Fu Yichen finished speaking, he dived back into the water. Xia Nuan quickly followed his movements, diving into the water and closely tracking his figure. After passing through the 5th warehouse, Fu Yichen stopped, took out a small pair of pliers from his pocket and snapped the chain on the iron gate. This time nothing floated out of the warehouse. Xia Nuan followed and peered inside, discovering that it was actually a cold storage room. Because of the power outage, all the refrigeration equipment had stopped working, and looking around, all that could be seen were high-end imported and exported meats and seafood. Xia Nuan's eyes lit up as she looked at it. To ensure that every penny is spent wisely, their meat stock rarely includes seafood or fish, let alone high-end ingredients. If they can eat better, no one wants to lower their quality of life. Although there wasn't much in the warehouse, it was enough to satisfy their cravings. Xia Nuan followed closely behind the 16th floor, and while the other person had their back turned, she secretly smuggled ingredients into the space. She didn't dare take too much. The man on the 16th floor was meticulous and had excellent observation skills. Even just sneaking a little bit across the border made Xia Nuan feel a little guilty. Fu Yichen has already started selecting the items he needs. He mostly took high-calorie or very filling foods like beef and foie gras. They don't even look at seafood or anything like that. This actually benefited Xia Nuan. Seafood is her favorite food, but it's always been very expensive, both before and after the apocalypse. After returning, she simply spent a bit more money ordering various seafood takeout, saving it for when she really wanted to eat it later. Taking advantage of the fact that no one was looking, Xia Nuan stuffed seafood into her spatial storage. Lobster, abalone, starfish, chilled hairy crabs. I took a little of everything, leaving nothing behind. Since she got the space, Xia Nuan feels like she's developing a hoarding habit. Having organized all his belongings, Fu Yichen turned around and looked at the warehouse, feeling that something was off. It seemed like a lot of things were missing, but Xia Nuan's hands were empty, she hadn't taken anything. Perhaps it was washed away by the water. Fu Yichen didn't think much of it, but gestured to ask if they should leave. Xia Nuan nodded repeatedly, casually picked up 2 boxes from the side, pointed upwards, indicating that they could swim upstream. The 2 of them burst out of the water again, and Fu Yichen frowned as he reminded them. Let's try to get as much meat as possible. These things are delicious, but they only satisfy our appetites. Right now, filling our stomachs is the priority. Xia Nuan didn't even notice what she had casually grabbed. Looking down, I realized it was 2 boxes of crayfish. Well, it's no wonder people reminded her like that. Although crayfish are delicious, they have little meat and are not a good choice for filling your stomach. My family loves to eat this, so I'll take this first, and then I'll take more to fill their stomachs when we get back. Xia Nuan offered a casual explanation. Can you remember the route? My boat is moored over there. Fu Yichin pointed to the other side where Xia Mu was. Now that they were going back to deliver something, they would definitely have to return to their respective ships. Xia Nuan looked up but couldn't see where Fu Yichin's boat was moored. It must have been quite far away, otherwise they should have noticed it when they arrived at the dock. I remember the way, I'll be waiting for you right above the cold storage. The two agreed on a meeting point and swam off in different directions. Halfway through the swim, Xia Nuan got a little tired and tugged at the rope around her waist. After a short while, she felt a pull. The fully automatic otter is so convenient. All you have to do is lie flat on the water like an otter, and you can safely return to the boat. Brother, I just ran into the guy from the 16th floor. He knows the docks around here really well. He took me straight to a cold storage room full of high-end ingredients. I got a lot of seafood. Mom's going to cook it for us tonight. Xia Nuan's mouth watered just thinking about it. She was incredibly hungry. She threw the suitcase onto the boat, leaned over the edge of the kayak, rested her chin on her hands, her eyes sparkling, and looked up at Xia Mu, like a mermaid who had just swum out of the sea. Xia Mu was inexplicably charmed by her cuteness and nodded repeatedly. Okay, we'll have seafood at home tonight. Are you tired from going? If you are, let your brother go. Although I'm not a very good swimmer, I can manage with my diving gear and a little practice. No, thank you. I only have a limited number of oxygen tanks, so I need to use them sparingly. Bro, you should just stay on the kayak. Xia Nuan pouted, revealing a slightly disgusted expression. Oh, so you're complaining about your brother. I was just worried about you getting tired from swimming up and down the river. If you don't want to, fine, I'll just wait for you comfortably on the boat. Xia Mu raised his hand and gave Xia Nuan a flick on the forehead. The force wasn't great, but Xia Nuan still pretended to be in a lot of pain, covering her forehead and grimacing. Brother, you're bullying me. I'll definitely tell Mom when I get home. You've even learned to tattle. Believe me or not, I'll play whack-a-mole with you right now. Xia Mu raised his hand as if to slap Xia Nuan on the forehead. Xia Nuan dodged left and right, then pushed off with her feet and floated away into the distance. They were shouting as they floated. You can't hit me, you can't hit me. That'll make you so angry you'll tell on me. When we get back, I'll eat seafood and you can have bamboo shoots stir-fried with pork. Xia Nuan revealed her usual lively demeanor, and Xia Mu smiled knowingly, standing on the boat with his hands on his hips and shouting. All right, hurry back and be careful. Don't trust the guy on the 16th floor too much. Men are all the same. Xia Nuan was speechless when she heard her brother's words of advice. Bro, have you forgotten you're a man too? How can someone be so ruthless that they even curse themselves? Following the same route, Xia Nuan easily found the cold storage again and then floated directly above it. After a short while, Fu Yichin's figure finally appeared on the water's surface. It seems his boat docked much further away than theirs. Xia Nuan had just chatted with her brother for a while, and Fu Yichin arrived later than her, coming and going alone. How many more trips do you need to make? Xia Nuan wanted to take some more seafood from the cold storage while Fu Yichin wasn't watching it. Let's make 2 more trips, then go open other warehouses. There's a warehouse here specifically for storing export-grade rice and several other warehouses with snacks and compressed vegetables. We need to take some of those. Fu Yichin told Xia Nuan everything he knew, and after a moment's thought he continued, the blankets and clothes you want are mostly in the warehouse at the end, which is quite far from here. If you're not in a hurry, I'll take you there at the end. I'm not in a hurry, let's move the grain first. With someone pointing the way, she could get more supplies, so Xia Nuan wasn't in a hurry. Having reached a consensus, the two dived down twice more. However, Xia Nuan didn't go back on either of these 2 occasions. Instead, she swam to a distance, put the items in her spatial storage, and then went back to wait for the 16th floor to return. Fu Yichin always managed to pinpoint exactly what he was talking about without taking any unnecessary detours. Xia Nuan thought he must have worked as a warehouse manager or something similar before. However, someone who can afford to live in a high-end residential area is probably in management. Otherwise, I wouldn't be so familiar with this place. When they went to get their clothes and blankets, Fu Yichin also took a few. After he left, Xia Nuan quickly and secretly wandered back to the warehouses she had visited before. I moved all the items that I hadn't finished moving, and that wouldn't keep for long into my own space. It's a waste to leave it here soaking in water, letting it rot and smell bad. It's better to fill its space. Today was a fruitful day, but I ran into the resident on the 16th floor, so I can't experience the joy of opening blind boxes anymore. And naturally, I can't just buy whatever I see. The original plan was to fill at least 1 warehouse today, but in the end, only 1 corner was filled. It was quite a hassle to come out like this, and Xia Nuan was a little reluctant to leave the dock. But if they linger here for too long, the people on the 16th floor will inevitably become suspicious once they learn of their whereabouts. It was already sunset when I returned to my neighborhood. The neighborhood, which was bustling this morning, is now quiet. The homeless people who were originally crammed into the emergency exits all left the community with the official rescue efforts. Some residents who had absolutely no food at home also chose to leave with the authorities. Both the property management office and the individual buildings became noticeably quieter in an instant. Every household stayed indoors, and the entire city was so quiet it seemed to have become a ghost town. 6 days after the typhoon, fewer and fewer households had stored food. Looking at the dark clouds covering the sky outside, and seeing no sign that the heavy rain would stop, despair slowly crept into people's hearts. The water level had reached the 7th floor. During this time, the authorities launched another rescue operation, taking away residents from the floors below the 7th floor. Some people left, and unusually some people even came. Xia Nuan stood by the window gazing into the distance and saw an inflatable boat swaying and drifting towards her. Xia Nuan knew the people up there all too well. Lu Jiancheng and his wife, her adoptive parents. The person who used to maintain a glamorous image at all times has now become decadent and disheveled. Lu Jiancheng struggled forward with the oars, while Madame Lu numbly scooped out the rainwater from the boat bit by bit with a basin. They slowly slid down to the ground floor of Xia Nuan's building, stopped at the window on the 7th floor, and climbed out using both hands and feet. The entire Lu family is here. Things are likely to get even more lively from now on. If all goes well, the authorities will announce tomorrow that food sales will be allowed to resume. In less than 2 days, the internet will also be cut off, and people will lose all channels of communication with the outside world. Thinking of this, Xia Nuan couldn't help but tap her head. She was used to being alone in her past life. Except when she needed to go out to find supplies, the Lu family rarely greeted her warmly, let alone worried about her life or death outside. So she had long been used to a life without internet, electricity, or contact with anyone. When we were stockpiling supplies, we bought almost everything, but we forgot about walkie-talkies. It seems I'll have to find another opportunity to collect them later. I wonder if walkie-talkies that have been soaked in water will still work. Why would you hit yourself for no reason? Xia Mu happened to be carrying a glass of milk out of the room when he saw Xia Nuan looking annoyed and asked her in confusion. We forgot to buy walkie-talkies. We don't even know if they'll still work after being submerged. Most of our supplies are underwater now, making it difficult for us to even go out if we split up. I'll make it for you, oh. Not now. I haven't bought any electronic components. Electronic components can sit for a few days without any problem. I'll look around and see if there are any electronics factories nearby. We can go and collect them. I can make anything you want. Xia Mu said that building a walkie-talkie is as simple as sculpting a clay figure. Xia Nuan had only heard her brother mention that he could use machine tools, but she never expected him to be such a skilled craftsman who could even understand walkie-talkies. Then let's go today. Xia Nuan was already impatient. She was also worried that if the electronic components were soaked in water for too long, they would rust and become unusable. They were not incapable of getting out of the water, so they should try not to delay. You can wait while I put on a raincoat. Xia Mu was willing to accompany his younger sister no matter what she wanted to do. Without saying a word, he turned around, put on his raincoat and rain boots, and got ready to go out with Xia Nuan. The Lu family should have already gone upstairs. I didn't run into them when I went down. The brother and sister boarded a kayak, located a nearby electronics factory using satellite navigation, and then began to follow the route. The factory area in the suburbs is a continuous stretch. They had been there several times before when purchasing supplies. It'll only take another 5 or 6 minutes to get to the electronics factory gate. You just need to cross a main road. Xia Nuan turned onto the main road, but unexpectedly, after going less than a kilometer, she encountered a group of burly men standing on a kayak, looking fierce and menacing. They had 5 kayaks in total, with 3 people standing on each boat. They all have a very uniform build. They're all probably over 18 meters tall and weigh around 170–180 kilograms. Each of them was carrying a weapon, including baseball bats and even machetes. Xia Nuan was extremely familiar with one of them. She would never forget what that person looked like: ugly, disgusting, and perverted. He was the man who bought her from Lu Jiaozhao in her past life, tormented her for a long time, and finally turned her into a human pig to be soaked in wine. This man is known as Sixth Brother in the underworld. It is said that since the beginning of the apocalypse, he has gathered a group of brothers and started a business of robbery and plunder. Later, he befriended a black market boss and began to thrive in the business. Enemies meeting are bound to be furious, and Xia Nuan was already losing her temper, pulling out a crossbow from her spatial storage. She casually took out her crossbow, making no attempt to conceal how she conjured something out of thin air. Xia Mu glanced at Xia Nuan with surprise, then looked at the group of people in the distance, his expression instantly turning cold. The secret of the space must not be revealed. This is an unspoken understanding among their entire family. Now that Xia Nuan isn't even hiding it anymore, the meaning is very clear. The group of people I encountered today, not a single one was spared. Do you have a grudge against me? Xia Mu leaned closer to Xia Nuan and asked softly. Have. Xia Nuan's voice was icy, her bloodshot eyes fixed on sixth brother among the group of men. The hatred of having her flesh cut off, the pain of having her eyes gouged out, even if she were to tear him to pieces 1,000 times, Xia Nuan wouldn't feel any relief. I originally thought I wouldn't meet sixth brother until he became famous, but I never expected that we would run into each other so early. That's a good thing. It saves her the trouble of actively looking for people and wasting her time. What kind of deep-seated hatred is this? A fight to the death. Oh, so it's a matter of him dying and us living. Xia Mu didn't ask any further questions. He had long suspected that his younger sister had a secret and a very big one at that, but so what? Each member of the family had unspeakable secrets hidden in their hearts. Whatever the younger sister was hiding, she would never harm them. He even told them about something as significant as the spatial dimension, something they had only just met. What is there to doubt? There should be a sense of distance in any relationship between people. Xia Mu doesn't like to pry into other people's privacy, and he doesn't want to ruin the relationship he has built with his sister because of curiosity. Sometimes it's better to be a little oblivious. That's how you live a better life. Hey, you two coming from the other side, leave your kayaks here. Sixth brother also saw Xia Nuan and the others, put his hands on his hips, brandished his machete, and shouted in a gruff voice. They wouldn't even pretend. Their true colors were written all over their faces. Robbery. Xia Nuan raised her hand and drew back the bowstring. This time she went all out, drawing the bowstring almost to its fullest extent, the arrow gleaming coldly as it was aimed at sixth brother's face. The boss and his men have bows. The younger brother next to sixth brother had better eyesight, and seeing Xia Nuan drawing her bow, quickly whispered a reminder. They were all traveling in inflatable boats. Even if the arrow missed a person but hit the boat, causing it to tear and leak, they would still be in big trouble. HMPH, what's there to be afraid of? We have so many boats. Even if one or two slip through, it doesn't matter. We can just grab them when the others come. You guys row over quickly. Kill the man, keep the pretty women, and throw the ugly ones into the water. Sixth brother calmly gave orders, completely disregarding the two men below him, relying solely on his superior numbers. The younger brother, being obedient, nodded and bowed twice in agreement, then rowed with great effort towards Xia Nuan's direction, facing either of the two boats to the left or right. The men were all quite strong, and they rowed the boat very fast. Xia Nuan ignored them completely, letting go of the strings and setting her sights solely on sixth brother. Seeing that Xia Nuan wanted to capture the leader first, sixth brother bent down and lay prone on the boat, dodging the arrow. Xia Nuan wasn't worried when the first arrow missed. She took out 3 more arrows from her spatial storage, drew the bowstring, and shot them out at lightning speed. Only then did the henchman, who had gotten a little closer, realize that the thing in Xia Nuan's hand had appeared out of thin air. Everyone looked surprised, their minds momentarily blank. Did they travel to some kind of magical channel? How can someone conjure arrows out of thin air? They weren't included in human evolution either. Boss, this chick is pretty, and she can even conjure things out of thin air. One of the underlings turned around and shouted, his voice full of surprise. Damn it, what nonsense are you spouting? If this little wench is pretty, tie her up. Sixth brother didn't believe his younger brother's words at all. Even if he did, he would only think it was a trick Xia Nuan had pulled to scare people. His only goals were the boat and the woman. He cared about nothing else. Xia Nuan sneered and raised her hand, firing 3 arrows simultaneously. One of the arrows struck the messenger who had just delivered the message. At first, her target was still sixth brother's boat, but suddenly she turned around, and the underling who couldn't dodge in time was shot right through the head. His body slowly collapsed and fell into the water with a splash. Crimson bloodstains spread in the murky water, and the 2 burly men who were still rowing the boat turned pale instantly. They robbed people for so long, shouting threats of violence, but in reality, they just kicked them overboard and left them to fend for themselves. Although they all knew perfectly well that those kicked off the boat were doomed, they could comfort themselves with a sense of relief that they hadn't killed anyone themselves. When they went out to rob, They rarely killed anyone on the spot. Even when they encountered someone with a fiery temper, they didn't have to lift a finger. Their leader, Sixth Brother, would do it. Sixth Brother is ruthless, but following him ensures they have enough to eat and drink. They don't have to get involved in murders, and even if they are later investigated, the most they'll be charged with is harboring a criminal. Many people in coastal areas own kayaks, and when they are starving, they choose to go out to find supplies. They initially lay in ambush, waiting for the others to return laden with their loot before rushing in to rob them. But recently fewer and fewer people have come, while Sixth Brother has gathered more and more men. They had robbed many times before and seized quite a few kayaks, so they discussed setting up a fleet of boats. Some of them would continue to block roads and rob boats, while others would go underwater to salvage supplies. Having successfully robbed several times before, they were brimming with confidence and never imagined they would be killed in return. One of their companions fell, and Xia Nuan's ruthless and decisive actions served as a wake-up call for them. The person who was hit was dazed and momentarily at a loss. He who kills will be killed by others. If you walk the night too often, you're bound to see a ghost. Call out. Another arrow, accompanied by a whooshing sound, struck the man who was trying to grab his companion's corpse, piercing him through the air as well, hitting him squarely between the eyebrows without the slightest deviation. Xia Nuan continued to draw her bow, each time aiming for a near full moon in order to maximize the force of the shot. 2 people have already died. No matter how shocked the remaining people are, they should have come to their senses by now. They wanted to row back and seek their leader's help. Sixth Brother had just lifted his head from the kayak when he saw his underlings fleeing in disarray, and he felt a surge of anger. Damn it, if anyone dares to come back, I'll kill them. She's all alone with just a bow. If you spread out and approach, she can't shoot you. Sixth Brother had personally killed people, and after hearing his threats, his underlings dared not row back any further. He could only turn around with a long face and continue approaching Xia Nuan. These people risk their lives for you, and this is how you treat them. Xia Nuan smiled sarcastically and shouted at Sixth Brother. Although he couldn't see her expression, Sixth Brother could tell from her tone that she had a contemptuous attitude. How could someone as self-important as him possibly tolerate such contempt? Sixth Brother cursed under his breath and pulled out his secret weapon from his waist. No one knew he had escaped from the police station. He was in custody at the time when a typhoon struck, smashing the glass doors and windows of the police station. Although the detention room was not greatly affected, it was still left in a mess by the strong wind. Later, the water level rose rapidly, and a kind-hearted young police officer on duty opened the door to his detention cell, preparing to take him upstairs. As the young officer approached, he strangled him unconscious with his arm, then took the officer's gun and drove away. The other officers were busy with the rescue efforts, and the junior officer was the only one on duty, so no one noticed his departure. Whether the young police officer who was unconscious in the water could survive the rising water level was none of his concern. This gun only has 6 bullets in it. Every bullet used reduces the remaining capacity. Sixth Brother has only used this tactic to intimidate others recently and has never actually used it before. Today, he's going to fire the first shot. He had never used this device before, so he could only imitate what he saw in TV dramas and carefully open the safety lock. Holding the gun in both hands, he took a deep breath, aimed at Xia Nuan, and fired a shot. With a loud bang, Sixth Brother's arm went numb. He nervously watched in Xia Nuan's direction, praying that his bullet would hit them squarely between the eyebrows. But he wasn't a professional and his aim was off. The bullet didn't hit either Xia Nuan or Xia Mu. Fortunately for him, the bullet missed the person but hit the hull of the kayak. The bullet pierced through, and the kayak began to leak air rapidly. It began to shake violently in the wind. In such an environment, even if Xia Nuan were a sharpshooter, she would no longer be able to maintain her balance and continue shooting. Their boat is leaking. Everyone hurry, if we get close enough, this little wench won't be able to touch us. One of the younger boys noticed the unusual activity on Xia Nuan and her group's kayak and excitedly yelled, "Brother here, are you sure you want to use this?" Xia Nuan struggled to steady herself and took out 2 chainsaws from her spatial storage. These things are invincible in close combat. No matter how vicious a person is, as long as they are still of sound mind, they will feel terrified when they see this thing. No matter how much they planned, they couldn't have predicted that Sixth Brother already had a gun at this time. Xia Nuan was somewhat annoyed that she had underestimated her opponent. She always thought that the information gap from her rebirth gave her a significant advantage. Her experiences in the years following the apocalypse made her less timid than when she first entered the world. She is now more patient, determined, and decisive than people today. But whether it's the sixth brother they've encountered now, or Fu Yichen, the resident on the 16th floor below them, all of this made her realize that truly intelligent people, regardless of good or evil, and at any time, can quickly assess the situation and choose the best option for themselves. How could someone who thrives after the apocalypse have remained completely unknown at the beginning of it? The authorities are currently suppressing it, and they're all hiding in the shadows. Not many people know about it. The gun that sixth brother pulled out this time served as a wake-up call for Xia Nuan. We must never take advantage of the convenience of rebirth to gain the upper hand and thus become complacent towards any enemy. This includes everyone in the Lu family. I think I'd dare to use it. Xia Mu wasn't quite sure how much courage he had, and he was surprised by his sister's decisiveness. Some have even started speculating whether the book omitted some detail, such as his sister not only being an archery athlete but also working part-time as an assassin. Otherwise, how could he have killed two people without batting an eye? If it were him, just thinking about it would make him feel a little uneasy. But facing these vicious people who were always threatening to kill them, no matter how scared they were, they absolutely could not hold back. Besides, they had already seen the secret of their sister's space, and they could not leave this potential problem behind under any circumstances. Xia Mu silently cheered himself up, took the chainsaw and started pulling the trigger, straightened his back, and treated everyone in front of him as nothing more than radishes and cabbages. Once they get close, I'll get a new kayak from my spatial storage. Bro, remember to stick close and jump on together. Xia Nuan calmly waited for the kayak beneath her feet to sink, keep a close eye on the person rapidly approaching from ahead and calculate the distance. 10 meters, 5 meters, that's about it. Xia Nuan quickly pulled out another kayak from her spatial storage, then leaped onto it. Xia Mu followed closely behind. Those who approached them were naturally astonished to see Xia Nuan pull out such a large object out of thin air again. Following the current, they quickly floated to Xia Nuan's side, and in that brief moment of distraction, the neck separated from the body. Bloodshed, brutality, and utter despair, this is the true apocalypse. Xia Nuan is like a killing god, anyone who gets close to her is doomed. The group was truly terrified this time. Faced with the roar of the chainsaw, all they could think about was running away. But even if they try to escape, Xia Nuan won't let them go. None of those guys who follow Sixth Brother are any good. As order collapses, they will gradually amplify their greed and ambition, indulging their tyrannical desires. Countless people have died at their hands, and many of them are familiar faces, all of whom Xia Nuan saw after being bought by Sixth Brother in her previous life. They watched without flinching as Sixth Brother committed atrocities against her, not only taking it for granted but even laughing as they tried it themselves. They are all beasts in human form. If they die at this moment, then those who die tragically because of them will live longer. Some still manage to escape, abandoning all brotherhood in their desperate attempt to save their lives, clinging to those around them as shields. They abandoned the kayak, jumped directly into the water, and swam back frantically. Xia Nuan put away the chainsaw and switched to a bow and arrow. While shooting down the remaining fish, she said to Xia Mu, "Brother, you steer the boat, go over there." Upon hearing Xia Nuan's instructions, Xia Mu immediately put down the chainsaw and began manually propelling the boat with the oars. Unfortunately, there's simply no time to install any electric propellers right now. It's faster to just use your hands. Xia Nuan stood steadily on the kayak, like a patient beast lurking in the shadows, waiting to ambush its prey. With the training of her spatial mental power, her eyesight is now extraordinary, enough to see her Sixth Brother's every move clearly even on a gloomy, rainy day. Sixth Brother remained lying in the kayak, quietly listening to the sounds outside. He no longer heard his underlings shouting and yelling, and feeling uneasy, he wanted to peek out to take a look. When she looked up, she saw Xia Nuan and the other person getting closer and closer. He had already seen Xia Nuan's appearance clearly, but at this moment he had no mind to appreciate her beauty. Especially when I see dismembered limbs floating on the water, my mind goes blank. He instinctively raised his hand, intending to shoot Xia Nuan. But before he could even get into position, Xia Nuan had already shot the arrow out. Sixth Brother's wrist was shot through and the pistol fell into the water. His only trump card was gone, so he could only watch helplessly as Xia Nuan, the killing machine, pressed closer and closer.